Draftees, today is your day. You're off to great places. Commish, say hey.
There you go. Come on.
With a chain on your neck and Versace on your shoes, you'll have the best drip as you wait for a team to choose. You've worked your tail off, so let the people know that you're the guy who'll help their franchise grow. Teams looking at players, debating with care, fans anxiously waiting to see who will go where. Last year, Trevor Lawrence was the #1 pick. This year, Aidan Hutchinson's name should be called quick. Now, the draft can be an up and down slope. Things will happen and frequently do, like Eli Manning saying nope, or CeeDee Lamb snatching his phone from his boot. The war rooms will battle to make things happen. So don't worry, don't stoop, just go right along. You'll get the call too. Oh, the places you'll go. You'll be on your way up. You'll be seeing great sights. Enjoy draft night in Vegas, under the lights.
You are looking at beautiful, fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Home of the 22 NFL Draft. Like, this feels like it's really big. This has got this echo going on. Oh, you see the strip, you see the flood of people for the first time since 2019 in Nashville, Tennessee. The fans are back. They're back in attendance, and it is a wild scene on the Las Vegas Strip. They have been getting in to place for hours, and now everybody is ready for chaos to ensue, and we're going to be there for every single ounce of it. Oh, fitting that we end with my beloved Raiders. It is the 2022 NFL live stream draft broadcast on ESPN, and we are here to have a wild time. Jason Fitz hanging out with me. That's right. That's what we're going to do. It's going to be wild. Field Yates, Dominique Foxworth, Mina Kimes.
By Vegas standards Fitz. Or by Bristol standards? Like, how wild are we getting?
By me standards. Look,
okay.
I mean, we are in
That's
the...
not saying much.
I mean, come on. We're in the city I was born in. That happens to be the home of my favorite NFL team, and we're doing my favorite my favorite moment here. Dominique, don't.
Oh no, I was just asking for clarification. I wasn't diminishing the amount of wild. I just wanted to know what I could get away with.
Wow.
That's
well,
all.
Before we came to air, Dominique did say that we're the cool kids side of this, Mina. So maybe the wild is here. Yeah, he said that we're the cool kids, which might be the first time we've been called cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know about that. That feels like sarcasm.
I mean, no, it's not sarcasm. It just came down to the fact that Field and I don't have tattoos and we have children, and you guys are tattooed and childless. So it feels like you're just younger and cooler. That's all.
Wow. We won't get into an age conversation yet. I will tell you this. We're going to be here for every pick. Not only tonight, we're going to be here together every pick tomorrow, and we'll be doing simulcast across digital for day 3. So this is what I know. If you're watching in the ESPN app, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you want to hang out with us digitally, don't go anywhere. We're going to be here for every ounce of all of it, and you can watch us alongside with however you want to watch other ESPN broadcasts throughout the course of the NFL Draft. It is a mob. It is a, get it, what I did with Vegas? See, that's what I did there, the mob? Okay, that's what's happening inside, and we're going to start by everybody. Look at this. We're not even getting started with the number of hangover references that are about to come in through this. So we're going to start by everybody giving one big thought. And to do that, we're going to throw to the extra men in our wolf pack. That's right. Spencer Hall and Harry Douglas are outside. Gentlemen, Harry, get us started with your one big thought.
Hey, y'all. It's the NFL Draft 2022. Welcome to the world's most expensive fantasy football draft. Harry, what do we got?
Well, for me, it's the number 6 pick of the draft. That's where things get unique in 2022 when it comes to the NFL Draft. The Carolina Panthers at 6. Now, when you look at this team, things are getting heated. Heated with the head coach, Matt Rule. He's on the hot seat, right? So what does that mean? They need a quarterback. The last 3 guys that they got, Teddy Bridgewater, they got rid of him. Yeah. What do you think about that?
It's probably not good.
Oh, my goodness. Sam Darnold, he's still seeing ghosts. Sure. What do you think about that?
That's probably bad, too.
Cam Newton, he didn't do well at all this year.
No. That's 3 bad things. Is that bad?
So that's a quarterback that they need. They need a quarterback. With that being said, last year they gave up 52 sacks. That's not good. So they definitely need somebody to protect the quarterback. So before you get one, you have to make sure you protect them. That's why I think they need an offensive lineman.
So what I'm hearing about Carolina is they got a problem, but they need to fix it, which is also a problem. So they need a problem to fix their problem. Solve two problems.
I like your
to solve
analysis.
three. Yeah, that's definitely confusing. I know a lot of things are confusing in this draft, but my thing is we're seeing a lot of things that we've seen before. You might be kind of freaked out that, there's not a clear-cut number one can't-miss quarterback, right? Yeah. We don't have a running back that somebody's going to jump up and grab in the first round, real obvious like. But you know what we do have? We have a lot of constants and standards, okay? We have got a wide receiver who is from Alabama. We've seen that before.
We're accustomed to that.
Yeah,
we're
that's happened, right? We've got an amazing cornerback from LSU. We've seen that before.
I think we've seen that story before.
Yeah, so same things keep happening. We even have, the Farm Boy special from Iowa. We have a can't-miss center prospect.
Who's strong.
Strong. Farm strong. That's right. You don't even have a pick, dude.
Not even in the first round.
Not even the first round. So you can see we're already getting out of control here. But a lot of things staying the same. Don't get scared. Come on in. Back to y'all in the studio.
All right, look, those guys are just having too much fun outside. I'm going to go first on my one big thing for this. You guys will be serious about football. I'm just going to tell you that the draft is the best sporting event in the entire calendar of the entire year because it represents hope to every fan base. Every single fan through the course of the next couple of days is either going to feel like their team has suddenly taken this huge leap forward, or there's going to be this angst that you can only get that feels like a roller coaster of realizing that yet again, your team blew it. Either way, the emotion is what makes this amazing. It is the season of hope. That is my one big thing. Mina, what do you got?
Wow.
I said it.
I was going to say, for me, I'm a Seahawks fan, so it's a lot of dread a lot of times in the draft. But hope sometimes. Hope. I would say this year, hope with the high picks. It's exciting. So for me, I think this is a draft where a lot of teams are going to have to decide, do they want to take the high ceiling prospect or the high floor prospect? And that starts right at the top with Trayvon Walker, who's the high ceiling prospect, Aidan Hutchinson, the high floor. I think at the quarterback position, Malik Willis, the high ceiling prospect, Kenny Pickett or Desmond Ridder, the higher floor.
Right.
It's an interesting football, I would say, decision because it says a lot about how franchises view themselves and what they can get out of these players.
All right, Dominique, what you got?
Derek Damn Stingley is the
That's
best
his actual middle name.
player in this draft, and he should go number one overall. All the analytics support the idea that the second most impactful position, or at least the first most impactful position on defense, is cornerback. Everyone in the NFL must play man coverage at some point. Even if you're a zone-heavy team, you're going to have to play man against certain teams in certain situations. This guy, Derek Damn Stingley, at 8 years old, walked into LSU and was the best DB they had, the best cornerback in all of the country, practicing against and playing against the receivers who are currently the best in the NFL. There is no question about how good he can be and how good he's shown his ability to be. Then you pair that up with the fact that the most impactful position on defense is cornerback. Why are we talking about these mediocre edge rushers when we could be talking about a great cornerback?
Wow, there's so much to say to that we'll say later. Field,
Well,
what do you
they're
got?
not
Totally unbiased opinions
not
coming
mediocre.
from the former NFL DB.
Former cornerback.
Right,
By the way, I will be so disappointed if Roger Goodell just calls him Derek Stingley, not Derek Damn Stingley Jr. So listen, the draft is inherently an unpredictable event, right? I mean, you have years like last year where you have a Trevor Lawrence going one, and then there's a little bit of unpredictability beyond that. This year is different than any year that I can recall in quite some time. Think about some of the factors that contribute to that. First of all, there is not a quarterback who is a lock to be taken in the first 5 or 10 or maybe even 15 picks. We don't have last year where we had 5 quarterbacks in the first 15 picks. We've got Kenny Pickett who could go in round 1. We have Malik Willis who could go in round 1. But I think that it's much more of you're taking a quarterback because you have no other choice draft as opposed to, wow, we are thrilled to be using a premium pick on a player that we're not sure is a premium value. That's part of it. The other part of it is that we've got 8 teams this year that have multiple first-round picks, which also means that we have 8 teams that have no first-round pick. Those teams with multiple ones have the opportunity to trade up or potentially create flexibility by trading backwards. We saw Philadelphia downsize from 3 to 2 first-round picks previously. The unpredictability is a beautiful thing in the NFL draft every year. I think this year it's especially the case. I know there's, the odds are telling us that Trayvon Walker is likely to go number 1, and maybe he will. But beyond that, I have no clue what Detroit's going to do at number 2.
All right, so let's lean in, says the guy in the vintage Vegas shirt, to some Vegas history here. This city's all about love and marriages. So let's pick a little marriage that everybody wants to see happen. So, Mina, give me a marriage you want to see in this year's draft.
Between my great love in the draft, that's Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle out of Georgia, and the place where I would be so happy if he landed, because I only want the best from a baby, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. I just feels like a perfect fit, the way this defense operates, where he can eat up a couple gaps, free up those blitzers behind him, not too dissimilarly how he played at Georgia. I know there's concerns about his limited snap count in college. I believe a lot of that had to do with the excess of talent around him. You're going to hear us say Georgia approximately 500 times tonight. And I think Baltimore can get the most out of him. I just feel like it'd be a perfect landing spot for a 340-pound man who moves like a cat.
Keeps him out of the AFC West. I'm happy. Dominique, what's your marriage you want?
I love that one. I wish I could have gone with that, but you beat me to it. I'm going to go Trent McDuffie for the going to the Patriots. He's a cornerback that probably won't still be around by the time he gets to the Patriots, but his flexibility, his ability to play in man coverage, his intelligence, and there are very few guys in college that seemingly don't make very many mistakes. And you think of those Belichickian defenses where they have to be flexible. They have to be able to do a lot of different things, including play man coverage. Trent McDuffie is my guy.
All right, Field.
By the way, just quickly before I answer the perfect marriage, every year I kind of find like an offensive and a defensive player. They're not the best in the draft, but my favorite players to watch, and I think the floor is tremendously high. Defensively this year, Trent McDuffie, my favorite defensive player to watch. Offensively, whenever Zion Johnson gets drafted tonight, I apologize in advance because it's going to be just a ridiculous amount of love outpouring from me. They both check basically every box. More on that when the draft actually gets going. But the marriage is Jameson Williams and the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles can become the first team since the Lions back in 2003, 4, and 5 took a wide receiver in the first round in back-to-back years. And I understand that Jameson Williams may be gone by the time they make their first pick. But Philly also, because of those multiple picks they have, has the opportunity to move up. I know that we are still wondering what the long-term outlook is at quarterback for Philadelphia. But if this is supposed to be the evaluation year for Jalen Hurts, you give him Jameson Williams to go along with Devontae Smith, to go along with Dallas Goedert, to go along with what we think is still a really good offensive line. You should have all your answers on Jalen Hurts by next year. I love Jameson Williams, the player. I understand patience is going to be in play because we don't know when he'll be physically ready to go. But I just think the guy, if he were healthy, we'd be talking about him in play up at like maybe pick 2 or 3.
I think he's the best receiver in the draft. And I want to just say, I love the fit of him and Devontae Smith, because then Devontae Smith can kind of occupy that intermediate area of the field, and Jameson Williams can be that deep threat that they hoped they were getting with Jalen Reagor, but haven't had.
When I think great marriages, I think Spencer Hall and Harry Douglas. But when I think Harry Douglas, I also think Magic Genie, and that brings us to some wishes.
Oh.
Let's go over your picks.
Uh-oh.
Okay?
I'm nervous.
Yeah, you should be. You should be, all right? Because you're the GM now. You could totally lose your job if you get these wrong.
That's right.
Who's your number 1?
Trayvon Walker.
Okay.
I love him.
Sell me on him, because I think the thing people don't see with Trayvon Walker is a clear identity. Like, what did he do well? Like, what is he?
I'll tell you this. One of the things that he does very, very well is that he's physical, he's strong, he plays with good pad level, and he uses his hands very, very well. A lot of people are worried about, hey, he didn't have that much production as an individual. Don't worry about that. Georgia had a lot of guys. They rotated in and out, and Kirby even alluded to earlier today that on third downs, they had other guys to rush outside on the edge, so you didn't see Trayvon Walker getting a lot of sacks, and that was one of the main reasons why.
I will buy that, by the way, because Trayvon Walker, like everybody else in this Georgia defense, stats-wise, they don't look like a lot. You know why? Because they had 3 and outs all season long. They weren't on the field that much, and they went too deep in rotation. Okay, so I'm going to buy that. What about number 2?
Ikem Ekwonu.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness. When you see this young man, the athleticism by a big guy as an offensive lineman, you know what I always say?
Yeah.
Big guys need loving too. So why not give him all the praise while we can right now?
I'm going to give him all the praise for the suit. If you didn't see it earlier, right? He had the white suit.
Yes.
He had the Nigerian print here on the collar. The tailoring was a work of engineering. It made a 300-pound man look like a runway model, okay? Whoever did that, all right, kudos. I'm going to go ahead and buy it just say, hey, he can work on his technique as a pro. You can tell me in pass pro.
Yes, he can.
Okay.
He has to. But one of the things I love about the NFL is that teams are designed to run the football.
Yeah.
Right? Most of them. You have some that love to pass the ball, but most teams love to run the football. He's the best run blocker in this draft. I love the way he gets out on the edge and pulls and decleats everybody that's in his path.
Yeah,
I love that.
Every day with him across the line is a bad day for you. Okay, so I'm going to buy that. Additionally, tell me number 3 real quick.
Number 3, Derek Stingley Jr. I think this young man is the best corner in the draft. I understand you have a little sauce here and there. I understand you have Andrew Booth. But before those two guys, I have Derek Stingley Jr. because I think he's the most pro-ready. The game has gone to the passing side of it. Quarterbacks, when you have Aaron Rodgers, when you have these elite guys and you need a cornerback on the sides, on the edges to stop them, the wide receivers that they have, Derek Stingley Jr. is the guy. He can do it in zone, he can do it in man, he can do it everything.
I can go ahead and buy, by the way, lack of production, boredom. Just boredom. He did everything you could do in year 1. I'm going to go ahead and let that go, okay? And if you did that, you definitely didn't take a semester off in college like I did, all right? Back to y'all.
You're watching the 2022 NFL Draft first round coverage on ESPN Digital Live from our studios in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. You can second screen the draft itself right now on ESPN and the NFL Network.
With the first pick, NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select.
We've been dying to know what's coming down the road for a minute.
He is one of the top prospects.
Saturday glows, now the Sunday show, and you're in it.
His traits are unreal.
Used to hearing your name, crowds going insane, but right now it all looks different. Cause today's about the way you play the game that paved your way. I'd say that you made it. Now go and make it what you wanted to be, cause
What a play. Malik Willis, light him up. Lightning strike.
Sauce Gardner.
every night. Now your name's in the neon lights. Tonight, everybody waits, cause Vegas is where dreams begin.
Here comes Hutchinson.
To kick it off, the Jacksonville Jaguars select.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight. That's a really hidden hangover reference. You can see the excitement. You can feel it. Vegas is absolutely lit. It is going to be a wild night, and this is the 2022 NFL Draft in Sin City. We're watching it digitally with you. We're hanging out. Mina Kimes, Jason Fitz, Dominique Foxworth, Field Yates, Spencer Hall, and Harry Douglas are outside. They'll get to come inside at some point, but really, how about that ride in? I guess that's why they call it Sin City. Ha, ha, ha. There's going to be a lot of hangover references, y'all.
I feel like this is an appropriate time for me to tell you I've never seen The Hangover.
Oh, my God. Look,
I knew that.
You knew that, but I don't think he knew that.
I didn't know that. And, if you ever watch Bravo and they're like, hey, if you're of age, you can be that same thing here. If you're of age, you can partake in this, the number of hangover references. Just take a drink every time it happens. It's going to happen a lot, Mina. I'm sorry. I may or may not have spent a solid hour today just pulling quotes from the movie.
I'm glad I know you're going to do it because otherwise I just feel like you're saying weird stuff. But now I know there's a purpose to it.
when it's something weird, it was a hangover reference.
Yeah,
Are you time to remind the audience that Mina, Dominique, and I are contractually obligated to be on this show? This is not we're looking forward. So just if the references get out of hand, just to make that.
You know what?
You got a limit. You got a limit.
There were a few hangover quotes, admittedly, today that I looked at, and I was like, I really want to use that, but I don't think that word is allowable. So, and you can't really do it without that. But
you know what? Why don't you push the limits? And if you get kicked off, the rest of us will hold down the broadcast without the.
I feel like Field is just already trying to get me out. Look, you guys can't kill my joy. Why? Because this is the NFL Draft. Why? Because we're in Las Vegas, my city of my birth. Why? Because it's the city of my favorite team. And most importantly, because the Raiders don't have a first-round draft pick this year. So I don't
How
have
does
to.
that make you happy?
Every stinking year, they put a camera right in my face, and then I have to figure out how to stall while I react to Alex Leatherwood being picked in the first round. I'm happy to not have to do that this year.
They don't have any draft picks. I feel like, what's their first pick?
Third round.
Oh.
Tomorrow.
I'm loving this. He looks so relaxed.
And you're not wrong.
There's usually 20 Red Bulls littered around him, by the end.
And he looks more like Tark. He looks like Tark in the middle of the draft.
I got my vintage UNLV action going on. No, look, guys, this is an exciting draft for a lot of teams, obviously. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be on the clock. We're going to be here for every pick over the course of the first round. We'll be here tomorrow, every pick of the second and third round. I will never forget the first time I looked at Dominique, the first time we ever did one of these shows.
Did we fall in love? This feels romantic to me. The first time we locked eyes?
We were in a little tiny studio on campus.
Too hot for you.
And I looked over at Dominique, and I was like, Dominique, what do you think of this guy? And Dominique's like, I don't know. Don't know anything about it. So, you just never know where this thing's going to go. That's the one thing we can be sure of. There are a lot of teams, though, that have multiple picks in this draft. And I think there's a lot. If you're a New York fan, for example, like Field, if you're a Jets or a Giants fan, you're looking at today as a rebirth opportunity, right?
It really is. And the Jets especially. The Jets own 4 of the first 38 picks in this year's draft, which I think conservatively means they can land 4 legitimate starting players in this year's draft. If they got to hit them, and let me get that caveat out of the way, as people always say, like, it's cool to have all these picks, you got to hit them. That's correct. You do have to hit draft picks for them to be worthwhile, but the Jets have the opportunity to do so. Right. This is the second straight year in which they've been armed with significant draft capital.
I think the interesting thing, and you and I were talking about this a bit in the green room earlier, is how much context and situation matters. And that's the thing about going to the Jets. And we think back to times when people may have used their power, like Eli Manning, to get put in a situation that's better in other situations. So, I know as we talk about this, yes, the Jets can remake their franchise if they get the right players. But I feel like what's wrong in at least that building in New York is not just about the players. Like, it's more about the direction of the organization and leadership, and hopefully that's fixed. Everything else will come.
But it's a direction that has changed fairly recently, and we can give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt. But to Field's point about draft capital, here's the thing. Most teams aren't good at drafting. Most teams aren't. It's actually really hard to identify teams that are significantly better than other teams because over time, it kind of all evens out. But here's what I know to be true. You're more likely to find good players if you have a lot of draft picks. And the Jets have a lot of draft picks, and the Chiefs have a lot of draft picks, and it's more likely than not they're going to come out of this with some gems purely because of the volume of picks they got.
Roger Goodell is walking out to the podium, so we'll keep you updated as Roger Goodell speaks now and throughout the course of the show. Obviously, again, you can watch the NFL Draft on ESPN and on the NFL Network, but you can keep hanging out with us because we're going to have more fun, especially, look at that. Derek Carr and Darren Waller are out there. It's a sign from God. It's going to be a good day, y'all. I'm throwing my pen. I don't even know what the hell is happening anymore. I think, my wolf pack.
I think to Mina's point, humility. Like, that's the bottom line, is humility. I think those are the teams that draft well because they recognize that they don't have the answers. They're going to do the best that they can, understanding all the context of each situation, but get a bunch of picks because you're going to miss on most of them, and hopefully you can land on a few.
Always.
The one thing about the draft that is always on my mind is, like, what is the GM thinking or the decision makers thinking about their pick? Because sometimes I think the picks are about who they think is best or who they can justify. And I think with the quarterbacks this year, it's interesting to me because you could lose your job if one of these quarterbacks turns out, if you need a quarterback and one of these two quarterbacks turns out to be even mediocre and you pass on them, you could lose your job, which is a lot of pressure to have on a GM.
You know what's amazing is the team that I would say is probably maybe the Panthers are number 1, but if number 2 for a team that we are linking a quarterback prospect to is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
Their GM is walking away from the organization after 22 years, and Kevin Colbert's been phenomenal in the draft for so many years. They've won a ton of games under his guidance. But he's the one that's like, how often do you see a parting gift of a quarterback?
I mean, that's what Ozzie Newsome did in Baltimore.
All right, I'm going to we're outside. We got Harry Douglas and Spencer Hall outside. Guys, what's going on out there?
Well, we have a lot going on out here. We have fans stopping by trying to figure out what we're doing, and obviously they should know what we're doing because we have cameras, we have mics as an NFL draft, and we're trying to talk about players across the board. Right or wrong, Spencer?
That is correct. Also, Harry's been invited to several family reunions already for families he is not a biological part of because he's very popular. Also, we're not cowards. We're out here with the people, y'all, unlike some people up in the studio with the air conditioning.
What he said.
That is correct. What are we looking at? Like, what do you think of coming out number 1?
Yeah.
If it's Trayvon Walker, like, how do you feel about that?
I feel great about it, but I'm not going to sit up here and say I feel bad about them going with Aidan Hutchinson as well because he is a guy that showed the high motor, right? He showed the production as an individual at Michigan. He had those 14 sacks. I was able to see a lot of his games up close this year, and the young man is a dominant force. Plus, he has the family background playing at Michigan, so I know his head is going to be in the right place. But Trayvon Walker, I love the physicality. I love the attributes and the traits that he have. Being a guy that big, running a 4.51, I don't know how you can pass up on him.
That's a mutant. And I will say this, that is all very, very nuanced, intelligent analysis. I'm more of the he got that dog in him school of thinking, and it's this. If I had to give you one thing about Aidan Hutchinson versus Trayvon Walker at this pick, I've seen Trayvon Walker move everybody he faced around. I've seen Aidan Hutchinson get moved around. I really haven't seen a whole lot of that with Walker.
You know what we call that? Moving a man from point A to point B against his will. That's that football talk right there.
No, that's
you
a
move
good
a man against his will. That's what coaches love to see. That's what coaches love to talk about.
That's serious football guy stuff right there.
Oh, yeah.
Look, guys, I'm getting trash talked in here. I'm going to be honest with you. I just said that the Raiders can't lose today. And then we see Derek Carr up on the stage with some sort of weird skunk-looking mohawk thing going. And Dominique Foxworth in here is giving me a level of grief. But I don't know. Like Harry Douglas, like your hair's kind of similar.
Harry pulled it off. Derek Carr did not. It's just such a curveball.
This is what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do.
I mean, it's the worst pick of the draft. He went into the barbershop and he looked at the wall. I don't know if you guys have this in white barbershops, but in black barbershops, you have like all the numbers.
Menu, right?
It's it's the same thing. It has like numbers and haircuts.
White barbershops versus black, like, is there a difference?
Oh, yeah,
there's a difference?
Dude, never mind. The whitest person alive, and I can tell you there's definitely a difference.
The point is, there's a menu on the wall and it's pictures, and he was like, that one at the bottom, and that's not the one.
It's the Jamarcus Russell of haircuts.
My God, I'm taking strays all over the place.
No, Jamarcus Russell looks good, but didn't play well.
Okay.
That haircut doesn't look good or play well, and I don't want to put anybody's name on that.
You know what? In his defense,
fitting for a Raider.
He just got $120 million. So, like, he's sitting there like, you think I care about what you think about my haircut?
Fair point.
I think he does care. I think he does care.
Right, he does. You're right.
I spend every year begging the
blocked.
Raiders not to make me have to react to a pick. Now I'm begging you guys not to make me have to react to a Raiders hair. This is what's happening. The Jags are on the clock. Please, for the love of God, let me change the subject here. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. I will say, y'all, like, this is a little different, right? Yeah. Like, we're not used to seeing a first pick in the draft where we get into. It's been several years since we're all sitting here saying, I don't know, might could be.
Yeah, but you know, this is the football gods sort of balancing things out, right? Because a year ago the Jaguars had the most. Yeah. I mean, like the easiest first overall pick in quite some time, right? And we'll see on Trevor Lawrence. I thought that week 18 was much more emblematic of the player he expects to be or projects to be than the first 17 weeks of last year. But last year, there was really no effort that went into taking Trevor Lawrence #1 overall. It was the biggest slam dunk since Andrew Luck. This year, it's like, all right, now you got to think about it a little bit, right, Mina?
Yeah, I want to throw out a question to you guys. So the assumption here is the Jaguars are going to go edge rusher, Trayvon Walker, or maybe Aidan Hutchinson. How do you feel, given that so much of this offseason has been about them trying to improve the surroundings around Trevor Lawrence through free agency? They just paid Cam Robinson, who's their left tackle, a little bit surprising. How do you feel about them going defense and not a player like Evan Neal out of Alabama, who's played right tackle, could really help shore up that offensive line?
I think that the Jaguars are using this pick and saying to themselves, it's not just a player that is going to help us, but like if you're using the #1 overall pick, it has to be amongst one of the few positions that are considered the very pinnacle of NFL roster construction. Quarterback is always going to be there. Left tackle is going to be there, even though we could debate the meritocracy, the merits of like a right tackle is really important these days. I mean, just go look at the AFC West pass rushers that play on the left side of the line as an example. But you've got pass rushers, left tackles, quarterbacks. I guess really besides that, like, do we ever draft someone besides a pass rusher or a left tackle or a quarterback #1 overall?
Pretty rarely.
Pretty rare. I mean,
and I think it's in part because they have splash plays and they protect the quarterback. Like it's cornerstones of your offense or cornerstones of your team that you need to have. I think the most important thing at this point, if you have #1 overall, you should not look at where you have holes. Like that's.
Yeah.
I think throughout the first round, or generally people say that you should draft for talent and then figure out everything else around it. But specifically, at #1, you take the best guy available.
I actually think you could argue that Ikem Ekwonu or Evan Neal are comparable in terms of best guy available with the edge rushers. So
take a look at Trayvon Walker for a second, and I know we've got some highlights on Trayvon here. Like, why are there so many questions about Trayvon at this point? Like, Mina, you tweeted something that I thought was pretty smart about the lack of production that we've seen from him versus other first overall picks.
I mean, it's historic. There's never been a top 3, not first overall, top 3 edge rusher taken with this little sack production over the course of his career. Now, a lot of that can be attributed to the role he played in the Georgia defense, which is very important context. But I'll say this, when I watch him, I do see him lined up outside sometimes. It's not like he's only between the tackles, and the pass rush moves are not quite there.
Well, when we talk about Trayvon Walker, we got to talk to somebody that knows him. We talked to one of his former coaches earlier. The stars are everywhere for the NFL draft, which includes Oregon coach Dan Lanning. And look, I know we could talk about Oregon, but coach, we got to talk to you about Georgia because you were the defensive coordinator last year. We appreciate you hanging out with us in Vegas. Trayvon Walker getting a lot of conversation. So if you could sit down with an NFL team and tell them what they're getting in him, what would your answer be?
I'd start with some practice film. This guy works so absolutely hard day in and day out. His approach is really special. He's a learner, but he's a worker. I mean, that's the biggest thing you can say about Trayvon. Obviously, he's a special talent. Everyone saw that at the Combine and on his film this season. But great kid, works his tail off. They're going to be pleased with whoever gets him.
Coach, it's almost hard to watch Georgia tape because you're constantly distracted by other players, including ones that aren't even in this year's draft. I got to ask you, what was it like being around the Monstars?
Yeah, it was a great group, man. It was a great group. I'll say this. There's not very often that you get to be around a team like that. Was FaceTiming with a couple of them just a second ago. I said, hey, you guys need to sit out game 1 next year because we have them in the first game. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, talk about that first game for a second. I mean, you go from a closet full of red and black to a closet full of green. Like, how's that transition for you? Like, how do you bring some of that culture from Georgia over to Oregon?
Yeah, the transition's been great. I've been so thrilled about our players, the place that I'm at. It's just college football is about to be the haves and the have-nots, and Oregon's a have. You know, one of the few teams that have been able to compete for national championships over the last 12 years. And I'm excited to be here, but it's definitely different. It's a change of pace.
So I got to ask you about one of my favorite players in the draft, and that's Nakobe Dean. I think he's got the best eyes of maybe any defensive player in this year's group. He's so smart. He never makes the wrong decision. Closing speed's incredible, but he's a little bit undersized for the NFL. What would you say to people who have concerns about him being a tweener?
Turn on the tape. Turn on the tape. Like, and I don't know if you guys saw him yet tonight. He's probably the best dressed guy in the room right now.
Really?
You know, I love Nakobe. Yeah, he looks good. He's a phenomenal kid. He's super intelligent. He's going to be a great football player for whatever team picks him up. But all you got to do is turn on the film and then have a conversation with this guy, and you'll want him on your team.
All we have to do is have one conversation with you, and we realize how many great players you got to be around last year. It's special. It's special to watch you rise, too, Coach. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. Enjoy the draft experience.
Appreciate you guys. Go Ducks.
All right, you guys can see the excitement. Roger Goodell walking out. Oh, Jags fans are ready for the pick. Going to see as we get it. The pick is in, the first overall pick in the draft. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Good that I can learn to speak. The pick is in, and it is Trayvon Walker, defensive end out of Georgia. I want to get everybody's thoughts in here, but first, let's see if we can get the guys outside. Spencer, I know you had some thoughts on him when we were talking yesterday. Spencer Hall and Harry Douglas are outside. Spencer, what do you think?
Well, listen, it doesn't really matter what I think because I am here with somebody who knows way more about the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is Antoine, correct?
Hold on, Spencer. Antoine, tell us all where you're from.
Yeah, where are you from?
There we go.
Yeah, translation, Jacksonville, Florida. Yes, we got to know. I know you had other thoughts. We did a little bit of pre-interview taping. What do you think of the pick of Trayvon Walker for your franchise?
I'm hoping he's a beast, man. But honestly, I wanted Evan Neal to protect Trevor Lawrence. That's our franchise quarterback. You got to protect him. But if we went with Trayvon, I hope he's able to come in there and be that star guy that we need to rush the quarterback.
Now, I got to ask you one more question. You see the Jacksonville Jaguars. You've seen what transpired last year. Doug Peterson is there. What are you expecting in 2022 from your team?
Stability, man, at coach, in the front office. Build some weapons around Trevor Lawrence, get the defense better, and start being a respectable, competitive team where I wear my jersey out in public. People ain't clowning me.
And I love your jersey. Fred Taylor, you're representing well. Once again, y'all, this is Antoine from
Duval.
Fitz, back to you.
Appreciate it. By the way, I don't know if this place is pager friendly, but I do know that the Lions have already put another the pick in. Like, they sprinted up there. I'm not sure if it's the real Caesar's Palace either.
Another reference.
A bunch of hangover references. You need to come with me on this one.
Flying over me.
That's okay. You know,
it's not. The show isn't for us. The show is for the people watching on the interwebs, and I'm sure they're loving these references.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, buddy.
Before we get to the Lions, which pick is in, Trayvon Walker. Look, He's not a franchise saver overnight, which is what a lot of people expect from a number 1 pick. Dom, you went on this, Dominique?
I mean, no, but they don't care what I think. The lack of production is hard, and I have to be honest. Like, I respect the decision that they made. I think defending the Aidan Hutchinson decision is a lot easier to make. I think it's a lot easier to defend that decision. So there's someone in that room or some people in that room really compelled by what they saw from Trayvon Walker, and I respect that.
I think it would be easier, like we'd have more faith in it if, how do I put this nicely? Had a different GM, perhaps?
Yeah. Totally fair.
Okay, totally fair. Their GM is Trent Baalke. He's made a lot of dubious decisions recently, and I think that's part of the reason why you're in Jacksonville and they're taking a home run swing, but it's like, do you really want to take a home run swing if you're Jacksonville? Like, a lot of these home run swings have gone wrong, and I think that is cause for consternation. But look, if that athleticism that we see translates into him becoming an elite edge rusher, then we'll look stupid.
Does it translate, though? I guess I'll ask you.
Does his skill set
translate? No, I think I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when I watch him play in college, I did not feel like, like if the sack numbers aside, I think we all are smart enough to know that sacks as a stat is not like a real.
Not the end all be all.
Yeah, but when I watched him play, I just didn't feel like it was like.
So first of all, like I think this is like the beauty of what scouting is, and I remember when I was in my scouting days, one of the first rules, the golden rule of scouting was we don't draft production, we draft traits, right? And obviously traits tend to lead to production, and production is often reflective of a guy with traits. That being said, I think there is with Georgia, with Trayvon Walker, it's a massive, massive projection. And Mina referenced it earlier, and we heard from Dan Lanning, head coach, the defensive coordinator at Georgia at the time, like their system was not asking guys. This was not a wide 9, like we're going to just, you may surrender 8-yard runs all the time because you're running right past the quarterback and the left tackle, but you're also getting 15 sacks in a year. So you're trying to give it.
I'm going to have to just real quick here. The second pick has been made. Aidan Hutchinson stays home. Kid from Michigan that played at Michigan now goes to the Detroit Lions. He was on Spain and Fitz on radio with me the other day, and I asked him if he ended up getting picked second, was he ready for the number of ticket requests that were going to come in? What was interesting, though, he did say he had never paid attention to mock drafts until his friends started hitting him with it, and he would wake up every week with hundreds of texts from his friends about the mock drafts. Dominique, from a player standpoint, you want to be close to home? You want to be that close to home?
I played in Baltimore, city I grew up in. It kind of stinks.
Really? What?
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess it just because there's a whole nother dynamic that you were not accounting for, you weren't predicting. Like, it's nice to like be able to go back to your high school or go back to your old friends. It's nice, but it's also annoying when I got drafted by Denver, there's a whole lot of distance between all the requests, and it's not just ticket requests, it's things that people want, things that people need. People who you grew up with are a fan of the team, so you don't play well, which I didn't all the time. It's hard. I don't think Aidan will have that problem. He's going to get 15 sacks in his first season, and everyone's going to love him.
I love this fit, not just because of the city, but because of the way Detroit is building this team right now with GM Brad Holmes, head coach Dan Campbell, from the inside out. Like, the offensive line is already set, which is so unusual for a bad football team, and they've been focused on that interior of the defensive line. Now they have found their edge rusher. The trenches are going to become a real strength for Detroit, and I love that.
I'm so happy for them. I'm thrilled for them, and like the dynamics of if being from there aside or not, like how often do you take a player number 2 overall and get a value?
Yeah.
Like, and I understand that in a different year, who knows where Aidan Hutchinson goes, but like you get the number 2 overall pick and you get a value play. That to me, I think, is so special and so cool. And I remember last year, all the video was released when the Lions got Penei Sewell, which came on the heels of the Dolphins trading up to take Jalen Waddle 6th. Remember the video of Dan Campbell and also their GM Brad Holmes like freaking out in the draft room? Mm-hmm. Give it, 15, 20 minutes. We're going to see that video again. Because I'm doing backflips right now. This guy is, Mina mentioned earlier, like the argument for Trayvon Walker is that he has more upside. Like that's what people will say. Are we sure about that? Are we sure that Aidan Hutchinson doesn't have massive upside?
I've been on this.
You've said this
all
a
day.
bunch. Yeah.
The dude ran the fastest 3-cone for someone his size since 2003, and we're acting like he's Rudy. It drives me nuts.
But like, is it not a little disingenuous to not acknowledge at least like every college football show I hosted the entire fall? It was like, watch Kayvon Thibodeaux. He could be the first pick in the draft. And then we get through this whole process, and it's like, no, like Aidan's actually got more, whatever. So I think that's part of where the narrative comes from, is because a lot lot of us coming into the season were really in love with somebody that, frankly, is now, sitting here at number 3 and not at number 1.
I think the point that Mina was making earlier, and I think you piggybacked it on a bit, Phil, is how strong they are up front. And this is something that I think is incredibly important for winning in football, is having not just winning up front, but having something that you can depend on. And your game plan is built out from that. If you have a shutdown corner that you don't have to put double on, that you don't have to double cover on, you can put that help elsewhere. If you have a defensive line that is going to get pressure all the time, then you can play more coverage. If you have an offensive line that can run block and protect, like this is important to me. It seems like it's a strategy. Like there's a strategy here. It's not just like, hey, that guy looks good, bring him in. Yeah. They had decided, it feels clear to me that they decided when they got there that we're going to try to build inside out.
I love it. And I want to say one thing about Thibodeaux. I still love him, and I still would have been happy I would have agreed with him going 1 or 2 overall. Now feels like 9 is a good spot for him. I'm throwing that out totally randomly. The 9th pick, Thibodeaux, just seems like an ideal destination.
Hold on. Who's at 9?
I don't even know. It just feels right.
It feels like
the people were painting, and you never know. You have the pick coming in here. I'll let Fitz take it a second, but you never know when. Like you never know when you're leading up to the draft. There's so much you know and you don't know. You believe, you don't believe. But the range often cited for Kayvon Thibodeaux was as high as 2 and as rare as 9. So I think there's a chance that he falls somewhere in these next 6 picks.
It looks like the pick is in for the Texans, as Field alluded to. By the way, Dominique, we'll get back to your theory on building teams because I think the Bengals sort of set up yours to that this year and got to a Super Bowl. Like, I'm not sure that's sustainable, but the Texans pick now, and obviously Deshaun Watson in that situation was going to be really difficult for Houston to handle, to figure out how to get through that situation in general. That the navigation of those waters are not something I think anybody had a textbook on what to do. But the Texans might be the team in the draft that has the most needs across the board. I mean, you could just basically say, hey, whoever they've decided the best player available is who they should take at this point because they have needs essentially everywhere. We're waiting for Roger Goodell to get across the stage, and he is there now. And, it seems like the Vegas crowd not booing him as much as we're used to. So,
I thought that maybe he neutralized it by leaning in because he started, rooting for the boos. That was a smart move.
And then you're like, wow.
Dominique Foxworth is happy.
Yes!
Derek Stingley Jr.
Get him out of there. Well, I don't know if I can celebrate that for him.
Talk.
Go.
Yeah, I mean, going there is a tough place to be, but I'm happy that people came to their senses. I do love Sauce Gardner, but I think Derek Stingley is definitely better, and he's a cornerstone that you can build around the most important position.
Let me get outside, too, because I know Harry Douglas.
Damn Stingley Jr., sorry.
Harry Douglas has had a lot of thoughts on Stingley. We're not going outside. Never mind. Okay. This is what's wild.
Let's talk about
We're going to talk more Derek Stingley.
Continue.
So, man coverage. Okay. You have to play man coverage in professional football. Derek Stingley and the LSU Tigers, all they play is pretty much 70% of the time is single high man coverage. And it's in the SEC. So again, comparing him to the other corners in the draft, Sauce Gardner played against some good receivers every now and then. Derek Stingley, every day in practice, was going against the best receivers in the NFL. And then when he wasn't doing that, he's playing against the receivers at Alabama. And not only holding his own, but shutting them down as an 18-year-old. And I think there is a way to explain away why his seasons didn't go as well as they should have. His sophomore and junior year, but I don't need that explanation because if someone walks onto campus, not as a redshirt freshman, as a true freshman, he took his tuxedo off from the prom and put on an LSU jersey and was the best corner in all of football in the SEC. That man is going to be an impactful player in the NFL for years to come. If you can get him at 3, you're lucky.
I wonder how his prom day felt about that. Really?
By the way, I know, listen, Derek Stingley thinks he could play in any scheme and we would be excited about it. But think about the match here, right, with Houston. What's one thing they have lacked so sorely? They lacked last year and they now have lacked, even with a couple of additions in free agency, its corners are going to be essential to the system that Lovie Smith wants to run, right? He's been doing this for coaching football for 30 years, and he's always needed cornerbacks that are comparable to Derek Stingley. He said this maybe a month ago, we need more corners. I don't know if he was tipping his hand at that point or not, but great match here for Derek Stingley and the Houston Texans. Mina and I talked about this in our podcast once, and all of a sudden we're like the defenders of the Texans process here.
We all we said was hey, we like that the Texans now, they're self-aware. Yeah. They're not trying to be desperate for a quarterback. They're rebuilding. They're ripping the Band-Aid. And there was a headline about ESPN analysts don't hate the Texans for once.
That's amazing.
So we are the official Texans.
But we got a lot more time over the next couple of days here. But I truly like what they are doing in Houston. And this is the first real investment that Nick Caserio's been able to make since their GM, since he became their GM.
And the thing about the Texans is when your roster's that barren, you need cornerstones. This kid is a cornerstone. He is, as long as he's healthy, he is the dude who defines your franchise for the next 10 years.
Just real quick, if it's okay, Fitz, so I know the pick will be in soon here, is one thing to keep in mind, and I should have mentioned this earlier, one of the themes of this year's draft is there are so many older prospects in this year's draft because of the fact that we had a COVID year and the fact that guys got extra eligibility. We're going to have players go in this first round that are 23, 24, almost years old. Derek Stingley, as Dom was telling us earlier, was he 18 when he walked onto campus? The fact that you've got a guy who's 21 and can be he's going to get a second contract at 25. You got guys who are going to get drafted at 25. Yeah. I just love the youth movement for Houston.
I want to get the thoughts from the guys outside. Harry, Douglas, Spencer, Hall, you're out there. Harry, what do you guys think on this Derek Stingley Jr. pick?
I was holding it back, but I'm going to let him
Spencer has to hold me back because I'm upset because a cornerback got taken before a wide receiver. So, Dominique, you know what? You win this first one-on-one matchup, but there are going to be more to come. But Derek Stingley Jr. is a young man I like a lot because the intangibles that he has. Dominique, you know this. A corner has to be able to turn his head, locate the football, not only locate the football, not bat it down, but intercept it, right? Give the offense another possession. That's one thing I learned from Asante Samuel. You can't make money, son, if you can't catch the football. That's what he used to tell the young corners. What you got, Spencer?
Hey, I got to riverside you here because, I'm with Dominique. Just take the dude. He's incredible. I think he's actually ahead of the curve because he got senioritis as a sophomore. That's how far ahead of the curve he is as a player, that he got tired of college faster than you're supposed to. Additionally, last 2 draft picks, great strat because franchises saving money on moving expenses, right? Not far for Stingley to go to the Texans, not far for Hutchinson to go to the Lions. So next level thinking on both franchises' parts. Well done, y'all.
As always, we'll keep checking in with the guys outside. The Jets pick is in, so the Jets have 2 picks obviously coming up. This is a key moment for them. Mina, any thoughts on where they should go?
Well, I think we've been hearing wide receiver, we've been hearing edge, but cornerback is also a need for this team, and a very good cornerback is available. Granted, we've been talking about how we prefer Stingley, or Dominique has emphasized that a lot, but I think Jets fans would be thrilled to get Sauce Gardner here.
I think it's interesting that does this take them out of the Deebo sweepstakes? The fact that they are going to hold on to this pick, they are going to make this pick, or is there a chance that this trade could happen before this happened, before they put the pick in? But I mean, all that aside, I think the Sauce Gardner is the right decision right here. So I can go up 2 on Harry Douglas before I end up inevitably losing because there are a lot more good receivers in this draft than there are good cornerbacks. But that's what I like there. You take that guy, another guy who's really shown the ability to play well. He's not Derek Stingley, but he's a Pro Bowl level.
He never gave up a touchdown.
He might be right there.
It's amazing to me.
How about this though? You want to do a hard trivia, the last trivia question at a bar is have someone name the Jets' top 4 cornerbacks, and you have to find somebody who literally has a gangrene tattoo on across their back because it is so thin, right?
Love this challenge.
I know. Well, they signed a Seahawk this offseason, so that's probably one you can think of.
The kid from Virginia.
They did Bryce Hall.
Yeah.
Nailed it. The kid from Virginia. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna just try to name corners that no one knows.
Lamar Jackson, the corner, is no longer on the roster. DJ Reed is the Seahawks.
DJ Reed, yeah. I mean, this
is tough.
Brandon Eichels, it's a very 6th-round pick last year who played pretty well for them, but still, the point is that this is as thin as it gets in terms of, one of the thinnest cornerback rooms in the NFL. I personally would not be surprised by an offensive tackle, only because there's been so much discussion about whether Mekhi Becton's going to be a part of their future or not. Ikem Ekwonu, it seems like the pick is in, so I'll turn it over to Roger.
Roger's not ready yet.
Yeah, Roger's not ready.
He's not even standing at the podium.
Okay.
Roger's going to saunter out.
Yeah, I should have mentioned Ikem Ekwonu also being another contender. I mentioned Sauce Gardner, but Field, that's true. Let's find out.
Sounds like they're making the pick.
I love these fast picks, man.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's flying.
Keep it moving.
There we go. Sauce Gardner.
Thank you.
Comes off the board. Look, and there has to be a conversation, too, to the point that the Jets can address offensive line if they want to in a few picks. The way the board's playing out right now, there's a staggering difference between the drop-off at corner and the offensive lineman that's still available. So I think this makes a lot of sense from that strategy.
So I want to just round back to the Mekhi Becton comment that we made earlier. if you're Mekhi Becton, and we'll see what happens at pick 10, because the Jets, excuse me, do still have pick 10. This is a moment for you. And I get it. People are, he's been hurt, and he's got some defenders. But the bottom line is that when you are discussing, when your coach and your GM are discussing your future already, and I'm not saying they're saying he's not going to be there, but when they're not calling you out, your name has been discussed by many people, though, about, like, what does it look like? The fact that we're discussing a 4th overall pick being a left tackle, and they obviously didn't go that direction. But to me, you're not quite on notice, but I think it's worth mentioning.
Also, a pick who looked really good at the beginning of his career,
which
makes it all more frustrating. Just on Sauce to the Jets, defensive coordinator is, of course, Robert Saleh. Sauce, in many ways, has reminded me a little bit of a throwback to the Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
He's very physical, a little bit grabby, gets his hand. He's notorious for his press man coverage. So thinking about Saleh and how he would deploy him, it just makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, he's a long, athletic guy. It's kind of a late bloomer as far as being recruited was concerned, which is, I think, probably why he ended up at Cincinnati. Yeah. And I think the solid defense going back to San Francisco is a lot of zone. Like, it's not all this press man stuff. Well, it is press, but it's not the man coverage stuff that you would expect from a Derek Stingley type. So I think this works well as far as match is concerned.
I skipped over what I should have said, which before he was there, he was with Seattle, so that hence the Legion of Boom connection.
Yeah.
And he went to San Francisco and brought Richard Sherman. Like, there's definitely a through line here of similar players.
And just this team last year, heavy investments on the offense. Think about the draft last year, Zach Wilson and Olave Tucker, Michael Carter eventually as well. Like, a little bit of balance here for the defense. This could be a defense-heavy draft, not exclusively defense, for the Jets. Last thing I'll just say, and we've talked about this already, the value of these wide receivers. You think about this division they play in right now, and you've got 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL, Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs. You can't plan only for your division when you're building a roster, but we are mindful of the fact that not only are wide receivers becoming more valuable year over year over year, Mina pointed to the pipeline. I mean, and also, like, it's not going to slow down anytime soon. Yeah. Like, we keep talking about these historic draft classes of wide receivers, and now it's like 3 straight years having a historic draft class of wide receivers.
Well, and I had stats and info go back and look it up last month, and if you look at the production for 1,000-yard seasons for wide receivers drafted in the 1st and 2nd rounds over the course of the last 10 years, there's not a massive split. Like, there are almost as many 2nd-round picks that can do that. Yeah. The Jets are going to be able to pick up wide receivers. Like, this is a particularly deep draft for wide receivers, to Fields' point. We say that every year.
Yeah.
So if you're the Jets, you be patient, you let it play. You let it play out. You get the best corner that's on the board for you at the time, and you let wide receiver come to you whenever you want that to be later in the draft. I think that strategy makes sense.
And they still could be in the hunt for Deebo Samuel. Like, that's not out of the question yet.
What do you think it's going to take to, for me to hit puberty and for Deebo to I mean, it feels like that it's going to take a lot, right?
A lot, because San Francisco has they've got a lot of leverage here over Deebo Samuel. He's obviously got the remaining year on his rookie deal, but if he sits out camp, then he's a restricted free agent the following year. So it's not like all these holdouts. I feel like we pretend like they're all equivalent and these players can have all the power, but it really comes down to also the team and whether they might be extra motivated to keep him.
Did Sauce go the wrong way or something? Why was he running?
I think he got lost.
Got lost.
Look, it is a little confusing.
That doesn't bode well.
He got lost in the topiary maze. So are we going to comment on how icy he was? Like, he was just dripping with the sauce.
And it was real, too, not like Harry Douglas. Like, Harry Douglas got them Claire's earrings going on like this. Harry's proud of his value.
I'm proud of that value for him also. Like, didn't Chad Johnson teach us all that once you got the money, you go ahead and get the cubics because people assume that they're real? You got to get the real ones when you don't have the money so that you convince people. Like, that's the move.
By the way, this is only the 2nd time in NFL history that all 4 of the top 4 picks were defensive players. The last time that happened, 1991. So, and the Giants pick is in. So the Giants also, interesting, a couple of people I talked to earlier today said that the Giants were split organizationally on one Kayvon Thibodeaux, that some people love him and some people thought he was too goofy and immature to come in.
Nine is the right spot for Thibodeaux.
And if you're the Giants and you want an offensive lineman, why not wait? You got the whole.
Well, I think it depends on which offensive lineman they want. So the Giants' offensive line, really left tackle is the only position you feel extremely confident about with Andrew Thomas, who's really come on. So I think you look at the guys who are available, Evan Neal, who has played on the right side, Ikem Ekwonu, you'd ask, do we want him at guard or to push him out? And then Charles Cross, left tackle Field, of those players, are there any that you think make sense for New York?
I think all the tackles make sense. And I will say this, I'm impressed with the resolve that we saw from Andrew Thomas last year.
Yes.
He was a disaster as a rookie.
100%.
And it's hard, especially in that market, to sort of bounce back when you are being labeled a bust from basically the moment you take the field. I thought he was much improved last year. I don't think you can ever have enough good offensive linemen. We discussed that earlier in the context of the Jaguars and potentially taking a tackle, even with Cam Robinson signed up long term. And so right now, given those 2 cornerbacks are off the board, I would favor an offensive tackle for the Giants here, especially knowing that the top 2, in my opinion, Evan Neal and Ikem Ekwonu, both have the ability to flex to the right side if need be.
All I'm saying is that they pick again in a couple of picks, right? So, if they're in love with somebody, then they can take that person here, or they can wait and see how it falls. The commissioner's at the podium. The pick is in for the Giants. You're watching the 2022 NFL Draft live stream on ESPN. You can also watch the draft on the ESPN and on the NFL Network. So we're all over the place, and we are going to be with you all the way until the end of the draft. This crew will be with you today and tomorrow, hanging out. We've got Spencer Hall, Harry Douglas outside, Mita Kimes, Jason Fitz, Dominique Foxworth, and Field Yates inside. The pick's in. Let's see what we got. They're hyping everybody up. Roger Goodell going for it. Wonder how many Giants fans are out here. It's not easy to get from New York to Vegas.
That's a surprising amount of Steelers fans. I feel like that's what I've seen the most of.
Steelers fans all think they're getting a quarterback.
Oh, here we go.
So they've got a great story here. Make-A-Wish making an opportunity happen for a pick to be made.
Come on, baby.
So it looks like the pick is in. Everybody's cheering. And the pick is Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Oh, look at that.
Mina's disappointment is real.
Dazzled. Rhinestones.
Well, I think at this point, I'm just making a prediction. Seattle's inevitably going to go offensive tackle. But sticking on New York and not making this entirely about the Seahawks, edge rush, obviously a massive need for this defense. I think this could be the steal of the draft. That's how much I like Kayvon Thibodeaux. I feel like he's kind of been underrated in this process. And Dominique, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Goodness.
Yeah, it's a defensive.
Offense is dead.
Yeah, it's a defensive-heavy draft.
It really bothers me, the amount of people covering the draft, not here, but just the amount of people in general that have questioned Kayvon Thibodeaux's commitment or heart or whatever it is, this generalization that happens. He played his ass off at Oregon, and he came in, didn't have to come back and play anymore, but did. I don't know what else you could ask for from this kid, and I think to Mina's point. Go ahead, push back.
Because I think that is one of the things that has been brought under scrutiny is that there were times he did not play his butt off. And listen, I understand that people get frustrated when they think that things are created narratives. I'm just telling, scouts are not saying these things just because they want to make them up. They have instances, and me and I were discussing this before the show, the Pac-12 championship game was a game in which scouts had pointed to and said, Utah handed him the business, and he faded in that game. And that's listen, he's a college kid. These things happen. But go ahead.
No, I want to throw it. I think these are two separate things. One thing is that he has interests outside of football. He's a quirky personality, which I think that you believe is overblown. You're talking about what they're seeing on the field.
Yeah, what they're seeing on the field.
I think is a different thing.
Yeah, listen, we were also using that, there are plenty of guys who are, Myles Garrett's a very worldly individual. He also can't be blocked.
Nasty
football. Right? He's unbelievable. Yeah. So I think the Kayvon thing, I think there's been merit to it. I'm not saying the guy can't play his butt off and he won't play. The counter to the idea that he was not always going at 100% on every single snap is that why would you when you have a future at risk, right?
Fair.
And that, which is a completely legitimate thing. So I just think, though, that the Giants may have landed an unbelievable value at pick number 5. Even he needs to just turn on the gears, which you play for Wink Martindale, you want to talk about a guy that's going to fire you up? And Dom can speak to this better than I can,
I forgot
probably.
It's Wink. I love it so much for them.
The most important thing that I just want to make sure we didn't miss this part of the analysis, it appeared that Kayvon and Roger had a choreographed handshake that Roger flubbed.
Oh,
It looked like Roger went left. He was supposed to go right.
Brutal.
Kayvon, it was... I don't know how I feel about the future of the league. Yeah. You're going to be in the hands of a man who cannot execute a choreographed handshake under pressure.
Well, let's see what the guys outside think. Number 1, of course, Spencer Hall, Harry Douglas. What do you think of the pick? And also, Haley's comment. Is that coming today? Do we know?
God.
Another hangover reference.
Yeah, they're not fun if you point them out.
Well, I have to for Mina. Go ahead, guys.
Oh.
Well, listen, I got things to say about Kayvon Thibodeaux, and it's this, that we might be looking at a Jadeveon Clowney type situation where this was somebody who got a lot of hype early on, believed it in full, I think for good reason. And yeah, why fully lay your future on the line in college when you know you have pro money coming down the road? I don't think that was necessarily an overt decision on his part, but subconsciously it's got to eat at you. Additionally, if everyone knows you're Kayvon Thibodeaux, they're going to be coming after you all day long with everything they have, especially when you don't have a whole lot else on that defense to take the focus away from you. So I think this is a great pick, man. New York looking smart. Like, that is a new thing this draft. By the way, Harry, wait, can we get Harry some sunglasses? Can somebody over
Does
here?
anybody out here have sunglasses? Thank
we
you,
got
sir.
you. All right, excellent. That was totally unchoreographed and spontaneous.
I have my sunglasses. The sun is shining directly in my eyes. Now I can actually see the camera. I can see y'all. Back to you, Fitz.
That was the analysis we needed from the guys.
We got a Men in Black remake coming. Is that what it is? I feel like with the glasses, we got something. I would watch that movie.
You'd watch the two of them in another Men in Black?
Absolutely.
Or a buddy cop film.
Strong buddy comedy potential there.
I mean, the sunglasses is what got me. When Harry put the sunglasses on.
I just want to jump in to explain why I like Kayvon Thibodeaux, because I kind of jumped to talking about the questions, the narratives, or whatever. I think of the top 3 edge rushers in the class. He has the best first step, frankly, and the best bend. And those are 2 qualities that are so significant to becoming, an elite edge rusher in the NFL. That still working on the pass rush repertoire. He's not worth a Hutchinson. I would say more advanced than a Walker, but just those 2 traits alone are why I think he has the potential to be, all pro.
And this draft so far, what I think is amazing listening to you guys talk, 2nd overall pick. Man, maybe that was a value. 3rd overall pick. Holy cow, what a home run. 4th overall pick. Man, this makes a lot of sense. Like, we are watching, let's take the Jags, and let's take that 1st overall pick off for a second and look at the rest of what we've seen. Like, there's a real consensus that teams are nailing this thing.
Well, let's enjoy these moments now, because in about, 10 or 12 picks, it's going to be like, oh my God, that guy 12th, 16th overall. That's just the reality of this draft, is that, this is not a draft where we're going to see, like in previous years, it's like, I think the guys you get from 26 to 40 are as good as 10 to 20. That's not this draft.
Well, and the pick is in for the Panthers, by the way, which I think raises one of the more interesting questions of the entire time. Like, what do you do if you're Matt Rule and you are essentially coaching for your job?
Not a quarterback, please.
But that's the real question. You don't. Like, what else are you going to do? We see this all the time where coaches turn around and they reach at a quarterback because that's the concept of I'll save my job, and then it never works. Like, you end up just getting canned after a year when they realize they need somebody else to lead that quarterback. So, this feels like a spot where a quarterback could go off the board, but it feels like it'd be a massive reach to me.
Yeah, it's the first spot that quarterback could go off the board. I don't think it will. I think they'll go tackle here. Like, I think that's where the best
left tackles sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, that's where the best value is.
And this left tackle has been a freaking revolving door for this football team.
By the way, if you get Evan Neal, which you can play with guard if things don't go well at left tackle, you play at Charles Cross. He pass protected on over 80% of his snaps last year. If you take Ikem Ekwonu, a beast from NC State, he's from Charlotte. Like, he's in the backyard. This would be the 2nd pick of a player that would go to his hometown team. So because of all these, we'll probably end up going with the quarterback instead.
They
but
won't.
It's really easy to not overthink this one. Go with the pass protector, not the passer.
Which one do you like? I like Ekwonu.
I'm an Ekwonu guy personally as well. I think the upside is so significant. Evan Neal is probably is bigger, but Ekwonu might be more physically imposing with the way he plays on the field. Like, he just goes out there and he takes your soul on the way to the sideline. Like, it's nasty.
Yes.
But they're all really, really good.
And I think that speaks to what I talked about earlier with the Giants, too. Like, a lot of people this is about your favorite flavor of ice cream. There are 3 offensive linemen that everybody seems to be, there might be grades where somebody's a little better to everybody, but it just feels like most of the consensus is around, hey, any of the 3 of these could be really good players. That's a delightful position for these teams to be in.
Can I ask you a question, Mina? Of these 3 tackles that we're talking about, and you started this show by saying that it's a decision between high ceilings and high floors. Of these 3 tackles, are there players that fit into those categories for you?
I feel like Evan Neal has a really high ceiling, just the level he played at, the competition, how good he was in I would say in both pass protection and as a run blocker. Ekwonu excelled as a run blocker. I think we got to see him really emerge as a pass protector. And then meanwhile, on the other side, Charles Cross, so many reps in pass protection, but some questions coming from an air raid offense. Evan Neal is like the most complete to me.
Yeah, he seems like the safest. I mean, safe makes it feel like an insult, like he can't get better. But he seems like the safest pick. But I mean,
right tackle, left tackle, right guard in college. He started 1 year at each of them.
Versatility.
That's really hard to do no matter where you play. I mean, he did at Alabama too, as Mina said, elite competition. So we'll see where they end up. They have the pick.
We're getting the pick announced as we speak, and it is Ikem Ekwonu out of NC State.
Logic prevails.
Like, this is
suit though.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
I'll just say it again. Like, it almost feels, in some ways, in a very good way, it feels like a very predictable draft so far. Like, hey, a lot of teams are taking what they judge as the best player available right then, and like in a way they can immediately impact.
Can I throw something out?
Please
do you
do.
think guys think this makes it plausible that Carolina trades for either Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Value, or the likelihood of it just went up in my opinion.
A lot.
Yeah, that's probably a really.
Would happen day 3 though, right?
I would think that if you're Carolina, you have to sit here and say, all right, well, like, I'm not going to make a move on on Baker Mayfield right now because I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but what if we get to pick 40 and Kenny Pickett's still there? Like, maybe you're motivated to move up.
Point, yeah.
Like, I'd rather see how the board shakes out because if a team doesn't take Kenny Pickett in the first round, what's the likelihood they take a Kenny Pickett in the second round?
Are we
right?
going to see a quarterback go top 10? I mean,
I don't
Seattle
think
is
so.
the only spot where I think it's possible, but it is looking.
I mean, I keep saying this. If my favorite team was picking in the first round and needed a quarterback, I'd be desperate for them not to take one this year. Like, just because you need a quarterback doesn't mean that this is the right draft to take a quarterback. And to Dominique's point earlier, especially if you miss in the first round on a quarterback, everybody's getting fired.
Yeah.
So now suddenly, like, you missed on a first round quarterback, all of a sudden now it's, well, we're going to have a new coach, a new GM, a new scouting. Like, it sets your whole organization back 5 years. And none of these guys are worth reaching for that. It's too much of a roll of the dice.
Big time win so far, by the way, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because the most obvious team ahead of them to take a quarterback has not.
Good point.
And
well,
Ekwonu's Nigerian, I'm assuming, right? Because of the
amazing story. Just an amazing story, by the way, for those that aren't as familiar with Ikem Ekwonu's background. From Charlotte, as I mentioned earlier, but Nigerian roots, father's a doctor. Ikem Ekwonu could have gone to an Ivy League school. He could have been the Mina Kimes of the NFL. He had offers to go play at Harvard. He actually has a twin brother who's a player at Notre Dame, who coming out of high school is considered the prize of the family as far as football is concerned. Stays home, goes to NC State, and this past year put it all together. And as you'll see here on some of the highlights, just dominant. Is not just a pass protector, but when he gets out in space, he's got the ability to really move some bodies. And you see that nasty right there. Not as big as Evan Neal, but he just hits the snot. He knocks the snot out of you.
I think that's really what made me a Ekwonu fan over anyone else. And it's bias. It's not necessarily technique or anything. It's just that he plays in a violent way.
His name literally means my effort should not be in vain. Is there a more, like a cooler nickname meaning for offensive linemen?
All right, so I know Tigers love pepper and they hate cinnamon. What do you guys outside Spencer Hall?
I know that was a Hangover reference because it was dumb. When you just say random things now.
Oh, God.
I'm on to you.
Yeah, random things coming, but first, you have definite thoughts here.
Yeah, I think this was the right pick by the Carolina Panthers. When you look at their situation, they want to run the football. They have Christian McCaffrey, who's been battled by injuries. They had Chuba Hubbard, who they got last year out of Oklahoma State. They want to pound that ball. They need that physical presence, a guy that's going to be dominant on the offensive line. Ekwonu, when I watched his film, a guy that can get to that second level. He's backside on runs. He gets his hat across the defender's face. I like the physicality.
Like, the only knocks on his game from a lot of people were saying, there's little fidgety things, some technique things when it comes to pass blocking. Congratulations. Right now, Carolina doesn't have a quarterback. Not an issue, y'all. Not an issue. Just get a big old left tackle and start plowing people down. So, yeah.
Ooh, spooky. I'm seeing ghosts.
Ooh. Back to y'all.
Having too much fun out there. You're watching the 2022 NFL Draft live stream on ESPN. Mina Kimes, Dominique Foxworth, Field Yates. I'm Jason Fitz. Harry Douglas, Spencer Hall are outside. We're going to be with you for all of the picks. Speaking of the picks, the Giants pick is in. And I don't know, y'all. Like, I just keep looking at this thinking, what an opportunity for them. They get somebody in Kayvon Thibodeaux that they have to believe is an incredible edge rusher, and now they're sitting here with a bevy of options on the offensive line. So.
They are. I mean, there's still 2 great tackles left over, and we talked about the dynamic with Andrew Thomas earlier. I wonder if you'd be inclined to take Evan Neal here only because you know he can hang at right tackle. Like, you already know that. He did it for a year.
Like, that offensive line, which has been such a weakness for them, I really think can go to being a strength and makes it so much easier for that team to evaluate Daniel Jones.
They did not pick up the 5th-year option on Daniel Jones, though. So, like, there is an element of, while we're talking about all these other teams that later in the draft could be in the quarterback market, we can't say for sure that New York isn't at least looking at options. I mean,
they certainly are. I mean, you don't pick up the 5th-year option.
But that was a practical move, and we'll get to it in a second because the pick is obviously in. I see the commissioner right now announcing it. But I thought that what they did with Daniel Jones, and I know, like, cold take here, like, that was smart. Here's the pick. Take it away.
Evan Neal out of Alabama is the pick. So they get their immediate offensive line help that they need. So to the point we've all been making, I think home run for the Giants so far.
Going to be some real good rookie practices, the one-on-ones between Thibodeaux and Evan Neal. But he looks great, by the way. Also, like, I've determined, even though I don't look that nice today, that I am the fashion consultant. And Evan Neal is pulling off this lawyer look. I guess he's giving us CEO. I like that. He seems like a trustworthy guy, which I guess would not make you a CEO.
It's the glasses.
It's the glasses that make him look trustworthy. Now watch him beat up people.
Man, this dude's a freak, though.
Yeah.
Like, he's moving people around right here, but
6'7", right?
6'7".
He does. No one that big should move that way.
By the way, if you see a picture of him, you saw, like, there was a picture that floated right before the combine of him. It was a profile pic, so you saw it was sort of his side. And, like, the way that he looked, you'd be like, is that guy a tight end? Like a power forward in basketball? Yeah. He had no fat on his body, and yet he's 335 or 340-some pounds. We talked about the fact that he started 1 year at 3 different positions at Alabama. That part you love because he could play right tackle, could play left tackle.
Trayvon Walker, by the way.
Yeah, here we go, right here. Yep.
Not that one. It was the one before that.
But high leverage, high stakes games all the time when you play at Alabama. And for the Giants, like, they have checked off their, and I know this is sort of a part of the draft, right? So you check off needs also with value. Like, they checked off needs and value right here. Like, in a pretty, like, both of these players went commensurate with their ability, and both of them fill arguably the Giants' 2 biggest needs.
Yeah, and we've been harsh on the Giants before the draft. This is right now they're hitting on all cylinders. Atlanta is on the clock, and we will obviously, when that pick comes through, get Harry Douglas's reaction to it. God knows he'll have something to say. But do we have any predictions here? Like, the Falcons are in a really strange spot where Marcus Mariota is now.
Please do not overthink this.
What does that mean?
Which wide receiver?
Explain what that means.
Which wide receiver that is returning to Atlanta's roster next year had the most yards for them last year? The answer is Olamide Zaccheaus with 406 yards. Olamide Zaccheaus is the #1 incumbent wide receiver on this roster. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Drake London, Jameson Williams, they're all sitting right here for you. We talked about the Jets and cornerbacks earlier. That's the Falcons and wide receivers. It's Olamide Zaccheaus.
So I think we all agree that Jameson is the best receiver in the draft. He's also coming off the ACL. This is a team that needs everything and seems obviously to be in a rebuild mode. Why wouldn't that be the place or the team that would draft a player like that, considering that, at least to our eyes, it looks like they are on a rebuild mode, and next year they don't need the impact right away.
I mean, but
I would do that. That's what I would do.
Yeah, but if you're in the front office and you're Arthur Smith, are you comfortable with that? What do you have to hear from ownership that makes you feel good about knowing that, hey, we're going to suck again next year?
They already had this conversation.
In that building knows
they already had this conversation when they got rid of Matt Ryan, or when they started, that was, and they whiffed on the Deshaun Watson recruiting. They had this conversation.
If there's anyone there who thinks they're going to be good, they shouldn't be there. I don't mean that in a mean way.
Yeah. I think the scary part is that, like, all right, so they went 7-10 last year. Remember, I think they were like 7-7 at one point. Like, they stumbled to the finish.
Like a bunch of one-score games and, like, weird,
Look at their point differential, which is not always a perfect indicator.
No.
It's good.
They had the second worst point differential in the NFC. Only the Giants were worse. Like, teams that had worse records than them, the Lions had a better point differential, who were 3-13-1 last year.
That's good.
And the Lions had a better point differential than the Falcons. So I always think it's important to be very honest with yourself. And to your point, Dom, like I would be sprinting like Jameson Williams sprints down the field to the podium and saying, "Here it is."
Yeah.
I think it has to be a wide receiver. We'll see in a moment.
It's gotta be a wide receiver.
Yeah, no. Well,
Question is which, you know?
Right. Well, but let me say it again. Like value added, there'll be wide receivers available in the second and third round too. Like if they're in love with somebody else, like.
Well, I think, and we'll find, if they do take a wide receiver, we'll find a little bit about what they're looking for in a wideout, right? Because Jameson Williams, best vertical threat, but he does much more than that. Minas talks about that a ton on NFL Live. Chris Olave, probably the smoothest of these guys. Garrett Wilson, maybe the best route runner of these guys. Drake London, the best physical presence of these guys. So we'll see what they prefer.
How do you
if they
build,
go that direction?
Like you got Marcus on a 2-year contract, right? Mariota's basically just a stopgap quarterback. So do you build your offense around whatever's going to make Marcus effective, or do you simply build your offense?
You take the best players and get ready for next year. That is 100% what you're doing. And I think, like Field said, because this wide receiver class is so vibes-based, as we've talked about, I don't think there's like a clear number one only because Jameson Williams is hurt. I think whatever decision they make here will tell us a lot about what they want that offense to look like, and it's going to be really interesting.
I'm always outlier here. I just don't care about the injury. Like long term, he's going to be fine. Like that.
Well, by the way, 2 guys of these wide receivers are coming off of injury.
Right.
Drake London didn't play from Halloween on. He didn't even run the pre-draft process because that ankle was still not totally where it needed to be.
Well, and the pick is in, and it is Drake London, the wide receiver at USC. Obviously, in a second, we'll go outside and get our wide receivers' reaction to this. But Drake London becomes the first wide receiver off the board. And yes, he had incredible production. But to your point, Field, also a serious injury that derailed him last season.
Yeah, it was for those that are unfamiliar, Drake London got hurt on Halloween after playing 8 games. He was so good, though, that he ended up winning Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year despite missing those games. He's unbelievable. And I know that I'm not a huge comps guy, but the comp you hear all the time for Drake London is Mike Evans. Yeah. I think Mike's faster and plays more sudden, which he's also one of the best receivers in the NFL. But Drake London, really, really, really good in the red zone. You're going to see really good after the catch as well. And a guy that did not just put it together. Like, he was good throughout his USC career, has a basketball background, actually playing at USC for his freshman year. Impressive guy at the point of the catch, as you keep seeing.
How many times are we going to hear about that basketball background on broadcast?
5,000.
Oh, my
it's going to be the Ryan
God.
Fitzpatrick to Harvard.
Yeah, 100%.
So he's the first wide receiver off the board.
So
Let's go to our first wide receiver. Harry Douglas is outside with Spencer Hall. Harry, how you feeling, brother?
I love this pick. I was hoping he was the guy the entire time. If it wasn't going to be him, I was going to say Jameson Williams, but I wanted him first. Here's the reason why. When you look at this offense that Arthur Smith runs, that the 49ers run, that the Tennessee Titans run, that the Green Bay Packers run, all those offenses require a big physical receiver or a receiver that can go over the middle and make tough catches. That's one of the things that the Atlanta Falcons struggled with last year. Calvin Ridley was there in spurts, but when he was there, he was not the guy going over the middle making the tough catches. Drake London, for a guy to be 6'4", 210 plus pounds, the way he sinks his hips, the basketball background really shows up on the tape. He's a jump ball guy that can go up and get it. He's a red zone threat. I had the luxury this morning at 10:30 a.m. to talk to his basketball coach at USC, Andy Enfield, and he had nothing but great things to say about him. High character. He's a dog. He's a competitor, and he's a guy that you want in your locker room because he is a great locker room guy.
So you say he passes the dog test. I do have one question about that vaunted Falcons offense that we're talking about. Do you have to get open in that offense by yourself? Because that might be an issue here.
It's a play action offense.
Okay, that's good. That's good because
it's made for a guy that's bigger bodied, lean on that corner a little bit, go across the middle, catch the football. More where you see A.J. Brown does it with the Tennessee Titans.
I'm just saying he wins on the elevator. But if it's a straight walkway, we're going to have some issues with separation here with him, and that might be a concern. That's my big concern with Drake London, because every time I saw him at USC, you went, man, that's an amazing catch, because he has 1, 2, 3, 9 dudes on him. Why has he got 9 dudes on him, right?
But I'll tell you this. One thing about the NFL, most catches are going to be contested, and when you have a guy that can make that contested catch, you got to take him. Back to you, Fitz.
You're going to let him wear 83? We putting him in the Douglas jersey?
If he wants to wear 83, he can have 83. He has my approval.
Look at that. That is the blessing from the Pope himself. We'll come back to Harry and Spencer in just a second. Mina, I know you had some thoughts on this pick.
My immediate reaction was thinking about Drake London and Kyle Pitts and them being two guys, the get off the bus intimidation factor, and then remembering the Tennessee Titans, where Arthur Smith last coach, also had the get off the bus factor, of course, with A.J. Brown and the tight ends that they had there. So, I think this does speak to the kind of offense they want to run. Harry talked about it with the play action, big-bodied pass catchers, finding ways to manufacture separation for them, not necessarily relying on them to get separation. It does make sense to me from that point.
I didn't like it. This is the first pick, I guess, since the number 1 overall pick that I didn't love that much. And I think chasing what you did before could get you in trouble. You may not be able to create that. I think you build an offense around the best players that you have, rather than trying to recreate an offense with players that aren't quite, because this isn't A.J. Brown, guys. Like, I've watched A.J. Brown play in college, and I watched Drake London play in college. And I think Spencer was more tactfully than me making this same point, is when you watch Drake London's tape, it's not all that impressive. What is impressive about it is him, catching a ball with a guy draped all over him. And that, it's going to be hard to make a consistent offense out of a guy who does that.
We'll get back to all the wide receiver thoughts in a second, but we've waited too long to acknowledge the fact that the Seahawks are on the clock. So, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and what would you like for your present?
Well, I wanted Kayvon Thibodeaux or Derek Stingley Jr., but with the top 2 tackles off of the board, it seems too obvious to me that Seattle's probably going to go Charles Cross here, left tackle out of Mississippi State, just because offensive tackle is such a glaring need on this roster. Dwayne Brown has not been re-signed. Brandon Shell has not been re-signed on the right side. Right now, it is, I would say, along with cornerback, who, they have actually made some signings there, a bit of a mystery for them. It's been a while since they've taken one. I think Russell Okung was probably the last time they drafted an offensive lineman in the first round.
I would think so.
Yeah, if I remember.
James Carpenter might have been a year.
The end of the first round, maybe? Yeah, third.
He's a guard, too, right? But this would be the first premium pick in the tackle.
So that's new for them. And we'll see. I mean, the other thing I think they would do is trade down because, frankly, the way the board has shaken up for them, there's no other player that, to me, jumps out as an immediate need. Obviously, there's great players like Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams, but they don't need a wide receiver. So I would be shocked if they go there.
This one makes so much sense if it goes the direction that Mina just said. The draft is far from it's an art much more than a science, but we're sitting here and we've got the best left tackle available, clearly, with a massive drop off after this.
Yes.
There 8 players ahead of him have been all sort of as expected. Charles Cross makes so much sense.
You mentioned the trade down element of it, and I think the pick is in, by the way, so we know the Seahawks haven't traded down. One thing that I again have to point out repeatedly over the course of the next 2-3 days is I'm not sure there's a trade down market in this year's draft like we've seen in other drafts, because to have a trade down, you have to have a partner that wants to trade up, and that just doesn't. In a draft where everything is so individualistic in what you're looking for and who you love, I don't know that market sits there. That's a spot where the lack of quarterbacks that everybody loves is part of it.
I think these top 10 picks, they'd be a lot more attractive if people were trying to get quarterbacks, but they're not, clearly, right? So suddenly a pick like 9, who are you going to trade up for? I guess if you really wanted Garrett Wilson, maybe that's something you could do, but obviously they're not trading.
Yeah, and by the way, they got this pick as part of a trade involving Russell Wilson. So
I don't remember that.
Yeah, look.
Doesn't ring any bells.
Small transaction, minor off-season transaction.
I don't know who that is.
That's fair. I've heard of him only because I hear he plays in the AFC West now. So sucks for him to be the worst quarterback in his own division.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Look, I got to throw that shade. Come on, I got nothing else to root for. The pick is in. Seattle is obviously going to make the pick. I think we all agree it's going to be offensive line. The commissioner is going to come across and make it momentarily. There's a pretty good amount of Seahawks fans here, not surprisingly, as you see the crowd in Vegas, and it is a large crowd. It's spread out more than the last time in Nashville, but a ton of people here. So they're getting chaotic and drunk in the heat. It's going to be an interesting night in this city.
I mean, that's Vegas.
Yeah. That's the weird part, though. Like on the East Coast, the draft ends at midnight. Everybody goes to bed. Yeah. On the West Coast, tonight's going to end around 9 p.m. Everybody's going to go to the curb. It's going to be.
Here we go. ISO cam on Mina.
All right.
I'm so calm. What are you talking about? I'm super prepared.
This is a much different version of me than
There's nothing. I would be very surprised if I was shocked.
And there we go.
And I'm not. Charles Cross.
Okay. This was good.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about him. I think the most pass protection reps of maybe any left tackle.
81% of his plays last year were pass protection.
Yeah.
Yep. Number one. Yep.
That's the offense he comes from under Mike Leach. Of course, you do just develop a lot of reps. It is a little different from the NFL in terms of how wide the splits are. That, I think, was probably a question mark for some NFL teams. But watching him, you see he is a really, really refined pass protector. Run blocking is a bit more of a question mark. But wait, spin zone for me personally, maybe this means Seattle's not going to run as much.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
It doesn't mean that. They got rid of their quarterback so that they
You want Drew Lock throwing?
Pass heavy.
We don't know that Drew Lock is a quarterback. There's still every quarterback is literally out there right now. So put a pin in that.
Hold on. I love this discussion. So who is the quarterback that is available that they could acquire that heavy pass offense will make you happy?
Desmond Ridder. I would not be mad if Seattle, they got 40 and 41. I would not be mad at all if they took Desmond Ridder.
And by the way, think about how palatable that is from a roster construction standpoint. 40 to 41, it's like a 4-year, $5 million contract. If he stinks after 1 year, you have a backup quarterback at $1.25 million per year. We've got backup quarterbacks in the NFL that make $8 million a year.
But if they're picking at 40, 41, we all know that if they want a quarterback, they're more likely going to have to jump back into the bottom of the first round. It's going to take packaging some of those things. They want the extra.
I don't know about that, man. The way this draft is shaking out, I don't know.
Who's taking one? Yeah. Honestly, like at this point, again, there are two teams that felt like obvious potential round one quarterback teams: Carolina and Seattle. I'm sorry, and Pittsburgh. Carolina, they don't have to pick again until round 4. Like if they want to get back into this, they're paying significant capital. And I'm not sure you can afford to do that.
Charles Cross is another one of these players who plays tackle but has a body that looks like he could be a basketball player. And he also, he moves like it. When you watch those pass rush reps of him, it's like his feet are incredible. You see defensive ends do 2 and 3 moves against him, and he keeps them square and in front of him. It's something that as a cornerback I see and I marvel at, because it's a similar thing when you're in press coverage to be able to stay in front of somebody. It's incredibly impressive. So you guys are in great shape to protect Drew Lock.
I knew you were going to say that.
By the way, that is. We haven't seen a trade. We've seen everything go fairly chalk to this point. A little bit of an upset maybe with Drake London being the first wide receiver, and obviously
the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell the Jags are doing at this point. But let's go. Let's see what Spencer Hall thinks of all the action right now. He's outside with Harry Douglas. Spencer, what do you got, brother?
Just a little context on Cross. Everybody knows that he is absolutely brutal as a blocker, and he spent most of the season moving backwards because he's coming from maybe the most hardcore, purest air raid attack in college football, and we all still knew that he was that dude. That is my testimony on him because he's going to have to do a lot of different things, but I think my favorite thing that I'm going to see out of him in the pros is, hey, we want you to run block more. Because I know he's mean. Now I get to see him moving forward at least half the time. So real exciting pick for him. I think he's going to be incredible.
Look at that. Yet another endorsement we got going on. By the way, the Jets pick is in. So, again, no trades. There are a lot of conversation about how many teams have 2 picks in the first round of the draft. And also should be noted that the highest number of teams ever in the NFL draft don't have a first-round pick. 8 out of 32 teams are not represented in the first round. That's historic. So we've got 8 teams completely sitting this thing out. We've got 8 teams that have multiple picks. The Jets are one of them. We saw the Giants absolutely crush, I think, in most of our estimation, their 2 picks. The Jets have put another one in. Do we have any guesses?
Well, I thought there was a wide receiver in play at pick 4, so I would still advocate for a wide receiver. Maybe, a pass rusher as well. Jermaine Johnson II out of Florida State would make some sense to me. If you look at the wide receivers, though, it's just Drake London off the board. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. Again, as Mina described, it's sort of, what are your vibes at wide receivers? What makes most sense? So I think wide receiver or pass rusher makes the most sense to me. Wide receiver would probably I think the value of Garrett Wilson's a little bit higher than or whoever you like best, a little bit higher than Jermaine Johnson II, but could see a pass rusher as well.
Yeah, the wide receiver, I think it's, I think this is the 3rd time I brought up Deebo Samuel, but I think that's going to determine what they feel about that. Because if they think they're going to fill that void with him, and I guess you could bring him in and still bring in another type of wide receiver to complement that receiving core that they have, but this will tell us a lot, in my view, how those negotiations are going, if they're still in there, if they're still interested in him, if they think they're going to be able to pull that off, if they draft the wide receiver right here. And I think they should, probably.
I think they should, too, and I would love the pairing of Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis coming back from injury, Elijah Mitchell. That's just like a really nice, well-rounded group.
Yeah. And the timeline sort of all fits here, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like the Jets.
Again, though, the Jets pick high in the second round. There'll be wide receiver value there, too. I keep just like.
That's a good point.
Get all over wide receivers.
It's a good point.
Awesome.
Garrett
there
Wilson.
It is.
There we go, out of Ohio State. So the next wide receiver is off the board. And I'll throw to you, Mina, here, because you said earlier that it's all about, whatever your vibe is. I keep saying flavor of ice cream. So what's the vibe on Garrett Wilson to you?
Circus catch is the two words you keep writing down over and over when you watch him. He's extremely fast, as is Chris Olave. He's a good route runner. I would say he has a little bit more physicality than Olave, which is probably why teams preferred him at the end of the day. But the thing that consistently jumps out, literally him jumping out, is the body control and the fact that his catch radius belies his size. You're going to see it on display all over. And he's the kind of guy where you can count on him to win at the line of scrimmage, win at the intermediate and deep levels, and then win in the end zone. Just a really good fit for that offense.
When I see a wide receiver go, it makes me think we need to talk to our wide receiver. Harry Douglas, what do you think?
Well, when I think about Garrett Wilson, the first thing I say is body control. Fitz, I don't know if you remember 2019, the semifinals game, Ohio State against Clemson, when Garrett Wilson went and climbed that ladder and took that football off of that DB's helmet. Right then and there, I said, oh my gosh. And here we are now. He's also a guy that can do it in the return game. But I love when he runs his routes. He's a floater. I'm not going to say he's a great route runner, but he's a good one. And he glides and he floats when he runs. He's an explosive play waiting to happen. And that's all I got on Garrett Wilson. Spencer, what about you?
Just one thing. It's astonishing that 4 guys from the same room will end up getting taken in the first round of the NFL draft. 3 in this draft if you count Jameson Williams. And Ohio State fans, go ahead and count him. I know you will anyway, right? National title for you. Take a victory lap, okay? Because he couldn't get on the field at Alabama and then had to go, or at Ohio State, then had to go to Alabama in order to get his yards, and Wilson, and likely Olave later. That is bonkers. Back to y'all.
So let me ask you this, Field. How does Garrett Wilson make Zach Wilson better?
Well, he's already getting. I think he's got a chance to be their best route runner. They have a little bit of balance. They've got a slot receiver in Elijah Moore, who, by the way, will play the slot this year as opposed to last year when he was playing a lot more on the perimeter because Jamison Crowder. Mina talked about, everybody's talking about sort of how they are, he's a body control player, good in the red zone. Big question with Garrett Wilson, I love the player, it's just if he gets bodied up at the line of scrimmage, how's he going to handle that press?
We have our first trade of the NFL draft.
How about that?
New Orleans Saints.
There we go, yes.
That's a quarterback trade, right?
With the Washington Commanders. Is it a quarterback trade?
I mean, what else are you coming up for?
But you don't have to jump any of these teams for a quarterback.
Yeah, I guess that's
How about a wide
That's
receiver?
the thing. It's going to be a wide receiver.
Gotta be. How about
Olave?
a wide receiver right
You think
now,
Olave
right?
here?
Olave would make so much sense to me. They've loved the Ohio State timeline. You know, that part has been awesome.
So, I mean, that must, if you're at that point, all I can think is you don't think that there's extra value for you if you just wait? I mean, we haven't seen what they've given up on the trade, so we'll try and get that.
Here's the thing with the Saints. They're picking behind the Philadelphia. Oh, it could be Jameson Williams, too, by the way.
Yeah.
They're picking behind the Philadelphia Eagles at 15. That's why I think they got to jump. The Ravens even could potentially take a wide receiver. The Texans could take a wide receiver. So this, to me, screams we had a clear need. We had 2, left tackle and wide receiver. This is our chance to fill one of those needs with a very good player.
Well, and we'll try and get the details on the trade as soon as we can and see what Washington gets to move down. Obviously, the Commanders filling a bunch of needs always at this point too. So, look, in this draft, if you could trade down, then tip of the cap. Like to what I said earlier, I think it's difficult to get a partner that wants to trade up. And in a draft that is filled with a bunch of rolls of the dice, if you get more chances to roll, then I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. So, trading down to me has a lot of logic for everybody.
Especially if you have a player in mind that you like at 11 that could be there, like, for example, Kyle Hamilton could be there at number 16. And,
which is wild.
By the way, the Commanders, very low on draft capital this year. They had some of fewest number of picks in the league because of the Carson Wentz trade and other maneuvers that they have made. So a good opportunity to kind of replenish and go for some power in numbers here in the draft. So again, right now, all we know is that the Commanders have traded away pick number 11. The Saints, we don't know yet what they have traded up. You would presume number 16.
Okay, we've got the trade coming up here to show you what happens. Although the font is really tiny and I can't see it.
2022 second and third round pick. 2023. Does that say 2022 second or 2023?
2022 second and third round pick.
Yeah.
That's a great trade for them.
Yeah.
Huge trade.
That's huge for Washington.
They pick up a bunch of value in next year's draft.
The Saints are wild. I can't ever get over their commitment to constantly trying to win and thinking they're good.
Yeah, that's what
It's a little wild, but they just are on such a separate planet from the rest of the NFL.
This is, I mean, even after Sean Payton's left, you would think that maybe that philosophy has changed, but no.
But I think that's part of what's difficult for the Saints as an organization right now. Like at some point, you got to look in the mirror and say, not like you said earlier, it's you can't keep chasing who you used to be or what you used to do. Organizationally, I'm not sure you can do that either. At some point, you got to be like, hey guys, we got to have a plan on who we are now, and I don't know what that plan is.
But I mean, it's hard given what they have on defense. It's hard. I would think it's hard for them to look at those guys in that locker room and think like we're in rebuild mode. Like they put together, so they're in that picks, in that no man's land where I think, especially after they lost Drew Brees, and I mean after Drew Brees stopped playing well, and then he retired, they're in this kind of gray area, and then had the injuries. So yeah, I think this team is. I respect it, but I don't know that it's very strategic. I respect that they're always going for it, but I don't know that it's very strategic.
By the way, it's the picks are officially 44. I'm sorry, pick 11. For pick 16 from New Orleans, pick 98 from New Orleans, and pick 120 from New Orleans. So that's a 1, a 3, and a 4 from New Orleans to move up to pick number 11. And there we go. Again, we think this seems like a natural wide receiver spot for New Orleans to get ahead of some of these teams. To me, this would be a natural wide receiver pick here.
Fun fact that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give you. We had no quarterback selected in the top 10. This is the first draft since 2013 that has seen no quarterback selected.
This could
in the top 10.
really go Pittsburgh's way.
I mean, yeah, if you love one of these quarterbacks, but that presumes that, like we know Pittsburgh needs a quarterback, but if all these quarterbacks are just mediocre, like I don't know, sometimes it's better to go to the prom by yourself than go with somebody you know you shouldn't go with. I'm just saying.
It's our second prom reference of the night.
Is there a prom in The Hangover?
No, there is no prom in The Hangover.
That was just a regular prom reference. It's not illegal, it's just frowned upon. Okay, that's a Hangover reference. You're watching the 2022 NFL Draft live stream, I should say. Mina Kimes, Jason Fitz, Dominique Foxworth, Field Yates, Spencer Hall, and Harry Douglas are also with us. They're going to be giving you all sorts of coverage throughout the course of this. If you're just tuning in, been a lot of great picks so far in this draft. We've been really impressed, but we have our first trade as the Saints have moved up to acquire the pick from the Washington Commanders. They are now on the clock, and the pick is in. Washington will fall back to the pick 16, and as Field referenced earlier, number 98 and number 120.
A couple questions here.
Yeah.
First of all, to me, this suggests that Green Bay, Kansas City, a couple others were coming, right?
Yeah.
To that wide receiver run. We know this is about to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Olave and Jameson Williams the next 2 to 3 picks.
Yes.
What do you think, Mina? Like, New Orleans is super aggressive in this draft. They really think that they're going to be awesome this year.
That's the only takeaway is that they think they can win now. It speaks to their faith in
interesting.
In Jameis Winston. I'll say that too. Like they clearly view him as a quarterback that they can compete with in a lackluster NFC.
Yeah,
I think their defense is still very good.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to be very good. So that bolsters, I think, their self-belief. But man, I'd love that self-belief because it is very unusual. I like I said, they zig when the NFL zags, and it makes for some very interesting outcomes.
But I like your point about the NFC. Like the NFC's not particularly.
Another trade, by the way. I'm told the Lions have just traded up to number 12.
Lions are going to be on the clock. Okay, we're waiting. We'll get the details on that trade. Like, this has got to be, I don't know if it's a run on wide receivers at this point.
Don't know, but let me see if I can get some information right here working on the compensation.
Yeah.
This is what's great about having Field Yates on. Field is just over here, like, with the bat phone and, like, the 18 different people calling him up. Like, this is,
I think it's got to be a wide receiver, right? Because of the teams that they're jumping ahead.
You've been
talking about
spot here.
Oh, my God. Do I like the Lions? Wow. Am I becoming a Lions fan?
I think so.
I like their coach.
Yeah, he's fun.
I like a lot of their players. Maybe I'm.
Think
maybe
you're becoming a Lions fan.
There's a bunch going on right now. We're waiting for the pick to come in from the NFL. They're doing a little bit of fun right now. All I'm saying is, like, any chance the Lions move up and maybe take Hamilton and continue to bolster their defense?
That's another player that they could take, yeah. I guess my question would be, did they have to jump? Well, obviously, they were so far behind, it makes sense.
Only
First
thought
pick
is that
going to Detroit, Detroit's trading pick 46 as well.
Okay.
Let me get that correct. I need to get the draft order. Maybe the Vikings have that.
Well, so the Lions are jumping Houston, which would have been a Hamilton destination.
Yeah.
So that I would say that makes it. Oh wow!
What do we got?
I found out what happens, but I don't want to spoil the show.
You can't.
I know. I'm sorry. I won't spoil it.
Look at this.
I may have an inside source.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. I mean, you can at least share with your buddy that's sitting next to you, or am I just going to sit here
Nah,
looking
I mean, you
for
can't say it. Like that's.
I can't say it.
You can't. That's.
I don't want to. I'm not even text it to you guys, and I want to see your reactions when it happens.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right, so the Saints pick is in,
Trying to read
and
the body
Roger Goodell's just having some fun. The chimes have gone. Great googly moogly. Thank you
This
so
is
much.
intense. I'm excited. Are we gonna be like surprised, upset, angry? What are we gonna feel, Mina?
Oh, I meant the Lions thing.
Oh,
this one is just what we all expected.
Okay, got you.
Okay.
Oh, well, not to spoil it.
Yes,
but
you did.
yeah.
Yay!
A lot of mystery.
Olave is the pick there. So Chris Olave, Ohio State wide receiver, goes to the Saints. And look, maybe Mina's right. Maybe they look around and they feel like, well, I don't know, this NFC's winnable because it's not particularly great. So let's get more weapons and
Wow,
help.
I know what it is too, Mina.
Oh my God, I love it. Can we talk about Olave for a second?
I love it.
Yes!
I love it.
All right, Chris Olave time.
I'm sorry.
Chris Olave time.
Something really exciting is going to happen.
Don't.
You two are the
I'm
worst.
keeping people interested.
I know, that's what I was saying.
That's a teaser. That's not a spoiler.
Don't turn off your internet. Something interesting is gonna happen soon. Chris Olave, most important thing that I learned about Chris Olave is he seems to have a family member who has on an all-white suit and a white bowler hat, which is outstanding, with a ponytail hanging out the back. You guys missed that with all your dancing and singing, but that was great. Chris Olave, I know him better than I would like to know him because Maryland's in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And Chris Olave did some things. Not that day they didn't. But I do love my Terps, and apparently so does Chris Olave. Because he had a field day that particular day.
Smooth. You keep hearing it again and again and again. Elite route runner guy in a nose for the end zone. Set the Ohio State receiving record for receiving touchdowns. High character kid as well. Tons of experience. Came to Ohio State, made an immediate impact. And if you're in New Orleans, what has been the biggest issue for you over the past couple? I mean, what has been one of the biggest issues, I should say? Wide receiver depth.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas is out last year for the entire season. It's like Traquan Smith and, I mean, we were talking about, and Mina won a fantasy championship with, oh my gosh, I'm losing.
Amon Ross St. Brown, yes.
Thank you. Well, I was going to say Marquez Callaway.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were talking about
She's won so many fantasies.
I know,
she's sorry. Thinking about the Lions. Yes. Callaway, yes.
Chris Olave, the one thing that stood out about him, like he has 4.3 speed, which is really impressive, but his ability to get off press. And I think a lot of these receivers, as great as they are in this draft, some of them I feel like struggle with getting off of press coverage, which you're going to see a lot of in the NFL. Chris Olave had no problem with that whatsoever. So I think he's going to be someone who transitions right into the league just fine, and he's somebody who's worth trading up for, obviously.
Go ahead.
No, I'm thrilled because there was a point where, like, weirdly, it felt like people weren't talking about him. Garrett Wilson was getting all the attention, and I was confused. I understand he became kind of his role in that offense kind of slipped a little bit, but he was still as good as ever in terms of his route running, the catch radius, the contested catch ability too, despite his size. So I think this is a great pick.
Well, and as Spencer Hall pointed out earlier, like pretty incredible to think that at one point Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson were all in the same wide receiver room. Like they were the three best friends that anybody could have. That
well done. That's the first one. That's the first one that was good.
Okay. Clear out. The Lions pick is in.
Okay.
I want everybody's focus on what's about to happen here.
The Lions pick is in.
I'm not spoiling.
It's on us to react because these two insiders know. So
yeah, I know.
We have to
Look, I'm gonna be casually unimpressed just to disappoint the cool kids at the table that already knew. That's what.
I guess my excitement is kind of spoiling it because if it was like a boring pick.
Now you've turned it up, and now we can be nothing but disappointed at this point.
What did the Lions give up to move up? Give up to move up. Not Jack.
The Lions traded picks 12. Excuse me. The Lions traded picks 32, 34, and 66 to get pick 12 and pick 46.
Draft Nakobe Dean.
Yep.
No. I didn't get it. I tried to guess.
One second.
I got bad information, y'all.
Oh, you got a quarterback?
No, wide receiver? Got bad information.
Cornerback? What do we got?
Well, I can't say because I'm going to spoil it for them.
Look, the pick is.
This is the best. This is the best.
Just when it comes in.
I knew at some point it was going to be a sloppy mess, and I'm happy we are here already. It is so great.
Like, we don't even have red Solo cups to deserve this at this point. You know, like, it would be filled with just
I'll reveal
chocolate
what I thought after the pick comes in. Obviously not going to put those eyes back in.
I'm reading you. I know everything that you're thinking right now.
The Lions-Vikings trade is up on the screen for you. The Lions get the 12th overall pick and a second-round pick in 2022.
All to get Jordan Davis?
See, the Vikings get 32, 34.
It's not Jordan Davis.
And a 2022 third-round pick. So that's the equity to move up. And again, like, impressive to move down. By the way, if you're watching the NFL Draft live stream, we're going to be with you through all of the picks. Mina Kimes, Dominique Foxworth, Field Yates. I'm Jason Fitz. Harry Douglas, Spencer Hall, part of the team, too. We are live in the beautiful Bet Studio, Daily Wager Studio here. Caesar's Palace is right behind us. Not sure if it's the real Caesar's Palace, is it? All right, the chimes are there.
Guys. That was another one.
It's time.
Okay.
Okay.
It's time! That's a Michael Bowe.
This is truly a referendum on our sourcing.
This is live.
One of us
riveting
is much
action.
better connected.
And there we go. Jameson Williams is the pick.
That's good. I like it.
Let's go!
It's great. It's
How
great.
awesome is
It's
this?
great. No, it's great. I mean,
It's okay. Like,
dude, the Lions are going to be so good in a year.
They all got on red. I appreciate
So
that.
fun.
I appreciate
So fun.
the unison matching and a diamond medallion. Outstanding.
Okay.
But this does speak to what. Go ahead, Mina.
No, I was going to say, I feel like it's a good time to talk about why we are all, I feels like, in love with Jameson Williams. I feel like we got a consensus here, which is, before, I didn't really know how good he was until I dug into his tape this year, and he's not just a speed guy. Yeah. He's actually an extremely developed route runner. I love his hands, and I keep talking about his ability to tempo. When I watch him, it almost weirdly, it's not a comp, but it almost weirdly reminds me of Antonio Brown, the way he has that stop-start acceleration and deceleration.
Yeah, great
That
call.
makes him so hard to defend. Yeah, he tore the ACL, but that's an injury guys come back from pretty cleanly these days. And, with Detroit, again, with their timeline, they don't have to win this year. So I love this pick for them.
Yeah, it's an outstanding pick. He's an all-around great player. His touchdowns this year, I think, averaged 48 yards per touchdown. So he's a big play threat. And I think when you hear those big numbers combined with his 4.3 speed, like Mina said, you think he's a straight line guy. But no, he's a football player who happens to be fast as hell and pretty good with his hands. So he's another one of these guys who is not fantastic off of press, but he's good enough off of press, I think, to impact the league. You can put him in stacks and bunches and stuff to free him up. He is going to be a problem as soon as he's healthy.
I love it. And we talked about how with Jameson, you're going to have to wait some period of time. We don't know exactly how long, but you have to wait some period of time. If you're Detroit, listen, I know they're going to be better this year, but for them, this is a long-term play, right? You have potentially, and I know, these are big words, potentially, but they could have the best offensive and best defensive player from this draft. Yeah. I mean, would that surprise anybody if 3 years from now, Jameson's the best offensive player in the draft and Hutchinson's the best defensive player in the draft?
So this is going to be the draft. So when the Lions win the Super Bowl in 2025, this is going to be the draft that you point to.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got to get to Mina. You're getting out of here. You get to go home and relax and get some rest and hang out. So we appreciate you hanging out with us for all of this time and getting all of your great reactions to everything.
Can we wait one more pick for Mina, only because I happen to know who it is and the pick is in?
Yes.
Well, sure. We're just going to go all rogue. But first, we got to talk to Kimberly Martin. We're going to talk to Kimberly about everything happening with the Jets today. We'll check this out with Kimberly. We have Kimberly. Is she there?
I see her.
I see her. I can't see her up
There
here.
she is, yeah.
Hey, Kimberly, how are you? We appreciate you hanging out with us. It's wild and chaotic here. Okay, so the Jets had a hell of a run at the beginning of this. How did all of this go down for them?
I kind of want to talk about the Lions and the Eagles trade-ups. But anyway, the Jets stuck to best player available, and they walked away on day one with 2 playmakers. I spoke to Robert Saleh earlier today, and he told me if we target a wide receiver, I'd love a home run hitter, a 3-point shooter, a guy that can score early and often to help Zach Wilson. That's what today is all about, getting guys that can help Zach Wilson. So Garrett Wilson, Zach Wilson, it works, right? But I also want to talk to you about Sauce Gardner because Robert Saleh is so pumped about this pick. How pumped is he, you ask? He sent me 4 exclamation points in a text message right after the pick. This is a guy, the first thing he said to me was, he's from Detroit. He's old school Detroit. And obviously Robert Saleh being from Detroit, he loves that. But he loves this kid's mentality. He's a dog. And in this defense, he's going to be really special, guys.
All right, Kimberly, you said you want to talk about Lions, Eagles. We're going to let you do that. What do you got on that one?
No. Well, hey, we can't. Has it been announced? I can't spoil the picks just yet.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Well, I didn't know you were spoiling that. We can't spoil anything.
Okay, Kim.
All right. You know what? You're the best.
Do not get me in trouble.
We're not going to get you in trouble. Hell, I'm trying not to get myself in trouble. We appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for everything. And I can't wait to see what this is going to be because now the suspense is all there, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so, this is the wild chaos that happens here. I think Mina's leaving. I think we're talking to Kimberly about
Sorry, I
everything's going all over the place, Field. What are you doing to me? Okay.
Derailing the show.
All right, so we do have a trade. The Eagles are on the clock at this point, and Field obviously has got some insight on it. So, Mina, any guesses on why Field would be super excited?
Yeah, if Field is excited, it's because he knows they're going to draft maybe my favorite player in the draft.
Oh, my God.
I know who that is.
By the way, here are the details on the pick. You can see them on the screen there for you. The Eagles obviously moving up, and if they get 13 in this spot.
To get Kenny Pickett, Mina's favorite player in the draft.
Yeah.
Second favorite player, right?
Yeah. This is weird because now we can't speculate about the pick because I think we all know who the pick is now. So,
sorry, I totally screwed that up.
We know, but the audience might not know.
The Texans here get a little bit of a bounty. They get a 4th rounder. They're going to move down to 15. They get a 4th rounder, and it looks like 2 5th rounders to move up in this process. So obviously somebody they're really passionate about. And now I'm excited for this pick because if it is who I think it could be, and Mina's that excited, that means a particular player I do not want in the AFC West is not going to be there. That's all I keep hoping. I think there's
well, they're jumping in front of the Ravens, which I think speaks to some of the thoughts that we might have, which makes sense. The Ravens need, they don't need a ton of help, but you could see that the Ravens need corner, they need defensive line, they need offensive line, depending on what's happening with Ronnie Stanley, their all-pro tackle. So there's a few players out there that I think would fit that. As for
we can't talk about the player.
No, they need everything. So they could be moving
the
up.
Eagles, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could use everything, I guess with the exception of offensive line. But I do think that they've already addressed pass rush. Or no, that was the Giants. I'm sorry. Kayvon Thibodeaux popped up on my screen, and I thought about them. But no, that was the Giants. They could bring in more stuff to support their quarterback to see. I think they already have their answer there. I think a lot of us on the outside believe that they are still looking for the answer there.
Yeah.
But I think internally they have an answer.
At least for this year.
So they could be moving up to get a quarterback, which is traditionally why you would move up is to draft a quarterback. I'm not sure that any of us think that any of these quarterbacks are worth moving up to get, but they could be trying to fill up that QB room.
But again, the Texans don't have a ton of talent on their roster. So anytime the Texans move down and pick up more opportunity to pick up players, I think this is a great move by Houston.
It's really, we've always, I don't know if we've always done this, but, I've never seen a draft where everyone seems smart. There's always someone who feels like it's getting fleeced. And I guess we could look at the Saints and not love that choice. which I didn't.
It's a lot of draft capital to move up for a wide receiver.
But I think overall,
at this point,
it's something they needed. Overall, we're looking at this draft with the exception of the very first overall pick, because I'm not sure that we all like that one. I think most of the decisions that have been made up until this point have been really wise ones, and on both sides. Like, it doesn't feel like very many people are losing trades. I think the Saints point that you made the Saints move make sense to me when you said how weak the NFC is.
Yeah.
And that made the Saints move make a little bit sense.
I want to be clear, I don't think it was a good move on the whole, just because of the amount of draft. When you go back to the original trade with the Eagles, it's so much to move up for a wide receiver. But I think, to your point, Dominique, it doesn't feel like there have been reaches for talent. You can talk about draft picks, but just in terms of like where these players have gone relative to their talent, and then also the team needs, everything so far has kind of made sense.
I guess
other than the first pick. I mean, I'm still going to that's a hill I'm going to die
The first
on.
pick was one that I think we didn't necessarily agree with, but it doesn't seem wild. I guess I'm thinking back, Mina and I have done this together, and Field done this together a number of times, and you two, Fitz, and it feels like we always have something big to laugh about at this point. You know, like there's always a couple teams that we're like,
here we go.
What a bunch of fools. We don't have that this year, which is nice.
Yeah, the Eagles selection is in. Roger Goodell is at the podium hanging out. Somebody from, Gorman High School, the Las Vegas community? I'm not sure. They've got, looks like a bunch of Vegas kids.
Oh, nice.
Which I'm all in for.
What school did you go to? Were you good at any sports?
No, of course not. Okay. I was a fat kid that played the violin. Like, I'm not good at any sports.
So you got the girls.
Well, you know it. They're flocking over those kids that know Beethoven. Woo! Oh, my God. I got uncomfortable for the whole room.
I'm just dialed in for this pick. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the suspense.
And then you get to go home or go to your hotel room after this.
Mm-hmm.
Or go to a fancy dinner.
Ooh, a fancy dinner? We having a fancy dinner?
I'm not.
He's in Jordan Davis.
There he is.
Goes to the Eagles.
There he is. This is perfect.
I love this kid.
I love him so much.
Look at him.
Nina, why do you love him?
Oh, my God. I mean, did you watch the Combine? Or, honestly, did you watch Georgia games? He's unbelievable. His lateral agility and movement skills at his size it looks like CGI. When you watch CGI, I was going to say, actually, the thing that really looks like CGI is when you watch him chase down a running back in the open field. It must be the most terrifying thing in the world for opposing teams. The question mark with him, I guess, was not about his talent, but about positional value and his limited snap count at Georgia, a lot of which can be explained by the Georgia defense and how all of those players were used in unusual ways because there was so much talent. But when he is on the field, he is an absolute menace. He just gobbles up players. I mean, look at him. I think he's still working on his pass rush moves, but again, oh my God, look at that. Look at that. That doesn't make sense. That literally doesn't. He defies the laws of physics when he's chasing down guys. His closing speed, and yeah, you don't need moves when you're just an absolute bully.
Everybody talked about his 40 time in the Combine, but what I thought was even more impressive was that he went out after the national championship game and lost about 30 pounds just so he could run a faster Combine and show everybody what he's capable of. I mean, that's a level of up-yours dedication that most people don't have.
You guys, to put this in perspective, just remind people, he's 340, I believe, pounds. Yeah. He ran a 4.78.
Absurd.
Patrick Mahomes ran a 4.80. Dak Prescott ran a 4.80. It's just crazy.
That's like fast, tight end numbers.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts is just about the fit with the Eagles, because their defensive line has been a strength for a while. They did bring Fletcher Cox back, but it's aging. Do you think this is kind of them wanting to get younger and sort of build for the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't go wrong. There are certain guys, and Spencer and I had this conversation a couple days ago, that there are some dudes that are just dudes. And Spencer has a list of guys that you look at and you say, that boy nice.
Yes.
And he is on the top of that list
100%.
Where you don't need to think about scheme, bring him in the door. And when I was researching about him and trying to get ready, prepping, I started looking for comps for him to help me understand it. And the names that came to mind, like Dontari Poe, Haloti Ngata, Vita Vea. And then I looked up all of their sizes because they're like big, athletic defensive tackle. They're all smaller than him by a lot. They're all 6'4". He's 6'7". 340 and runs like a tight end. And it's not just the speed, it's the agility. Like his 3-cone numbers, like all of his combine numbers, his broad jump.
Everything.
It's just like
he like broke records for everything.
Yeah, it looks like CGI. That's the quote that you had that is a perfect one to describe it. It does not look real for someone with that frame to move the way he does.
Yeah, and the big question with Jordan Davis is going to come down to utilization at the NFL level. It's a guy who, over his past 2 years, 31 snaps per game and a little over 25 snaps per game. But this Georgia defense, as good as it was, and I'm not trying to take this away from them, has sort of created some question marks surrounding its top players, right? Earlier, we're talking about Trayvon Walker and the scheme and whether rushing was a true strength of his, even though he didn't do it that much. Now, Jordan Davis, the question becomes two things. One, are they not playing him that much because they're just so good that, like, his backup is like another 5-star?
Yeah.
Are they doing it because he's not capable? Are they doing it because last year especially they were beating teams by 25 points in the fourth quarter? All those questions come into play with the value of Jordan Davis. That being said, this guy is, freak. And you just mentioned Dontari Poe. Those same questions were surrounding him, and then he went in and became this guy that played like 70% of the snaps pretty often and had a really, really nice career.
And I think the depth of their defensive line as it exists gives them time to figure out his utilization, gives him time, frankly, to get more experience playing more football. And, and I think that's a really good thing, and this is a nice landing spot for him.
I think you're amazing, and we should all just give Mina a big round of applause.
Mina
Kimes is done with us. We are just getting started, though. Obviously, you guys are chiming in throughout the course of the show. It's the NFL Draft live stream on ESPN. Mina Kimes has been hanging out with us, which we always appreciate. We got some tweets going on. Sauce Gardner, do we like that fit there, Dominic? You're the fashion guy.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm too old to pull off.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
Yeah, I'm older than you, so like.
No.
Yeah, like.
I look great.
Oh, man.
Mina, thank you very much. I thought you were done. Aren't you leaving?
She's leaving.
Why are you just
Look, this is modern technology. We're trying to make sure that everything's this is subtle. Nobody knows it's happening, right? This is TV magic where Harry Douglas just slides on in and look.
We're putting up this tweet only so the fans don't have to watch you walk away, and you're still taking shots at me as you.
You have that coming, though, considering you started the draft by taking shots at my quarterback's hair.
Well,
I love you, Derek Carr. Don't block me. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, we're doing the handoff.
I can't read those tweets.
So now we got Trae Young tweeting to Drake London and, getting in on the fun as they do in the NBA, and everybody hanging out says, another lob threat at Atlanta Falcons. Fire, fire, fire. Wide receivers on deck. Welcome to the A-Killer. I can't wait to see who else we draft.
I love it.
I couldn't have read that any more stilted middle-aged white guy.
That was perfect. Well done for the first time you saw it.
Welcome to the A-Killer.
I know what Trae Young better do. He better go work on hitting them doggone baskets. Because they just got put out the playoffs, and I was at those games. That's what Trae Young better get in the gym.
Harry Douglas coming in just slinging fire. The Ravens have made a pick I love.
Ooh.
Kyle Hamilton.
That's surprising to me.
Notre Dame.
I think this is a true, this is from the Aussie school. He's no longer there. Oh, got a girlfriend, Dap, too?
No.
The true best available, because they just signed Marcus Williams to a big safety contract, so I assumed that they wouldn't go after Kyle Hamilton, but I think by most people's measures, Kyle Hamilton is still the best player that's available, so they went ahead and brought him in. They'll figure out what to do with him. He's an enormous safety, so they could do a lot of things with him. He doesn't have to play pure safety, and that presumably they'll keep up with that blitz-heavy offense. He's a great blitzer who has some pretty good moves. He's great deep. His coverage isn't always as tight as you would want it to be, but I think that's something he can grow into with all his versatility.
Yeah, what do you think?
I think versatility and being able to have a lot of guys in the secondary to be able to do a variety of different things. You look at the Saints over the years and how they had a lot of guys in their secondary from the safety position that are hybrid guys that can guard tight ends, guard slot receivers, blitz off the edge, play deep thirds, play in the box. Just to be able to do a magnitude of different things from that secondary. So I think that's another reason why they made it.
Huge news if you guys got it. Come over here in a second if you don't mind.
Yeah, what you got?
Baltimore Ravens have traded wide receiver Hollywood Brown and pick number 100 to the Arizona Cardinals. Ooh. How about that app? Woo!
Wow. For what?
It's, like I said, it's Hollywood Brown and pick 100. The Cardinals are pick 23.
Okay, there we go.
23. Oh, that's the part we missed. So they're going to be back up, which is, I mean, look, replacement value, I guess. Like,
I guess.
Just looking around, like, is that the future? Harry, is that the future wide receiver where it's just like, hey, this guy's cheaper, so let's just get rid of that one and draft this one?
Well, especially when you see the high demand and what wide receivers are asking for now, compensation-wise. So why not get younger and a guy that you know that can probably be healthier than Hollywood Brown has been, a guy that can probably give you more production. He is a smaller wide receiver, a guy that you don't really want to count on when it comes to longevity. So I think this is what the Baltimore Ravens were thinking here.
Yeah, well, I mean, they haven't drafted a receiver yet, but I guess we're all assuming that that's what they're going to use that pick for, right? I mean, I want to get back to this Kyle Hamilton selection. I think we talk so much about how, like, a guy like Deebo Samuel is a flexible guy on offense and it allows them to do so many things in San Francisco. This league is moving more and more in that direction. And the reason why I want to talk about Kyle Hamilton is he has a specific position. Like, he's a safety who's capable of other things. You think back to some of the other guys who've come into the league and haven't had success, like these tweener guys, it feels like some of those guys don't have a position. And they're like, he could do everything. But it really means he can't do anything. So, like, for Kyle Hamilton to have a home and then to be able to do this other stuff, like, it makes me feel comfortable. And also going to, we talked about this, a good situation.
Right.
That matters. That matters so much. The Baltimore Ravens is a place where if you're good, you're going to succeed. That's not true of very many places. They do have some transition as far as coaching is concerned on defense, but I still think that he'll succeed.
Another thing I like about Kyle Hamilton, when he was on First Take, I remember Stephen A. asked him, hey, you look like you're a nice guy. When I watched that film, I remember tweeting one game where he knocked somebody out, may have been a quarterback. And I think he got a penalty for it. And I was like, I like this kid because he don't care nothing about no rules. He's going to arrive, and he's going to arrive violently.
The pick is in for the Houston Texans, by the way. And I'll just say quickly to your point, one thing about situation that I think is so difficult is these kids get so little time between when they're drafted to when they start their rookie year at expectation. And now all of a sudden you're being asked to do something that could be wildly different. The Texans have gone Kenyon Green, guard out of Texas A&M. And Harry Douglas is excited about this one.
All you have to do is turn on the tape from 2020, them playing against Alabama, and watch how he took it to Will Anderson Jr., who I think could have been the first player taken in this year's draft and might be, if it wasn't for the quarterbacks, being the first person taken in next year's draft. But his position is guard. He can play tackle position. He can move around all across the offensive line. But guard is where he's going to make his money and where I really liked him on film.
Yeah. Field, what do you think of this one? You good on Kenyon?
To be honest with you, Kenyon Green, is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Who did he get taken by?
The Texans. Houston Texans.
Sorry, Bill.
Texans?
Yeah, Texans just heard.
Yeah, I'm in on Kenyon Green.
Okay.
I'm working.
Yeah, the man is trying to get us some breaking news.
Over here.
You know what? You keep working on breaking news.
No, let me talk about Kenyon Green here for a second. In case we haven't, I know we don't have our guy Gojo here to give us the usual offensive line. Kenyon Green played everywhere on offensive line for Texas A&M. Anything he did well. If you want to play guard, he'll play guard and be really good there. He can play tackle in a pinch if you need him there. This is versatility. Nick Caserio, the Texans GM, gets a homegrown product who has all sorts of versatility to play anywhere along that line. I think he's a guard right away. He can be a guard forever. But if you need him somewhere else, he can do that. Love the player.
Yeah, and I think this is the early stages. It feels like they're in the position that the Lions were in last year. The Lions, I feel like, are one step further in this rebuild process, and they're doing some similar things. Whereas, like, frankly, they're getting a guy who they know they can rely on, a guy who is flexible, as Phil was saying. They can put in a bunch of different places. They're going to win inside with him, and also on top of that, you add to it the Derek Stingley pick earlier. They're getting a same sort of guy, trustworthy, reliable playmaker guy on defense. This is kind of how you build a roster, particularly when I think it's in their best interest, I guess might be a stretch, but the fact that there is no obvious quarterback to be taken, I think is somewhat of a luxury, particularly for the bad teams. Because if there's a quarterback out there and you're a bad team, you have to take him. Your fans won't let you sleep if you don't take him. And now they aren't forced to do that. They can start to build a team.
So I think this pick that's in right now from the Washington Commanders, we don't know what it is yet, is interesting to me, only because Washington traded down. So to your point, some of the conversation we're having about movement, the Washington Commanders moved down, and in the process of moving down, now, if they thought they were moving down and could still get Kyle Hamilton, that's not true. If they thought they were moving down and could still get Jordan Davis, that's not true. If they thought they could move down and still get one of those top-level wide receivers, that's not true. As much as we've been like, the whole time we've been like, man, this looks really smart. And even when Washington traded down, I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. This is the gamble you take, because if you were trading down thinking, well, worst case scenario, there are 3 or 4 guys that could be there for us, it feels like everybody else realized that worst case scenario too and jumped up in front of them. Like, if I'm a Washington fan right now, I'm interested to see what this pick is, and for the next several years, I'm going to be looking at this pick saying, what the hell did we do, right? Like, that's real.
I mean, so I guess this goes back to one of the points we made earlier, is that nobody really knows what they're doing when it comes to drafting. So if you're going to get a bunch of picks, you're probably going to end up in the long run having had a better draft than the people who drafted up high, unless there's somebody you just know for sure. And so, like, they have a lot of needs. They've answered their quarterback question, maybe, but they have a lot of needs elsewhere, which I think they can address here.
Field needed a new shirt. Like, what are we doing here, buddy? Are we chilly?
It's chilly.
Is it a little chilly? Yeah, the studio's a little cold. Like,
I was actually warned about that before I came out here, so I brought the quarters in.
Somebody should have told
So
me.
you didn't heed the warning, and you just decided middle of the show you get all willy-nilly with
Well,
the
I mean, it's also 94 degrees out right now, so I walked over here and broke a sweat.
That sounds selfish to me, Field.
I mean, like,
I'm cold.
I mean, some of us brought a jacket knowing it was going to be chilly in the studio.
I didn't. When I came to Vegas, I thought I was cool. Y'all lucky I got on pants.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Y'all unlucky, actually.
Paul.
Tyler Linderbaum is a center who I think is, like, I'm hesitant to do deep analysis on centers because I don't know center technique that well. But Tyler is a guy who's very good. They need that position. This might be early for him. So the only reason I bring that up is you were talking about all these players that they could have been moving back and still expecting to grab. That's another guy that could anchor their offensive line that they could be targeting and continue to move back, and they could still get him there. Who else is there that they could be getting?
I think anchor is the right word, because when you look at that position, normally the center, if it's not the quarterback, they're making a lot of offensive line calls, right? And they have to be in unison and communicate to the left, communicate to the right, make sure everyone's on the same page. So if they actually take them there, I wouldn't be mad at that pick.
Yeah, but when you look at the needs, according to ESPN.com, for the Washington Commanders, wide receiver, oops, just missed out on a few more of those. Safety, oops, you just missed out. I'm just saying, like, this.
Right, but you made the point on wide receiver. You continue to make that point.
Yeah.
So, like, they're doing that. The safety point, you're right. There's not another safety nearly as good as Kyle Hamilton in this draft. So
the drop-off on safety is like epic, right?
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Penning's a tackle that I really liked. Who's I don't love small school guys, particularly at offensive line, but
whoa. The Eagles are trading for A.J. Brown. This is according to Schefter.
Wait.
It's happening.
Oh, gosh.
Whoa.
Are you serious?
I'm not messing around.
Are you sure that wasn't misspelled?
No,
Schefter?
I'm telling you, blockbuster trade, verified a tweet. The Titans are planning to trade wide receiver A.J. Brown to the Eagles, sources tell ESPN.
Oh,
okay.
Jahan Dotson. So they got a receiver.
was just taken by the Commanders. By the way, a pick I love. We'll get to it in a second. But what are the Titans thinking?
I'll tell you what they
Well, let's hear what they got in compensation.
I mean, I'm assuming pick number 18. That's to Tennessee. They can't pay him. It's the problem is you can't pay him.
Wow. I mean, look.
That's a stunner there, man.
I talk to Nashville every week in the ESPN affiliate out there. I got my radio start on that ESPN radio station, and I follow the Titans. I'm not a Titans fan, but I follow them. And Titans fans have been yelling and screaming about this, and most people have been like laughing at it. The thought that it just happened. Now, I want to give Jahan Dotson love, by the way. He's just picked, and this is a kid that, as you see, they're going to show you a bunch of highlights. But I always said it was like an invisible staircase when you watch his highlights this year. He's just a guy that went like up, and away, and catches the ball really well. Like, I think we're undervaluing Jahan Dotson.
I think he is the most natural hand catcher in this draft when it comes to the wide receiver position. He also has that body control. He has that little burst that we see from Garrett Wilson, but not to the level of Garrett Wilson. So I like this pick for the Washington Commanders to pair up with Terry McLaurin because they needed another guy, and to go along with Logan Thomas. They have two solid running backs with McKissick and Antonio Gibson in the backfield, but you got to give Carson Wentz some weapons to deal with because we do know what he likes to do toward the end of the season.
So Terry McLaurin is the first name that comes to my mind when this draft pick is made. And then this kind of dovetails somewhat with what Phil was talking about is happening down in Tennessee.
Correct.
And now I could be jumping the gun, but Terry McLaurin is someone who wants to get paid also. We've seen what's happened to the wide receiver market. Them drafting a wide receiver in the first round, I'm not sure that you're drafting a partner or you're drafting a replacement in the first round right now. Like, I understand they could work well together, and maybe it's not for this year, but it's an interesting decision to make to bring him in right there when you have other needs.
Real quick, Diana Rossini's saying the Titans
I'll tell you,
traded.
it's 18 and 101 for A.J. Brown.
Okay.
18 and 101. Wow. All right, the Chargers have just made a pick. Zion Johnson, the Boston College guard,
boy.
heads to L.A. for the
Yes!
Chargers.
I told you, they got two guys. Earlier, I had two guys on the draft. Zion Johnson and Trent McDuffie. McDuffie's still on the board, but two guys that you talk about checking every box. They check every box. I'm not saying they're the best players in the draft, but like physical, character, competitive, production. I know it's a trait. Zion Johnson is as clean as a freaking whistle. This guy's going to come in and be a day one starter, probably play 10 years, probably be the last person you ever worry about. I love this pick for the Los Angeles.
And it says a lot about protecting your franchise quarterback as well, too, right? You have a guy in Justin Herbert who we think is going to ascend to another level this year. You see what they did on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of people have the Chargers to win that division. So why not pick another guy on that offensive line that can help you in the run game and help you in the pass game and protect your franchise quarterback?
Yeah, look, I'm the least thing that, I'm as biased as they could be. We all know my AFC West bias. I'm the first to admit that I think the Chargers are too stinking talented this year not to win the division. I think they're the best team in that division. And if Justin Herbert does ascend, as I think he will, to your point, I think they're clearly going to win the AFC West. So this is a solid pick. When you are great everywhere and you can make your offensive line even better,
They're going to put him next to Rashawn Slater, who is incredible, probably the best tackle out of the draft last year.
And you're going to need good offensive line play in the AFC West. There are a bunch of guys that can get after the quarterback.
Who's catching passes for Tennessee?
Whoever
Woods.
they're about to pick.
They traded.
I know, but besides Robert Woods.
Oh, they're gonna pick. They're gonna have to. They got to pick another guy.
Pick somebody now.
They have to.
This is
right.
But
this is the new, it's Wards. Wins above replacement.
But I will tell you this: in that offense, Tennessee's one of those offenses. When you look at Green Bay, Tennessee, Atlanta. They only really need one guy to do the job. It's great to have a complimentary guy beside you, but you really only need one guy.
But you're just glossing over the fact that the Titans as an organization jacked up the wide receiver position year in. And you want to talk about a team that just couldn't draft a wide receiver for years. In John Robinson, they trust. But, man, I mean.
I'm glad you said draft because I signed there free agency. I didn't want to jump on your head.
We don't have to fight right now. So, I mean, according to the ESPN best available receivers are Treylon Burks, Christian Watson, Sky Moore, and John Mechie. And George Pickens is another guy to Georgia that's really good. I'm not sure who I would take.
No, you can't take a wide receiver here, can you?
This is a blockbuster trade. You see it on the
receiver
screen.
or linebacker?
A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is now at Philadelphia
They
Eagles.
lost two of them in free agency, and Jayon Brown and Rashawn Evans. So linebacker is another spot they need to tighten up.
I don't like wide receiver here either, but I guess I just assume.
But you have to have somebody.
I mean, they may be waiting till later in the draft to replace that
But you know
position.
who fits the mold, though?
Who's that?
Treylon Burks does fit that mold.
Yeah.
A big body guy that can make the tough catches and go over the middle. You have Robert Woods to do the excellent route running on the outside.
Can we take the other side of this real
Matt
quick,
Millen's comp on ESPN for Treylon Burks is A.J. Brown. That would be perfect.
But let's take the other side of this for a second. What did the Eagles just get? What
Miller.
difference is this going to make for the Eagles coming into this year?
I mean, we talked about it earlier. You're going to know on Jalen Hurts. you're gonna know on Jalen Hurts, right?
Yeah, they're giving him there's nobody to blame.
Nope,
at this point.
Nobody to blame.
Their offense, when it got most productive, was when they switched to a more quarterback run-centric offense. It was away from Jalen Hurts passing. He still was capable as a passer, but they got better when they used him as a runner. It seems like this year they're gonna make him throw. Because that receiver room ain't going to be happy if they're running QB power on 3rd and 4 again.
They're also going to have to pay him, by the way, right away.
The type of receiver that they needed, though, just about everybody they had in that room was small, shifty, fast guys. Yeah. And a lot of times I've seen Jalen Hurts throw a lot of jump balls, and I'm like, you throwing a lot of jump balls to guys who aren't jump ball wide receivers.
Right.
If it's one thing A.J. Brown did in Tennessee, it's definitely make Ryan Tannehill look great. Because there was times he could just throw the ball up there. We seen in the playoff game against the Bengals, he catch the one-handed fade for a touchdown. A guy that can take a glance route, 5-step post. You catch that thing, you take it to the house, come out the back door, or even an in cut or a slant. That's the type of receiver they needed, a guy with some mass on him.
But, I mean, all of this speaks to the wide receiver position overall and the valuation of it in the NFL.
And so I got a former wide receiver on the set, so I got to be nice here, right? But, like, there is we do not know what it looks like when you are building a roster with a wide receiver making $30 million a year. Like, we have several guys that are going to be making close to that, or 25 plus. Yep. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know what that looks like yet. Like, how does that impact the rest of your roster? Because we've got pass rushers make a ton of money, but they've been doing this for a while. And by the way, the number of them is smaller, right? Like, we don't have 5 pass rushers that make $25 million or more. Like, we've got TJ Watt. That's about it, right? I mean, Aaron Donald's making $22 million a year. He's the best defensive player in football. So I truly believe that between this wide receiver market in the next few years, like, we're going to figure out whether it's worth it or not, or whether these guys, it's just a perfect circumstance and GMs just get aggressive.
Well, they're certainly testing the law of supply and demand.
They are.
Because it doesn't seem like the supply of good wide receivers is so low that the price that they're demanding should be as high as it is. Like, I look around the league and then look at draft after draft, and I see lots of number 1 wide receivers available. And they're paying these number 1 wide receivers as if there aren't very many number 1 wide receivers available. So, like, at some point the party's going to be over. I don't want to be the receiver who's standing outside the party after the money dries up.
But part of what surprises me about all of this from the Titans standpoint is that they're really in a win-now situation. Like, they're in a window of competitiveness in the AFC. You can't tell me that again, we're in Vegas, right? Total roll of the dice. Maybe you put all your money on red at the roulette table and you walk away and it hits, and everybody's like, yeah, you're the smartest guy ever. You still got to have that friend in the room that's like, man, that was a dumbass bet. Like, that's what I feel like right now for the Titans. Like, that was just a stupid bet. Like, maybe it pays off, but you didn't make your team any better today.
So, like, I think the logic behind what the Titans did, I think, is smart. Is it going to work out? I don't know.
Well, the pick is in, and we'll find out what it is. You know, a lot of conversation about these Titans this year, and every single year is going to ask more questions about Tannehill, about Derrick Henry, how many years is he going to be able to continue to do what he does? What are they going to do with the offensive line? They pay Taylor Lewan a ton of money.
They lost
Traylon Burks.
There it is.
Traylon
Burks. Comp, right? I mean, that was the comp for him was.
Yeah.
Let's get a cheaper version of A.J. Brown. Now, he still has to go in and make the plays because college is different. But on film, what I like from him, because the offense, I really think he didn't benefit from the offense because of the quarterback position and he had to go in the slot. I honestly think he's an outside receiver. But at the next level, look at the run after the catch.
So, I mean, again, this is exactly what we talked about when we first heard the trade. But this speaks to devaluation of the wide receiver. Like,
I don't know, is devaluation? I think it's that the wide receiver market got out of whack, and this is a perfect storm. Right. Think about the circumstances that led to the first big payday, okay? Devontae Adams getting traded to the Raiders, leaving the Packers. Like, that is completely, all the things that had to happen for that to come true are pretty unique, all right? First of all, the Packers were sort of bound to, like, giving Devontae whatever they needed to get it done because obviously they have Aaron Rodgers and they want to continue to maximize this window. And then Devontae goes, no, I'm good. I want to go to the Raiders, who are willing to move heaven and earth, both in terms of picks and money to get it. Well, then Tyreek Hill, who was on the doorstep of signing an extension with the Chiefs, is like, 22.5 or 23 million. I want 25, 30 million. I mean, that to me, like, I'm not so sure. Again, we don't know. And like,
I feel like you're missing the other half of it, though, Field. Like, because to me, there's also this moment of like NFL teams see Jamar Chase go off, and they see Justin Jefferson go off, and they're like, "Shoot, we can draft anybody and put him in." And but at the same time,
counterpoint. The counterpoint is pretty obvious, right? The Raiders said, we'll pay a guy top dollar and give you a first and second round pick. The Dolphins said, we'll pay top dollar and give you 5 picks. The Eagles said, we'll give you the 18th overall pick in the draft.
I think this is the Eagles and the Titans changing in these like volatile market dynamics. So I suspect that they had a plan to go forward paying these guys what they thought the market rate was. But yesterday's price is not today's price. And they was like, nah, we can't pay today's price. Y'all gonna have to go somewhere else, which is why, like,
with that Diet Coke.
y'all gonna we will go get some Diet Coke because we cannot afford the classic, and they're fine with that. Which, like, the logic behind it, like, emotionally, my reaction is, damn, you got a game breaker, you don't get rid of them. But the logic behind that, if the market went crazy, that don't mean you have to go crazy too. And it seems like a lot, specifically when we know, or it seems like year after year, great receivers. I mean, there's 3 of them at Ohio State.
and I'll tell you this, Dom, and it's crazy I'm about to say this, being able to play that position. I feel like if I was a GM, I can go out here and get me another wide receiver that can get the job done versus overpaying for one right now. The hardest positions, that's why a lot of corners last a long time in the league, because you can't find them anywhere. You can find receivers everywhere.
Well, you can find people to sit on this desk everywhere. Field Yates is getting a break. This is what we do.
Okay.
Field gets to go get a sandwich, get himself a Diet Coke, hang out, have a little bit of fun for a minute.
Soda these days.
We're just tag teaming. Spencer Hall is going to come join the set. We're just transparent. They're going to throw tweets up. That way we can show you some of what's being tweeted out as we get Field off the set and Spencer on. And the McCourty twins, defense wins championships, first 4 picks, all on the defensive side of the ball. Edge and quarterback, got to find ways to get to the quarterback. Hashtag NFL draft, and then make that 5. I like that. They didn't delete the tweet, they just edited it. Give us an edit button. Also, the Roger Goodell hashtag NFL draft bro hug is a top 3 weirdest thing in sports. I mean, maybe, but you haven't seen me bro hug Harry Douglas after dinner. That's all I'm saying. That's weird too.
Can I request something?
Is it a bro hug?
Can I request a quilt?
A quilt. Oh my God, y'all are just soft.
I thought at some point when 9 of us said that it was cold in here, the air conditioner would get turned down.
Yeah. Oh, Diva. This is why you trade wide receivers. Because ones that have been in the league for a second, high maintenance. That's because you ain't got no body fat.
I'm over here quivering.
Harry Douglas is 8 pounds.
We ain't built for this. This ain't what we're built for. Running fast.
My milieu.
I'm here.
There he is.
You want to take it down another 10 degrees? That'd be great. I'm so happy. It's 40 degrees in the studio. We're talking about Treylon Burks. I am pig and slop.
I'm with you, man. I lived a lot of years on a tour bus, and let me tell you, you keep those things cold because that's the only way to keep everybody happy. Those things are 60 degrees. My hotel room, I jack it down until the unit stops and says up yours. That's where I go on everything I do.
What do you think about Treylon Burks?
Oh, you're not going to get me to say a single bad thing about him because I thought you guys were talking about the quarterback play that he had in college, right? Very true. Where's he going? He's going someplace where one might say it is a more collegiate style offense in the sense that they're going to run a lot of RPOs. They're going to have a run-first approach. He thrived in that. He was a 1,000-yard receiver with K.J. Jefferson throwing to him. And I love K.J. Jefferson, and I hope we're here talking about him eventually in the NFL draft. But I don't think that's in the plans right now if we're projecting forward.
I will tell everybody this, the breaking news from Shefty. Dinner is on A.J. Brown for quite a while. 4 years, $100 million, $57 million of it fully guaranteed. That's where we are. 4 year, $100 million, 57. Look, and I love guys getting paid. Let me be so loud about this. I want everybody to go get their money. That's a lot of money. It tells you why the Titans did what they did, but still, in a year where Titans fans, they are angry about the way Ryan Tannehill played in the playoffs, and now he has to figure out how to make
I'm still angry. The first pass of the game was an interception.
Yeah.
I think the First drive of the second half was an interception. The last play of the game was an interception.
Yeah, I mean, that was – now we have a big boy out of Northern Iowa.
My God.
Trevor Penning has been selected by the New Orleans Saints. And, Spencer, I know you like big boys from Iowa that eat their corn and play offensive line.
Yeah, you're talking about going to get Diet Coke. We're not getting Iowa. We're getting Northern Iowa here,
Yeah.
okay? You're getting the slightly off-brand. But I think like a lot of off-brands, you are getting value. This is value, okay?
Oh, gosh. It's the best substitution in history.
It's my favorite description of a dude. He likes to beat people up, and he just happens to play football, right? He said his favorite thing about football, and I quote, is beating people up legally.
Yeah.
He can do this, and it is not against the law. I think you'll also see with him at the next level the same kind of stuff that you saw at the Senior Bowl. You're going to see a lot of big plays where he absolutely destroys somebody, and then you're going to see ones where he doesn't sink his hips, he doesn't get low, he doesn't bend, and he gets beat and gets beat bad. So I think this is an impressive but high variance player to start.
First of all, Sixth Man of the Year. I think, can we change the voting for the NBA Sixth Man of the Year, because I believe that should be you. Because you came off the bench putting up some shots, nothing but net. We was getting a little tired. We needed some instant offense. He came out, microwave, started cooking. As for this dude, he is an impressive athlete. And one of the things that I like to do to make people think I'm more knowledgeable than I am is say, I watched the Senior Bowl tape, which I did on this guy. And in his Senior Bowl tape, all he was doing was fighting. He was just out there looking for fights. He was just out there looking for fights. They also showed him doing a dunk highlight. Like, he's a special type of player. If he could be more consistent, he would have gone higher in the draft. But his best plays are as good as they get.
So Dominique Foxworth, Spencer Hall, Harry Douglas. I'm Jason Fitz. We're all over the place. It's the 2022 NFL Draft. Field Yates getting a little break. He's getting a little breather right now. You can also watch the draft, of course, on ESPN and the NFL Network. Keep us on your side screen, though, the whole time. We're going to be here all day today, all day tomorrow. A couple of nuggets to get everybody really quickly caught up. Obviously, A.J. Brown is a huge trade. Hollywood Brown is a huge trade. That's all happened today. For the first time since 1967, we saw 6 wide receivers selected in the top 20. There's been a massive run, and now...
How many?
6.
Look at God. Won't he do it? He might not come when
he
you
will.
He might not come when you want him to come, but he gonna always be on time.
But here's the thing, like, God might love wide receivers, but he hates quarterbacks this year. We haven't seen a single one go, right?
Yeah.
Not a single quarterback, which is important because the Steelers are on the board right now. Like, the Steelers pick is in. Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, you see them all there. They are all still on the board. And now we get into that interesting territory in the draft where you got to look at teams that are maybe picking in the second round, trying to figure out, do you want to try and trade up, get somebody, get that extra fifth-year option, or do you just acknowledge what I've been saying the whole time, which is this is not the draft to need a quarterback. To me, this is simple.
Do you like keeping your job?
Yeah.
Go get some groceries. Go get a big boy. Why don't you get something safe like a corner, right? You never go broke or lose your job buying insurance, okay? Quarterback is not insurance, okay? A quarterback is a risk. It is a risk proposition, and it is especially risky this year. I think people have overplayed that somewhat because I think these guys have real potential. But go get something basic, y'all.
But, I mean, that's why the Steelers are an interesting spot, because Kevin Colbert is done after this. So he don't want to keep his job. The GM there is not interested in keep his job. The same thing happened with Ozzie Newsome. He was done. Lamar Jackson was sliding. And if you're going to draft a quarterback, you kind of want to get him in the first round because you then have that fifth-year option. So, like, that's what happened with Lamar. The Ravens traded back up into the first round to grab Lamar Jackson at the end before Ozzie Newsome walked away. I can see the Steelers trying to do something very different, but none of these dudes is Lamar. I remember that draft, and I projected one of the few times I was right in the draft, projected Lamar as the best quarterback in the draft. Maybe he wasn't the best, but he was better than he was getting credit for. So I don't think any of these dudes are that dude.
Well, and we're going to find out quickly if the Steelers take a quarterback. The great question is going to be, do they bank on potential or do they bank on needing something right now? Because I think most of us would agree that Kenny Pickett is the person. I mean, he's a little older than everybody. He's had a little more reps than everybody. He's the most sure thing, right? But then you've got a lot of people that are in love with the possibilities of Malik Willis, right? Like, that are in love with other guys.
The thing about Kenny Pickett to me is that when I look at him, has he already hit his ceiling? I don't know how much better he can get from here. And I understand he played in the backyard, so if you're going to go quarterback, I got to go Malik Willis because he has the upside to be better with great coaching down the line.
Is he going to the right place, though? Because this is the Josh Allen rule. Like, everybody's now gone, well, Josh Allen did it. One, we should remember how exceptional Josh Allen was as a case study, okay? He got more accurate as a quarterback coming
Never
out
happened
of college.
in the history of
year.
eternity.
Never, right? He's an exceptional case. But he ended up going to an organization that really built around him and did so very, very, very intelligently. Is that Pittsburgh?
That's interesting.
I mean, is that Pittsburgh right now?
I don't think it's Pittsburgh, and it's also interesting because do you build around a quarterback that falls to you like this? Like, that tends to not be the case. You are willing to shift your whole organization, which I guess the Ravens did build around a quarterback that fell to them, but you're not willing normally to shift your whole organizational philosophy over a guy that you just kind of caught. You didn't go grab. It's interesting. And the difference between Malik and Josh is Josh is a better athlete than Malik. And a more unique player than Malik is to build around. So,
well, the chimes mean the pick is in, and we will see how that pick goes. Been a long time since the Steelers were looking at a first-round quarterback as a possibility. Yeah. And interesting that the way the board has fallen, if they wanted a quarterback in this year's draft, they got all of them available. Like, that's a weird spot to be in that I think most teams probably wouldn't have predicted they would have right now coming into this point. And you're also at a value-added section. Yeah. Like, this isn't taking somebody with the 5th overall pick. There's just a different level of expectation. So we'll see how this goes, obviously, as the Steelers are about to make their pick. And I'm sure the Steelers fans will react with calm, measured, the normal approach.
But next to a Steelers fan.
I think we got to keep this in mind, though, with the Steelers. I don't think you would be building around your quarterback because they do have so many pieces in place. They have the receivers, they have the running back, offensive line, they still got to get better at. So I don't think you're necessarily building around the quarterback. And then you got a guy on the opposite side of the ball, and T.J. Watt, who was your stud player defensively. So you're not really building around him. You're just hoping he don't mess it up.
Well, and there is a similarity between Buffalo and Pittsburgh in the sense that, like, Buffalo didn't give a damn what anybody thought, and neither does Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett is the pick, quarterback out of Pittsburgh. He is going to be the new starting quarterback, presumably, of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And obviously, this is a huge, huge moment for him. Like, what thoughts, guys?
They share a facility, so they get a look at, like, when you walk into the Pittsburgh Steelers facility, when you pull up, there's a big Steelers helmet and there's a big Panthers helmet. They, like, literally share a building. So, like, they know what they're getting. And I guess they see more than what we saw.
Yeah, I hope they're patient with him, though, because Pickett didn't catch fire immediately. It took him time. It took adjustments of personnel, putting him in the right position. You know, he had one really great year. We've seen that work, though, right? Joe Burrow had one really great year, and it's worked out pretty well so far.
But for Joe Burrow, it wasn't, all the years consecutively to get to that point. It was just that he wasn't playing.
Yeah. Also, by the way, he doesn't have to move his stuff. Like, shout out again.
Yeah, that is a beautiful part of this.
Oh, man.
And you guys see all of the highlights there from Kenny Pickett, all of the great things that Kenny Pickett accomplished. But we're in Las Vegas, and one of the interesting things about Vegas is there are a lot of things in Vegas that kind of look real or maybe not. It's time for some real or replica. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at some quarterbacks that are compared and figure out if he's real or a replica. Pickett, 6'3", 217, 8.5-inch hands. Could have come out after his junior season. Was the winner of the Johnny Unitas Award, right? So had a great career. The comp, according to many experts, would be Tony Romo, 6'2", 230, 8.75-inch hands. That's one of the comps that people seem to like. Another comp, by the way, we're looking at all of those beautiful highlights from him. Another comp coming out of this would be a guy I happen to think highly of, Derek Carr. It's the other comp that people seem to want to compare Kenny Pickett to. So the question that I'm going to ask you guys as we look at this is real or replica? Is he going to be close in any capacity to a Tony Romo or Derek Carr? Is he real? Or is he going to be a replica that we're all
I hate when we do this.
I'm just being honest. Okay, let's simplify it for him.
Because we're talking
Harry
about
skipped the production meeting.
We're talking about is a guy. We're talking about is a guy who's going to be in his rookie year. Is he going to be with Tony Romo?
Is he for real?
And I'm not saying Tony Romo was the greatest.
Really good.
What I'm saying, I'm not saying he was the greatest quarterback, but to do this to this young man.
Yeah, but it's what we do. You sit on First Take all the time. Give me a take, Harry. Is he a real? Is he for real or is he a replica?
I think it's real because I think going to Pittsburgh, he's set up for success. When it comes to that wide receiver core, the skill position players, right? You look at Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pratt Fairmount, who played in Penn State. He stayed in Pennsylvania as well. Now, if they can just get the offensive line right, I love Kenny Pickett's pocket movement. I don't like the way he holds the ball in the pocket too long at times.
Yeah.
And sometimes he can use his athleticism. It can hurt him because he thinks he's more athletic than he is. Now, he's athletic, but sometimes he could think he's more athletic than he really is.
My favorite thing is the fact that both of you guys turn athletic into a multiple syllable. Like athletic, I don't know how you do that.
I mean, that's when you're when you're athletic, that's one thing, but when you're athletic, that's different. You wouldn't understand that. Clearly, it's something that you haven't experienced.
I'm athletic, real or replica?
Fiddle player.
I mean, I'm with Harry. Hate it.
Didn't ask your opinion on this.
I just wanted to be.
Let me be clear. I don't give a damn what you think about the question.
I just wanted to be with Harry. I'd have to say replica. I have to disagree with Harry. Actually, to me. So there's a big problem if you're going to hold on to the ball and you don't have an offensive line. That's going to be an issue. On top of it, he consistently made bad decisions as far as reading defenses, which is something that a guy who stayed in school as long as he did, you would think had that coached out of him. I don't know if it wasn't coached out of him. If the coaching there was bad, okay. But if it wasn't coached out of him to this point, I'm not sure that it is something that can be coached out of him. Maybe, I know they have Mitchell Trubisky. I assume that Kenny Pickett may sit to start. Maybe that'll give him the time to focus on the game and get better. But if I had to bet that he's going to have a Tony Romo-esque career, my money would be on nah.
Spencer, hold your thoughts. We're going to get your real or replica thought in a second, but we got to break away for 1 minute because we got to talk to Diana Rossini. I'm not sure there are a lot of people nationally that cover the Titans better than Diana Rossini. So excited to talk. Diana, obviously huge trade goes down. A.J. Brown and now a member of the Eagles. How did we get there?
Well, I would say it was a long road, but it actually wasn't. It was just a few weeks ago. We heard GM John Robinson and head coach Mike Vrabel essentially sharing their love for A.J. publicly, something I never really hear the Tennessee Titans do about any player. Mike Vrabel went on the Rich Eisen show and actually said, I will not trade A.J. Brown as long as I'm the head coach. And then today, they trade with the Philadelphia Eagles for their 18th pick and a third rounder. And A.J. Brown is no longer a Tennessee Titan. He is now a Philadelphia Eagle. And the way it all came together goes back a few weeks ago. We saw a lot of the receivers from that 2019 class, talking to you, Deebo Samuel, out there, who want massive contract extensions. And guys, we can talk about whether or not they deserve them or not. And AJ is one of those players who wanted to get paid. With 1 year left on his deal, the Titans wanted to make this work. And it seemed like it was going fine. And every time I checked in with both parties, I kept getting great answers like, this is going to get done. And then it soured recently. The Tennessee Titans made an offer, something around $20 million per year. That is not even close to what A.J. Brown wanted, and nor his camp. So the Titans realized that they weren't going to be able to come to a number that made sense for them, for their future. And the decision was made just a few days ago that they were going to trade him away. And that deal got done on draft night, pretty close to when the Eagles were getting ready to pick at 18. It was complete, and A.J. Brown is now an Eagle and with a nice fat new contract.
Yeah, Diana, great work as always by you. We appreciate you, my friend. Keep it up. I'm sure we'll talk again over the course of the next few days. All right, we have a big pick that is in. Yeah. Trent McDuffie has been picked by the Chiefs. A pick I saw you get all elated. Damn corners.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. We're trying to catch back up with these receivers, but I was surprised a bit because I liked Trent McDuffie to the Patriots. The Patriots traded with the Chiefs for the Chiefs to jump up and get him. So he's a great player. He's really smart zone corner who has the ability and athleticism to play man.
I think this was going to be Treylon Burks. Like if he didn't take Burks, like I just think Andy Reid wouldn't have been able to pass him up. Just like he would just go like, man, you already have so many weapons. He's like, I could have one more. Every corner out of Washington is this dude.
Yep.
Smart, physical, composed, like smooth. Like I don't. They stamp them and they make them the same way every single year. It's amazing to me. So yeah, I love this thing.
Let me tell you what I wrote down, because I had to start thinking about this. Thinking about the NFL, these corners, these safeties coming out of Washington. Desmond Trufant, Marcus Peters, Byron Murphy, Kevin King, Sidney Jones, Taylor Rapp, Buda Baker, Elijah Molden. What in the hell are they doing at Washington to have this many guys in the secondary not only coming to the NFL, but be productive in the NFL?
Well, and the Chiefs defense needs his help, right? So the Chiefs defense needs his help. The AFC West is full of offenses.
They lost Ward.
Right. So, I mean, this feels like a really good pick by Kansas City. Even moving up to get him, and we'll try and figure out what was given up in that equation, but even moving up to get him, it makes a ton of sense.
I mean, they need the help no matter what, but in this division of death, the group of death that is your favorite division, the AFC West, there's a lot of good quarterbacks. There's a lot of good receivers. You're going to need some corners to be able to even stay afloat, to stay in competitions. You're going to need some defensive backs, so this helps.
I got a question for you, Neek. Do you like this pick for the Kansas City Chiefs more so than you would have liked Andrew Booth Jr.?
Yeah, I do. I like Andrew Booth Jr. as a player, but I saw Trent McDuffie do the things that I would hope that Andrew Booth could do at some point.
Okay.
So, like, Andrew Booth is bigger, probably a better all-around athlete, but I think he hadn't put it all together yet. Maybe it's injury, maybe it's other stuff, but what do you think?
Oh, listen, I absolutely have no problem if you want to take Trent McDuffie. None, okay? On two fronts, okay? Because organizationally, I like it for the Chiefs because, look, a sober, responsible decision by the Chiefs to button up on defense, right, lock up, and increase their margins, right? This is the kind of team that, given the way they play, they can lose games like 34-31, right? Take that margin, take that edge, take that off the board, right? Additionally, this is a great I'm not going to get fired pick. I love these. Love it. I will continue to pound the table.
Are you like gonna break out in
GM
hives being in Las Vegas? Because Las Vegas is not the place for someone who is like
I'm the GM who'd get fired. I'm the guy.
You admire someone else's ability.
I know my weaknesses. I know what I'm going to do. And they're like, why did you I would be Ditka trading up for Ricky Williams.
Spencer was walking around with a handful of chips within seconds of me. By the way, the 22nd pick in the NFL draft is in. I don't really give a damn who it is. And I got to be so clear about this. Every year they put a camera right in my face when the Raiders take some money. And every year I have to react to it. This year I don't. Wow. Quay Walker goes, and I think that's a great pick for Green Bay. But most importantly, with the 22nd pick in the NFL draft, my beloved Raiders pick Devontae effing Adams. And I'm good with that. Quay Walker, what do you guys think?
Concrete wall. Like, he is so bad, man. And I don't mean bad as in bad. I mean bad as in good. He is nasty. I am going to throw every cliche about a defensive player at the wall because they will all stick. I know everybody on Georgia's defense is good, but when you looked up, there were two dudes on this defense who, when they hit people, stuff went boom. All right? Quay Walker and Lewis Cine. Okay? Quay Walker is awesome, great range, super aggressive. As you can see, a malicious tackler. All right? You were not going to have fun if you played him. That's true of everyone on the Georgia defense. Take one if you can get him.
Are you not surprised that he went before Dean?
No, because we're all on the arms thing. We're all on the arms thing. We're all like...
Are we not surprised there was no wide receiver? I mean, I know I keep saying there's value of wide receiver, but a year ago we were blowing up every show about how damn disrespectful it is that they never draft a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. Now they didn't now Devontae chooses to walk, and they still didn't draft a damn wide receiver. Like, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm sitting around like saying, what in the actual you-know-what do I have to do to get some help?
They still have another first-round pick, though.
Yeah.
So they can still get a wide receiver there.
And I think the wide receiver thing may have been somewhat overblown. I think what Aaron Rodgers wanted was to be I just mean even from his perspective. I think what he wanted was to be involved. Like, I think his issue with it was not a specific decision was being made. It was that decisions were being made without him being involved. So my guess is that if Aaron Rodgers really wanted a wide receiver right now, he would have gotten him a wide receiver. I imagine that they're going to use these later picks to get what they need.
Yeah. I can't wait to see Quay Walker paired up with Devondre Campbell, though. Devondre Campbell was a lifesaver from them at the linebacker position last year. I hated when he left Atlanta because they had Deion Jones, was the big money maker. But I think it was 2 years while Devondre Campbell was there. He actually led the team in tackles, and it wasn't Deion Jones. So seeing those two guys, I can't wait to see those two guys together in Green Bay.
And we have a trade, by the way. The Bills are on the clock at this point. So the Bills are running the clock, and they have made a trade. I'll let you know what that is when we figure out what that is. So Bills moving up. Who's Buffalo moving up for? I mean,
who?
Has to be a corner. I think
so.
Or Jermaine Johnson. He's still on the board.
I hadn't even thought about Jermaine. You talk about somebody that, I mean, earlier today, it was like, he's going to sneak his way into the top 10, and now we're sitting here at 23. Like, there's value there for Jermaine Johnson.
Put him opposite Vaughn, and that's, I mean.
Go get him, boys.
There's also, you know, like, the Bills are in a strange situation for the Bills. And by that, I mean, like, it's been a long time since the Bills could look around their roster and be like, guys, we're really damn good. So if we're in love with somebody, we'll worry about it. And if we're not, we won't. Like, that's sort of the luxury every team wishes they were picking with. That's where I feel like the Bills are right now.
We just said the Bills are on the clock, and the temperature did not drop 5 degrees in this studio, right? Like, that to me is still wild that we're like the Bills, who are going to make a competent and smart pick here.
I wouldn't be surprised. Corner makes some sense because Booth is still on the board, and there's about to be a drop-off at corner. Like, for me, so much of the draft conversation is about the hill that we all see coming, right? Like, where you're like, son of a biscuit, there's about to be a fall. Like, that's that's all I can say, you know, son of a biscuit.
Well, and they lost Levi Wallace, and then you have Tre'Davious White coming back off of an injury. You know, you want to get another guy in that secondary to pair up with those two safeties that are so doggone good.
What I'm pretty sure is that the Bills are ready to let the dogs out.
Thank you.
We haven't done the test yet, right? We haven't done the he got that dog in him yet.
Oh,
right? We haven't done that yet.
Oh, God.
Because remember, you can have data and analytics, and that won't make you happy. But if you look at a prospect and say he got that dog in him, you can be pretty satisfied with that.
You better believe it.
That's great draft philosophy right there.
It's my job to bring the IQ down.
You know, it is funny, though. We'll show some of these features tomorrow, but I sat down with Max Crosby last week and just talked to him for a few hours while we got tattoos. And one thing I asked Max is like, what does everybody miss? What did everybody miss about you? And his answer was like, the thing you really can't tell is somebody's heart, like somebody's want, somebody's dog, as it were. Like, he was like, that's the thing that doesn't come across in these meetings. Like, you think you know, but you don't know. And that's, you know, there is some truth to that for a lot of these guys. Like,
you can't coach it either, man.
No.
Either you have that dog or you don't. It's nothing you can coach. And a lot of people, well, we're going to try to see if we can bring the dog out of him. If the dog at this point in their life hasn't been let out, it's not coming out.
I love that.
Anytime soon.
Deep in dog analysis. Look what you did. Look what you did.
I love it. It just takes one, and it just infects the whole room.
So did you guys get matching tattoos?
No, we didn't get matching tattoos. He got killer be killed. He got killer be killed.
Kill or be killed.
And that's what you got.
He got kill or be killed. I'll show mine. I'll show their ass.
Oh, sexy.
I've been working out this year.
This is a family show.
You got the NFL draft. You got the NFL draft. Yeah, there we go. Oh, my mic's on my jacket. I got the NFL draft.
This is a family show.
Yeah. My right arm is
I didn't really believe you were a Raiders fan until this moment.
That's why we root for the draft. Now, my right arm is the places I've lived and the moments I'm proudest of. I love my draft coverage I do every year, so I was like, well, I'll get the draft broadcast.
I love it. I'm
also,
down.
what was I going to get? Like giggle or be giggled? Like slap or be slapped? Like you got kill or get killed.
Kill or be killed, yeah. If I'm with somebody who gets who's getting a tattoo that says kill or be killed, our friendship is over. This conversation is over. I'm done with you. I don't want to be that close to you.
Well,
we got babies to take care of.
Hey, I know. My dog has long left. He's in the cage. He is gone. He's taking a long nap. My dog is gone, and people who have a dog that inspires them to get murder tattooed on their knees, I need to be away from them.
That is remarkable. Murder on the knees. Yeah, it's much different experience, too. Like, his was all in black and colorful and everything, you know. Typical of everything.
Yeah, like I'm at that stage in life where you get like an IKEA tattoo, you know?
What is an IKEA tattoo? It's just like
something, you know.
Oh,
like
I thought it meant you had to do it yourself.
No, just the logo.
You know, you're like,
just like, what are you about?
Things are happening.
Oh,
in IKEA.
Oh, there's a pick in.
The pick is in. Roger Goodell is at the podium making his pick. By the way, the promenade outside is giving. It's being changed to colors as the night falls for every team that's on the clock. Pretty cool. Oh, Kaiir Elam is the pick.
Okay.
You're excited about this.
Yeah.
It's still a corner, just not.
I like it because he's a big corner who loves to play press coverage and is very, very physical. And remember that dog we were just talking about?
Correct.
He has it because he's gonna talk that noise to the opponent every chance he gets.
Are you up? Which way are we chomping on this?
It's right over left.
Okay,
right over left. And we'll give it like a good 2 or 3 chomps because I appreciate the young man finally getting money for this. He does have that dog in him. Sometimes that dog bites the wrong person, though, because he will commit a penalty here or there. Okay, big physical corner, but he can play too hard in all directions. And by that, I mean he's going to draw some flags. All right, but the potential there and the aggression is unquestioned.
Yeah, I mean, in college, you can get away with, he drew flags in college. And college is a game where the rules are different. You are allowed to touch a little bit more in college, and he got called. So it could be an issue for him going forward, and he could adjust. Like, you see that happen all the time. He's an incredible athlete, and I mean, that tends to be the case with every cornerback. I mean, you want to find the best athlete on the team, find the best athlete in a country, find the best athlete in a room, find a cornerback, and you're good to go.
See, no, and also, by the way, elite cornerback skills in this respect, the guy who will point and celebrate no matter how distant the play was. If he had nothing to do with it, he's like, yeah.
I am an elite cornerback.
That makes me so sick.
Why?
A corner could get beat by 5 yards on a go route, and the ball is overthrown. He's doing like this.
Yep. Ball's overthrown or pointing at the safety.
Strapped him up.
You want to know what I walk back to the huddle and tell him?
Lock him down.
Sit your ass down.
Like, you didn't talk your talk, though. Like you weren't just like, I mean, Harry Douglas makes it sound
Okay. Let's get serious for a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody should be like cornerbacks. Like, we should find every opportunity in this cruel life that we live to celebrate every moment. I don't care why we happy.
Says the guy that started the show by dumping all over Derek Carr's haircut.
Yeah.
And that was a moment for me to enjoy it. And I enjoyed it.
Hey, also, cornerbacks are natural haters because their whole job is to make nothing happen. That's it. Their whole job is to make nothing happen and to eliminate you from the field, right? They either get a turnover or they make sure nothing happened that play. So, like, you started and by default went into hater.
I was born into it.
Don't let you get one of those little piss hands that's about 5'7".
They love to
playing
fight.
the slide. Oh my goodness, it's gonna be a war all game long. All game long.
When you were playing at one point, did you ever just look at a guy and be like, "Please shut up"? I'm just so tired of it. Like,
they were
not
probably,
like angry,
they're probably
but
saying
just
that about
like,
me though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I play with Fox. Fox know how.
We played together.
He know how.
You was a rookie though. You were nicer. Then you got meaner as you got older.
Wow, this is real. You're watching ESPN's 2022 NFL Draft live stream. Harry Douglas, Dominique Foxworth, Spencer Hall. I'm Jason Fitzfield Yates also with us. He's getting a little breather right now. We are live in Las Vegas at the fabulous Bet Studios. Be sure to check out all of our great programming that happens from here. And I'm not sure, is this the real Caesars Palace? I'm not getting a sig on my page.
More hangovers.
I'm not getting a sig.
Literally, we can have our own hangover movie, honestly.
Let's do it.
Wait,
where's your baby?
You're the one that's up on the roof.
Where's your baby?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt I'm the guy in the room.
You're the one that get left on the roof.
This is already done.
I'm Black Doug.
Yeah.
I'm Black Doug. I'm Black Doug.
Yeah.
Your beard
I'm
made
Black
the choice
Doug?
for you. I'm sorry.
Wait, I don't know. Like,
you don't remember Black Doug?
Of course, but I'm
Okay.
not. I don't think you want to be Black Doug. Like, do you not want to be Bradley Cooper? Like, I would think that Bradley Cooper's the guy you'd want to be.
Why can't I be Black Doug?
Yeah.
Man
You trying to force me? You don't want to be Bradley Cooper? No.
Black.
Bradley Cooper wears a lot of black. Does that not count?
No.
I mean,
you're Doug. You're on the roof.
I'll be your Doug.
Oh, we got the Cowboys.
Yeah, Cowboys are on the clock.
This is the ESPN's favorite team. How can we be talking about anything?
Let's stop the chaos before we get to anything with the Cowboys.
Bristol Cowboys.
I got work to take care of. Before we do anything with the Cowboys, let's talk to Sal Palantonio, the great Sal Pal. Nobody knows the Eagles better. Sal Pal, obviously we're having a little fun here. The Eagles had some fun today acquiring A.J. Brown. How did all of that go down?
Wait, hold on a second. I thought you guys were going to bring me in on that Cowboys discussion from the Eagles Burger Care facility.
Come on through.
On this show, you can do whatever you want, my friend.
I was like, what's going on here? Come on now. Listen, I like the A.J. Brown trade. They need a veteran presence at wide receiver. They need somebody who can line up all over the line of scrimmage. He's only 24 years old, remember. He's got a rare combination of size and speed. He's over 220 pounds. Can run a 4.49 40, has great yards after the catch in his history. 3 years ago, led the NFL in yards after the catch. There has been a drop-off where that's concerned. He's battled some minor injuries, and of course he plays in a run-first offense. So he goes really from one run-first offense to an offense that's trying to transition to a more balanced offense. Jalen Hurts working in California over the winter to try to get better as a passer, especially in the long game. And I think A.J. Brown is a great pickup for them. They need a veteran presence at wide receiver. They haven't had that in a while. He's a big, physical, tough player who's well respected around the National Football League. I think this is a great pickup for Philadelphia.
Sal Powell, Field and Mina were giddy earlier with the Jordan Davis pick as well. Who is he going to be for the Eagles?
Jordan Davis is a man among boys. I mean, Jordan Davis will not be Jordan Davis, listen, you read, I'm looking at the Our Lads Guide, which is the Bible that I've used. This is my 30th NFL draft, and I've been getting this guide from Our Lads for 30 years. Not only was he Outland Trophy and Chuck Bednarik Award winner, but, he, all season long, they tried to single block him. You won't be able to single block him. He's too fast, too big, too strong, too ferocious, too relentless. You can line him up in a 3 technique if you want to just do a single gap and go get the quarterback. You can line him up in a double gap technique where he occupies the blockers and you go get the running back with a linebacker. But this guy is going to penetrate the line of scrimmage. He's going to be a force disruptor. He's the #1 defensive tackle in this draft. He was my pick. This is the guy that I wanted the Eagles to pick. When we were doing the NFL matchup show with Matt Bowen and Greg Cosell, I said this is the guy that can replace Fletcher Cox and then some. I think he could go beyond Fletcher Cox's career. He could be an all-pro perennially. That's how good he is. And the thing about him is, he is young and hungry, and he'll learn some veteran moves from Fletcher Cox. It'll be with Javon Hargrave. Don't forget, Cox, they brought him back on a 1-year deal. Hargrave's contract expires after this season. This is a perfect pick for them.
Sal Powell, you mentioned NFL matchup. No show's better, my friend. We appreciate you hanging out. Thanks for all the insight, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right, the Cowboys have made a pick. It is in. They've gone offensive line. Tyler Smith, offensive lineman out of Tulsa. Thoughts at the table? Anybody in love with this one?
When the Cowboys are good, the Cowboys have a good offensive line. As far back as I can ever remember a good Cowboys team, they had a good offensive line. It's starting to deteriorate. I think this was a good draft for them to address it. He is, you would know better than me, Spencer, but I would say that he is a step below some of those other guys that went earlier, but this is where they were picking, so they had to address it.
Yeah, this is a need pick, right? And I think they got the best guy that they could get at this position. He is the kind of dude who, because of who he was playing, I don't think we've seen a fair test of him yet.
Yeah.
I really don't, okay? I mean, against Houston, he played really well against Houston, which I think was, one of the best 1 or 2 teams they played this year. But he's got all the standard stuff like we talk about this. You're like, big dude, got all the measurables, will have to go ahead and take that next step in terms of technique, et cetera.
Yeah, Lyle Collins went to the Cincinnati Bengals to help Joe Burrow. This is definitely a need to pair up with Tyron Smith, who's also he's not getting younger either. He's getting a little older. So I'm interested to see what the Cowboys are going to do the rest of the draft with their offensive line and probably next year as well, because those guys are going to have to start getting younger.
2 important notes. He is young. He is one of the youngest players in this draft. And he's only been an offensive lineman in any capacity for 5 years of his life. So when you talk about raw and when you talk about coachability, that's what the Cowboys got to believe. Like, this is where the Cowboys got to trust their process in meetings to know that they've got somebody they think they can mold. And this is going to come down to, as we've talked, Dominique, a couple of times over the course of the night. Sometimes it's not just about the player. It's also about everything else that goes around them. So they get another second round, by the way. That's the second first-round pick in the last 2 years for Tulsa. So good work by them. But this is all going to be about, can the coaching staff of the Cowboys maximize a young man's skill set?
Yeah, last year they had that defensive lineman who played linebacker, right, from Tulsa that went.
Huge kid.
Collins.
Yeah, Collins. Yeah.
Went to
anyway,
Arizona.
Yeah, I like Tyler in this spot. We talk about how the situation matters. The Cowboys are probably the NFL, one of the premier franchises in the NFL, whether they win or lose. This is not a place where you can go. You're talking about he's only been there for 5 years. this is not a place where you can go learn quietly. So we talk about fits for people, and we don't think about this as a fit also. If he's someone who is going to take some time to develop, which we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
This may not be the place for him because the attention's going to be there from the start. And maybe he's going to step in and be fine right away.
Yeah, but this is the staggering stat on him that I think could and should concern Cowboys fans. Last year, 16 penalties, including 12 holding penalties.
Sounds familiar for the Cowboys.
That's
very
that's
familiar.
Is that why they took him?
All right, you guys are tweeting the show. We're a live stream show, so of course you should tweet the show. And you should, in general, we've got some great tweets that we want to make sure you guys see. So let's pull some of those tweets up, get you caught up on some of what the famous people around the interwebs are saying as we get Kyler Murray saying, let's run it back, Hollywood to the desert. Y'all welcome my boy. It's an important part of this.
Oklahoma connection, yeah.
Yep.
You got to sing it when you say it on the show. Oh, Oklahoma with the wind comes.
I do not.
Okay.
Refuse.
Yes.
Well,
no, thank you.
We have one musician on set.
Yeah.
One.
Okay, I've got so many things to say, but they'll all get me fired from Disney. Yeah, all right, and so, Kyler Murray getting in on the fun, and we're working, I think we're working field back in too. So Kyler Murray's getting back on the fun. The wide receivers all over the place. Got another one coming up here that I can't read because it's too far away, so I'll walk over here. Oh, Hollywood Brown, wish I could have played with my brother forever, but I'm going to see at the top to Lamar Jackson. The business of the NFL, right? That's just real for everybody, and I think everybody playing the game understands it, especially at this point. It's about trying to find the right fit, trying to find the right opportunity, and this year, the fit seems to be around wide receivers, a lot of them drafted in the first round. We have made a tag, and we're bringing Field Yates back onto the show. Harry Douglas, Spencer Hall, I'm Jason Fitz. Going to give Dominique a little breather as he gets caught up on everything that's going on.
It's 7:49. Is it bedtime for Dom?
Oh, Dominique's done for the night. Look at that. That's fancy. We are live in Vegas looking out
Good to be back.
over Caesar's Palace. We missed you, Field.
You didn't.
We did.
We did. You added more wit.
We did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're kind.
So
listen, you're the closer.
Oh, I'll take that.
Yeah, you're coming in to make sure that we're factually accurate at the end of this thing, too. So, obviously, a lot of movement while you were gone.
Yeah.
Is there a pick that you were in the other room and you saw and you said, holy shnikes? Was there one that made you stand up and scream? Are you surprised anybody's on the board? What are the Field's follies?
Okay, so I think a lot of people are still surprised that Jermaine Johnson Jr. is still there. Jermaine Johnson II, is still there. I don't think the NFL was that high on Jermaine Johnson II compared to maybe draft Twitter, so to speak. It's a good player. It didn't wow them. And if you go back and watch Jermaine Johnson II, one thing that stands out is that a lot of his sacks were pursuit sacks at the end of either a busted play or someone else breaks the pocket down and then he cleans it up. He's a really good player.
What we call vulture sacks.
Vulture
right?
sacks, yes.
Yeah.
Now, there are two sides to that. On the other hand, it means he plays with relentless pursuit and does not give up, right? Contrast that against guys who are just lightning off the ball. And that's why I think maybe we're seeing this, not even a drop, but we're seeing Jermaine Johnson II sit here still available, on we're pick 25 now for the Baltimore Ravens. A couple things stand out to me, good business from the Baltimore Ravens tonight. They had Kyle Hamilton first, and then now I know they traded away Marquise Brown. He's a solid player, guys. He's solid, right? Not spectacular, though. Get a first-round pick that you've already traded back, so you picked up extra picks. The Ravens just seem to do good business every single year. I don't know how it is, but just every year, it's oh, the Ravens did that. I like it.
This is, by the way, I love this because it contrasts so differently with my understanding of the Ravens whenever I watch them. They just collect like monsters.
Yeah.
That's it. Which is great business in the NFL, but they also always take the most football dude available.
Totally, right?
Yeah. They always take the dude who you're yeah, that guy's terrifying.
Sure.
Let's go get him.
But to your point, Field, they've traded down a few times. They've been able to pick up, and now they pick up Tyler Linderbaum. So Linderbaum.
Yeah. Oh my God! Are you kidding me?
Tyler Linderbaum comes.
Of course.
This is another Iowa, the other Iowa. Earlier Northern Iowa jokes aside.
Iowa heavy.
Yeah. This is Tyler is somebody that people were really in love with in this draft.
Smart, really super intelligent dude, super strong. This is the brand. The Iowa brand at its peak, at its apex, is a dude who can make all the blocks, recognize all of the protections, A great communicator, great movement to the ball. And again, like everyone else that comes out of Iowa, they just always come out freaky strong.
We'll keep breaking this pick down, but I will tell everybody the Jets have traded back in.
Yep, pick number 26 for the Jets.
So the Jets are on the clock, which means the Titans have traded down. We'll get the parameters of that trade as soon as we can. So, Tyler Linderbaum, thoughts?
Everything that Spencer just said is what you want in your offensive lineman, especially a center. A guy to be a leader, the guy to make the calls, be a guy that you can count on. But when I think about Iowa, I only think about two things. Wrestling, because they're damn good at wrestling, and offensive lineman. You look at the offensive lineman that these guys have put out over the years, throughout the last, I'll say 20 years, and then you look at them from a wrestling program, strength is the center of both of the things I just mentioned, and that's what you're going to get with Tyler Linderbaum. Not only a guy that's strong, but a guy that's very intelligent and smart.
The fact that you mentioned Iowa and didn't mention corn in there speaks to your diet, maybe, Harry. We got to start eating more corn.
Oh, I love corn, too. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Also, by the way, another great thing about this, too, is that Linderbaum is very, very aggressive without going over that line. This is a dude who has a great understanding of whistle to whistle, exactly how hard you can get to that edge without going over it. That is to me, when you are a center and you are engaged in this kind of business all the time, but on the football field, and you are still controlled about it, that's what I think he's going to be great at as a pro, right? He has such control over his game.
By the way, at this point, the Titans have had a very eventful day. If anybody's just tuning in, they've traded A.J. Brown, and they turned around and drafted Burks out of Arkansas to be his replacement, essentially. Then they've now traded another pick to get out, and the Jets are up. We're still waiting on the details of what was traded.
I'll get you. The Jets have traded picks 26 and 101 in exchange for picks 35, 69, and 163. So Titans pick up an extra pick. Obviously, the original pick that they owned, 26th overall in the first round, now belongs to the New York Jets. Joe Douglas last year made a move up in the first round to get Elijah Vera Tucker. We'll see whether or not the Jets have a player in mind. I mean, that was dumb. It's been a long day. We'll see which player the Jets have in mind with this trade-up.
But in a world where Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson are the two picks so far for the Jets, the Jets have added incredible playmaking ability, at least on paper, with two picks. Now they come up aggressively. By the way, they still have a ton of equity in next year's draft, too. So, I'm looking at the Jets saying they must be in love with somebody. The question is, who are the Jets moving up to get this late in the round? I don't know. Obviously, they're not in the quarterback market. So, when you think move up, a lot of times you think quarterback. But obviously, the Jets are being aggressive about trying to rebuild as quickly as possible.
I want to ask Field a question that may be related to this. Who's going to get Nakobe Dean?
It sounds like he's not going to go in the first round, which is crazy.
Yeah, are we falling out at this point?
Yeah, at this point, I don't know the answer because teams pick at the top of the second round. Not all of them, but a good number of them are teams that are sort of like building things up. And it seems like the off-ball linebacker spot's been a little bit devalued in this year's draft. No Devin Lloyd yet. No Nakobe Dean yet.
Yeah, that's wild.
Only Quay Walker. And Quay Walker, a really good player.
Right.
He was Quay Walker, Channing Tindall. This is crazy.
Quay Walker's the paper pick, though. If you look at all the measurables stuff.
Measurables, he's the one that just is absurd. Channing Tindall didn't start a game in his career and led them in tackles last year. Meanwhile, Nakobe Dean is the heartbeat of that roster, right? I mean, he was the guy that made things move. And instincts off the charts. Not a huge guy. And kind of I wouldn't mistake me for an NFL player, but Nakobe Dean's not the kind of guy that you see and you're like, dang, that's an NFL linebacker right there. He's just you see other guys and they're body beautiful. He is just more average, and I think that I wonder if the instincts haven't caught up, haven't in the eyes of evaluators, if the instincts are offset a little bit by the less than ideal physical profile that he brings to the table.
I think it's a little funny. I made it about 10 picks into the draft, and I said at the time, no trades. Everything's just going very chalk. This marks the 8th draft day trade this year now. That's tied for most in a first round since it expanded to 3 days in 2010. So right now we've seen tied for the most trades, which speaks to something when I said at the time we haven't seen a lot of movement. Field reminded me, well, let's see what happens in the middle of this. This is back to that ice cream analogy. People are in love with particular flavors. they're going for it.
Do you think everything going slowly at first really built to that activity later, that everybody was sort of waiting to see what was going to happen and then began trading up like crazy?
I think it's reflective of I think what the trades that are happening right now is reflective of the fact that, like, this was like a 10-player draft.
Yeah.
You know, like, and not that there aren't going to be guys that are not taking the top 10 that go really well. Oh, here we go. But another trade coming up.
And Jermaine Johnson has just been selected. Jermaine Johnson II now goes to the Jets. So the Jets have taken Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, and Jermaine Johnson II out of this draft. So that's a pretty, when you think about 3 first-round picks, if you're a Jets fan, you got to feel pretty good about the way this thing has gone today.
What is the pattern on this jacket we're working with here, by the way?
Yeah, it's a
coming
little,
down. Like I can't quite tell. Is it like a cow print, like cowhide, but with yellow? I'm intrigued.
I'll tell you this. I like Jermaine Johnson in this spot because I had to remember from a game I was studying last year when the Jets played the Falcons. And I remember John Franklin Myers got that extension.
Yeah.
The Quinnen Williams, the Williams brothers. I like what they present to the game, especially Quinnen, Sheldon Rankins, Carl Lawson. You got C.J. Mosley at the linebacker position. Sauce Gardner you just had. Bryce Hall, he's going to come along. He's the guy they drafted not too long ago out of Virginia. I like the team that they're building. They just have to put it all together and make it work on the football field. Now, is that going to be this year? I don't think it's going to be this year, but is it going to be them in 2 or 3 years? There's a possibility.
By the way, we now have a record for most trades in the first round of the draft, as the Jags have traded up.
That's it.
They've given up 3 picks.
What's the
it
number?
looks like.
Yeah, they gave up 33, 106, and 180.
So that's a decision to move down just a little bit.
Yeah, they now have the first pick of the of the second round tomorrow.
Which the first pick of the second round is always sneaky to me. There's a lot of value to that in my mind with people going crazy over, who wasn't picked in the first round. So it feels like that's a nice driver's seat to be in. The question now is...
So give me the specific stat in terms of the number of trades. There have been how many trades in the first round?
There have now been 9 trades this year, 9 draft day trades this year, which is the most in the first round since the draft expanded to 3 days.
How about that?
So that tells you you were
only
right.
10 years, because the draft started, I think, on 2010.
But it says everything about that draft this year, man.
Yeah.
It says a lot about the draft and what teams view of these prospects and these players in this draft.
It's
still only one quarterback.
That's a wild part of it. Like, we've seen one quarterback off the board, and that's it. I mean, and now you're looking at what people find equity in, and it speaks to the lack of belief in this year's quarterback, that people are moving back up, but they're not moving up. Usually you see them move up this late in the draft, you're thinking somebody wants Lamar Jackson, right? Like, that's not this case. Like, the Jags aren't moving up for a quarterback. We all know that. So, who are the Jags moving up for? That's what we got to figure out. But
Jermaine's an interesting case here because we're seeing an ever more fluid college labor market. In simple terms, people can move around now. That wasn't the case. So scouting gets a little more difficult because you see guys whose playing time is all over the place. Their experiences are more varied than they've ever been. Yep. They might play in a system that really worked for them, then went someplace that it just didn't and they fell off. Or you see players who just generally feel more empowered, right? Like, I go back to Derek Stingley. Like, that to me is a guy who said, I'm going to make the draft. Right? Like, I've done it.
And I'm going to be a top pick.
Correct.
Regardless.
Because everyone said that, right? Like, Fox was 100% right about that. Everyone from the start was like, that's that dude. I think, and I take some pity. Like, I enjoy sometimes making fun of NFL scouts because there's great cliches, great terms, right? And everybody's got to nitpick and find something wrong with a guy. However, it's gotten harder than ever before. I think this draft is a reflection of that because you see a lot of indecision, and I think you're going to see a lot of work in the second and the third rounds that's really going to pay off down the road because people are being hesitant.
Yeah, they sure are, and I'm preparing us mentally right now because we're at pick 27. The pick is in. That's the Jaguars. So we're going to see what they take in a second here. That leads us into the Packers at 28, and I was obviously not part of the set when they took Quay Walker earlier. But are we prepared mentally for the Packers not taking a wide receiver again?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
I am because of this simple fact that they have 2 picks in the second round, right? They have 2 picks in the second round, and then you still have those free agent wide receivers out there. So I don't know if they're using that as a tool in their bag to say, you know what, we still have these free agent wide receivers. Let's see how this draft falls out. We still have 2 picks. We have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. If we don't take a wide receiver, now I actually thought they needed to use one of these picks on a wide receiver, but if they don't, you can't cry the river because you do have a deep wide receiver class and guys that you can get in the second round on top of the free agents that you still have out there as well.
Yeah, I just wonder what the run on that's going to look like because we saw it earlier. Like, once everybody starts to think that the wide receivers are going off the board, that's where we saw all the movement getting up because everybody wants their guy. You're right, Harry.
I'm not prepared for this mentally.
Oh, I am. This is a great tradition. Green Bay's management inadvertently or accidentally trolling Aaron Rodgers by not giving him a guy in the draft.
But let's also be honest, like Green Bay could blow this draft completely, and because they have Aaron Rodgers, they'll still be the best team in their division. Like, I'm not taking anything, like, we've liked what the Lions have done, right? Like, that's good. The Bears don't have a first-round pick, and the Vikings are the Vikings. Yeah. Like, there's at some point you look around and you're like, I don't know. I mean, even if the Packers, after this whole thing up, they're still going to be the favorite in their division.
So let me tell you, like, if I just put it this way, okay? Yep. I have confidence that if you have Aaron Rodgers, and I'm sure the GM does too, all right, and the management of the Packers, if I wait and I pick up some guys who are slightly off-cut but obviously talented, right, like a Sky Moore or a Wan'Dale Robinson.
I'm high on Sky Moore.
I am as well.
You and everybody else.
Yeah. But if I have those guys waiting and I have Aaron Rodgers throwing to them, I can go ahead and make those picks, and I'll do it pretty confidently.
I just don't know that, like, Sky Moore is a great example. And if any of you haven't listened to the First Draft podcast that Field and Mel and Todd do, it's great work.
Often you fit.
I got a chance to be a little part of it. The number of times Sky Moore is the ultimate example of an indie rock band that everybody thinks is still indie and is no longer indie. Like, he's on a major label. Everybody knows who he is now. People are going to fly up for Sky Moore, I think. So, but Alec Pierce is another one. George Pickens is somebody that we go into the season last year, and there were high expectations for him at Georgia. John Mechie III, like, he's just sitting there. Like, I'm looking at all that talent thinking, holy, you know what? Like, there's opportunity to still pick up.
Christian Watson has been popularly linked to the Packers.
Also, like, take you a big, unheralded MAC wide receiver. That doesn't go badly a lot of the time. It doesn't, Take you a big macro, get some dude who played on Tuesdays.
Oh, man.
They tend to work out pretty well.
Action. I mean, you probably miss it more than I do because college football is your baby, but I miss it a lot.
Oh, yeah, listen, I love it. It's surprise football. It's the thing you left in the fridge from the night before where you go, ooh I have leftovers.
You left it in the fridge. I usually leave it on the stovetop. Like, I'm a big believer that mac and cheese that's been out all night the next day is still really good. Like,
the CDC disagrees with you.
Well, let me say this, though. Like, you also know how you grew up depending on what you put in your mac and cheese. Like, straight up water. There is no butter. There is no milk. Like, it's just water, the Kraft cheese packet, and some noodles. Like, that is the way mac and cheese is meant to be made. So what's going bad in that?
Whoa.
None of it was real.
You said that's the way it's meant to be made?
Well, when you grew up broke, yeah. Like, I mean, that's how my family grew up. Like,
here we go with this culture thing again.
Yeah.
We've been through this once. During the college football season. We've been through this once.
Yeah. So, look, I go to, like, fancy restaurants.
Because noodles cost what? Not $1.99 a box. And then you have the cheese, you have the carnation milk, you have your eggs that you throw in there for your sauce and all that. Come on, folks.
Look, I grew up with, like, one box of mac and cheese for the family for the day for a long time. So there was none of this, like, cream.
By the way, you don't need cheese to be excellent. Kyle Hamilton on the record is saying he hates cheese. So he and I, in solidarity as champions who do not consume cheese. If you are hearing this and are horrified, I'll do this all day.
I will eat I'll eat like a thing of like really sharp cheddar straight off the thing.
That's wild.
Oh, Devin Lloyd is now.
There we go.
So
Devin
happy
Lloyd
for
goes
this
to
kid,
the Jags.
man. So happy for this. Man. I had a list of players that I was like, just gotta trust the tape type of guys. And this is a trust the tape kind of guy. Now I understand that the downside for Devin Lloyd is probably that, like athletically did not run well at the combine. Vocal leader, but sometimes the play wasn't quite as fierce. But I just think the guy's awesome. I'm really impressed by him. I love 4-down ability, literally can play on special teams, really good in the passing game. Had 8 sacks last year, that was most amongst all inside linebackers. He had 4 interceptions, tied for the most amongst all inside linebackers. Like, kind of does it all. And this Jaguar defense gets a big boost.
Yeah, he and Jacoby have the same thing in common, which is that you go, they're just around the ball.
All the time, right?
Wherever the ball is, they just tend to show up. This was like an old Derek Barnett thing where I was going, his measurables, like, you just look at him and you go, they're not quite what you want, and yet there he is every time, right?
And I have to be the guy that, I'm on the other spectrum of it. And because of those measurables, he struggled getting off blocks. And those offensive linemen, they swallow him up a lot. And that's going to be big at the next level, especially in a division where the Tennessee Titans are going to be running the football with Derrick Henry.
I mean, we'll find out.
Unless they get an offer. No, I think that's a good point. But you mentioned that he didn't run well. But, when you watch him, he just looks so damn explosive all of the time. He's a guy that looks like, I always use the video game analogy, it looks like he had a turbo button and it never ran out. His closing speed when you watch him play is just, I thought that always popped on tape. So I was a little surprised when people started questioning all of the measurables, and I'm thinking, man, I don't know. He looked explosive to me. And to your point, you're right. I think that's where we have to look at linebacker and understand that you got to trust that a team knows how they're using somebody. Because certainly you've got to have people that are helping you up front if you want that linebacker to run.
You want to talk about a riding with bad intentions? He just hauled Roger Goodell 4 feet in the air.
I mean,
yeah,
that's bad intentions right there.
And I forgot to mention Indy. They're another team that's going to run the football and has an offensive line that can get to that second level. So he's going to have to be able to get off those guys.
Yeah, that's two really solid physical teams
that
in that
run the ball. 100%, they're going to go into the game wanting to rush the football because of Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry.
And by the way, I mean, I don't want to sleep on the fact that Doug Peterson is now the head coach for the Jags, and it's worth saying that last year this time we were really excited about Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne coming in. Etienne obviously derailed to injury. I'll just say it, Trevor Lawrence derailed to horrible coaching and a bad organization. So the question is, now do you look at it almost like, hey, we're getting these bonus picks back of actually seeing if Trevor Lawrence can be who they thought he could be?
It's Packers pick is in, guys.
Oh, boy.
Packers pick is in.
Nervous.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, I mean, because they don't take a wide receiver, people are going to die. I mean, they're going to melt.
All right, so let's do this. Let's take a vote.
No, my answer is we're not going to take a first-round wide receiver. That's my vote. I'm not sure what we're voting on.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Is that what you're going to ask? Okay.
Yeah.
How pissed off would you be if you're a Packers fan and you're like the whole point of the draft is to walk away from the draft, no matter what you do with your picks, to walk away from the draft and say, my team just got better. Tell me how, if the Packers take a net loss in this at wide receiver, that's Devontae Adams all the way to insert third-round pick here, how you can look at it as a fan and say you got better. It's the same type of debate I make with the Titans and A.J. Brown. It may turn out that Burks is great. But if you're a Titans fan, you don't feel like your team got better tonight. They saved some money. I don't give a damn about my favorite team's money. Just being real.
Yeah, those Titans fans are wrong.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're wrong. Yeah, I think they're going to be fine, especially because, one, I'm obviously super high on Treylon Burks, right? And two, this is going to focus them. What is their offense going to be? We're going to go back to bread and butter. We're going to go back to Derrick Henry. If you tell me, by the way, on any single play, what should we do? Running Derrick Henry is a great option. 98% of the time. If it's 3rd and 9, that might be the move.
And I'm going to go back to the point I made earlier. In that type of offense, you don't need 2 and 3 guys to get it done. We forgot to mention this.
But you never make your quarterback's job tougher.
Austin Hooper. They got Austin Hooper, a valuable tight end weapon now. You lost Jonnu Smith the year before in free agency. You brought another guy in, Austin Hooper, who is a valuable weapon. Matt Ryan had him in Atlanta.
Are you trying out for the Simpsons? Because you're going full homer at this point. See what I did there? See what I did there? By the way, they just had a graphic up that showed you how hot garbage the wide receiver room is currently for the Packers. So, I mean, that has to play into this equation, right?
Here we go.
Feels
no.
I'm preparing myself mentally. I prepared myself mentally 6 picks ago when I thought they should have taken a wide receiver.
No, this running gag is going to keep going, y'all.
20 is it a running gag or is it a passing
drafts.
Gag?
Going into tonight. 20 straight drafts. 2002.
Let me warm my hands up again. See if anybody catch the subliminal message.
What, are you worried about it being cold in here? Or are you saying you're going to go play for the Packers?
No, let me warm my hands up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're coming
you're
back?
retiring?
You coming back?
No. I'm cold.
Harry Douglas what I just heard is Harry Douglas is coming back to the NFL. He's going to wear number 83 for the Green Bay Packers.
No.
Aaron Rodgers is going to get him 800 yards.
I'm not going to that
yards,
-12 at that -8 degree weather in December.
Yeah, I mean, you're cold in the studio. What are you going to do? I can't tell if Field is excited like an evil villain.
No, I'm cold.
Or if you're still trying to keep his
Dude, it is so comfy in here.
It is.
I'm so happy.
How
big guys need loving too.
The pick is in.
The AC when you get into the hotel room.
Yes.
62?
Yes.
Yeah, all the way down. I'm all the way down. Whatever the lowest number is, that's where I leave it the whole time.
Yeah.
See what the Packers do here.
Hotels lose money on me while I'm staying there. They're like, that guy.
Wow.
All right, Roger Goodell, the pick is in. I cannot wait to see Packers. I think Packers fans' reaction will tell us everything we need to know. By the way, as I see the return, this set looks really stinking cool.
It does.
This Vegas set, they did a nice job in this story. Oh, they're giving out the Man of the Year award, so we're going to have to wait just a minute before we get...
That's all right.
What's happened?
Spencer Hall, Harry Douglas, Field Yates, I'm Jason Fitz. We're with you. If you're just tuning in, shame on you. You can go back and watch all of this on YouTube, I'm sure, somehow. But we're also on the ESPN app, Facebook, Twitter, all over the place, and we'll be back tomorrow for every single pick, too, as we get you everything live that you need to know right from this beautiful stadium in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, my home. By the way, this is a place that I absolutely love, and I cannot believe the draft is here. They've done a spectacular job hosting it. A lot of credit to the fact that, heck, even Julius Caesar across the street was wearing an NFL draft jersey.
I got to ask you a question. And Spencer and Phil, tell me your thoughts on this. They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Is that true?
Herpes, that stays with you.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Again,
hangover.
The CDC now agrees with you. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh. That took a hard left turn.
That was on my quote list that I really questioned all day. Can I do the herpes quote or not do the herpes quote? Now I'm doubled down on it. Oh, it's been really nice working for ESPN.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, you know what else stays in Vegas?
Instigator.
Yeah, you know what else stays in Vegas? Markers that are unpaid at casinos.
Oh.
You might want to look at those
No.
because they might follow you in a way you don't like. Yeah.
Wow.
You're right about that.
Look at that. We haven't had the opportunity to gamble much. We've been working too hard since we got here. But I fear for Spencer because again, we're going to end here at 9 p.m. ish on the East Coast or on the West Coast, I should say. Plenty of time to get it done. All right, the pick is in. The chimes have given us everything we need to know. Scooby-Doo, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
That's from Greece.
The pick is coming in.
It is. The little lick. That's from Grease, the musical. That it's from Grease, the musical.
By the way, which is a great movie.
Devontae Wyatt is the pick.
I knew it!
Wow.
I knew it!
Oh,
the
man.
joke continues.
Wow. Okay.
He's excited.
So let's couch it this way. Spencer, I'm a Packers fan, Spencer. Tell me why right now I am elated with this pick.
Oh, because this is just a big, burly, totally necessary defensive tackle who is more than capable of playing whatever role you need him to play. He might have been overshadowed in that defense, but remember, everybody at Georgia is awesome, and they go too deep, all of them. So do you need him to eat space? He can do that, all right? Do you need him to get into gaps, get a little penetration? He can do that as well. Watch the film. This dude is bad and can beat multiple dudes on a play, as you just saw. I was scared of everybody on this defense, and Devontae Wyatt's right in that line. So, yeah, they should be thrilled with this pick. And also, Aaron Rodgers is, so mad right now.
I'm thinking about their defensive line with the addition of Devontae Wyatt, and we talked about Quay Walker going there. We talked about Devondre Campbell. Those guys are going to be able to have lanes just to make any and every play possible on the opposite side of the ball.
Yeah.
For TFLs, which means tackles for loss. So I love this pick. And Green Bay Packers fans, if you don't love it, please get to love it because I think it's an excellent pick for them. And you still have guys in the second round that Green Bay could take, wide receiver-wise. And like we just mentioned a few seconds ago, also, you have those free agent wide receivers still on the market.
A couple of important notes here. The Packers drafted Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, both from Georgia. They're the first team in the common draft to take two defensive players from the same school in the same draft in the first round. I think that's pretty special.
Eric Stokes is there too.
Yeah. With Wyatt going to the Packers, Georgia has had 4 players drafted today, the most in a first round in the common draft era for them. So speaks to the greatness there. So let me ask you this, Phil. How right now are the Packers better compared to the rest of the NFC than they were when the day started?
Well, not compared to when the day started, I suppose.
Or when the offseason started, let's say it that way.
Because so many players left the NFC to go to the AFC. That's how, including, I know, obviously, Devontae Adams.
Raiders.
But, to the Raiders. But you think about whether it's, Von Miller going from, I know he was with the Broncos until recently, but Rams to Buffalo is an example. There are so many players that went from the NFC to the AFC. So now, you know what? It is extremely difficult for us after spending months analyzing these players to, if a team doesn't do what we believe is appropriate, to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
There are very few teams that consistently earn that. And the Packers, because of the eyesore of their wide receiver depth chart, right now they're on a front office. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, like they get it. But this is also like objectively, you can make the case, like as strong of a roster as there's been in the NFL over the past 3 years. They've won 39 regular season games. I know they haven't had playoff success. And so you're saying to yourself, you know something? They know what they're doing there for the most part. And they got two players that are, you know, going to help them in a massive way in the front seven. So I know it's not what Packers fans want by any stretch, but what you're getting.
But I think that is a really fair and valuable point here to this extent of what do we beg teams to do, especially bad teams. We beg bad teams to follow the draft board. Like, take who you think makes you better. Take the best players on your board and just accumulate talent. We beg the teams at the top of the draft to just keep it simple, right? Yeah. And that's exactly what the Packers have obviously done. They're looking at it and saying, hey, these are the guys that we value, and I don't really give a damn what you think if it's not a wide receiver. Like, I can't talk out of both sides of my mouth. Like, I think you do have to look at it to Fields' point and say it brings a lot of success.
Is it safe to say that the Green Bay Packers are starting to lean more towards being a defensive team with these two picks that they made in Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt? And then you look at the rest of the roster defensively, top to bottom. Are they trying to go more so towards being a defensive juggernaut, being a defensive team, more so than they was offensively over the past years? Do y'all believe that?
I mean, possibly. But again, I think we're all coasting on the keystone piece of that franchise is something where the curse of talent for Aaron Rodgers means he can work with people who are not as talented as he is and make them better, and that is always a calculus in their decision-making here.
Yeah.
Well, and look at the ESPN.com. Like, we have the needs of the Packers listed as wide receiver. Now, remember, they pick again, to your point, second round, 21st pick.
I still think they've got someone
Wide receiver, they can get somebody. Guard, they can get somebody. Like, there's going to be guard play available second, third, fourth round. Defensive end, they may not have loved any of the defensive ends that are there. And tight end is certainly something, if you're going to address in this draft, you're addressing later. So if they follow the board, I mean, here's a look at their wide receiver room, and this is why everybody freaks out about it when you talk about the limited number the limited amount of production, I should say, that you've seen there. So Lazard, Cobb, that's really all you've got. But to Harry's point, maybe you can address it later, and maybe you wait until free agency to the second wave of free agency. I think this is where June becomes important to a lot of teams that clear up more cap space depending on how they created everything. Maybe they give everybody the opportunity. Not all Packers fans love this, though, when the Packers don't draft a wide receiver.
I mean, this is also, by the way, if you put yourself in the position of managing Green Bay in this draft, if I look at you and say, you can get all of these dudes, and then in the third or fourth round, you pick up Charlie Kohler and turn him into like a 700-yard tight end in his first year. That doesn't seem totally implausible to me.
Sure.
Yeah, they could be outsmarting all of us.
Jelani Woods.
Yeah.
From Virginia.
I'll make you,
yes.
right? You can do that on that end of the ball.
It's also possible they're just looking around saying, you think we need to take a wide receiver? Up yours. Cole Strange has been the newest pick off the board out of Chattanooga for the Patriots.
Get the notes out.
I would say that this is one that probably strikes many as much earlier than you'd expect Cole Strange to come off the board, probably about a half a round or a round earlier than you would expect. He is guard/center. He played 5 years of college ball, started all 5 years at Chattanooga. He had an awesome Senior Bowl. He had an awesome combine. He is a freak athlete for an offensive lineman. He's going to be 24 years old soon. The Patriots did have a need at guard and potentially center if you can play him at center if need be. A little earlier than I would have expected, I'll be honest with you. A little earlier than would have been expected. The Patriots do have a track record of taking offensive linemen late in the first round who Logan Mankins is always the one to come back to, who was widely panned as the biggest reach in the draft, and he went on to become one of the best offensive linemen in football. But this is early. He fills a need, and he's a really good athlete, and I think he's going to be a solid starter for them. But I think the question would be, do we think he would have been available when they picked in the second round? And I'm sure the Patriots would tell you, hey, there are a bunch of teams at the top of the second round that have a need for interior offensive.
And I like when you said need because they traded Shaq Mason to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think it was more than a need.
So they did what they felt was best for them.
He helped himself at the Senior Bowl, too. By the way, first Chattanooga player to be drafted in the top 5 rounds since Terrell Owens did it in 1996. And just like that quickly,
wow, that was fast. They were
the Chiefs went sprinting up, like at a level that would make me winded, but was really a skip for Harry Douglas.
Oh.
George Karlaftis from Purdue.
Space eater.
Got you a hoss. Yeah. Like George Karlaftis is easily the player who would double as a professional wrestler, right? He even kind of sounds like an old school professional wrestler. Yeah, he doesn't strike me as a kind of like super pass rushing, bendy, round the corner freak. But he's going to hold his spot. That is one thing he did super well. I never viewed him at Purdue as somebody who you were absolutely terrified of, but you definitely had to respect him.
Well, and now look at what the Chiefs did. We all acknowledged earlier the Chiefs' defense is a point of concern for them. They get Trent McDuffie earlier. Now they get George Karlaftis. I mean, that's helping both levels of defense field. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Karlaftis, man, like there was a time we thought maybe he'd be a number 1 overall pick. That's how much sort of hype there was surrounding him. Great story. This is a guy who, born and bred Purdue kid, played there right away, got a ton of production from the jump. Sometimes we just do this where it's a white pass rusher. They play with extra effort and like to the
let's get some code out here.
I mean, he's just like, he's not as athletic as Trayvon Walker or that type. He does finish, but like this dude just a football player, man. And the Chiefs needed a pass rush in a major way. Frank Clark was retained, I should say, but him and Chris Jones, like they're carrying a heavy burden right now. George Karlaftis is a player, man. I thought this was a really good value for the Chiefs. Really
Sometimes you just need those strong players that's going to eat up space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, to free up other guys to be able to be successful.
He's be good in a pairing, right?
Yep.
Like we need him on one end, and then we need a true pass rusher on the other side, right? And I think he's definitely that dude.
Yeah, the books say we're supposed to have a spotter, so who wants to be my double? Another hangover reference.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, let's go. I'm trying here. You know, the hangover references keep coming. I don't know if I'm going to have any more tomorrow. I've used more today than I expected. Jeff Darlington hanging out with us now. As always, we appreciate Jeff's insight and expertise. Jeff, thanks for joining us. What so far in the draft has made you say, holy you know what?
Of the whole draft, A.J. Brown getting traded, no doubt. That little span where we saw Marquise Brown get traded to Arizona and then A.J. Brown getting traded to Philadelphia, undoubtedly, I think speaks also volumes to what we're seeing in the NFL in general when we've seen the run on wide receivers, teams basically coveting them, trading up to get them. Because all of a sudden, this offseason, suddenly the wide receiver position is the second most valuable position, or I should say highest paid position in the NFL. So if you're going to pay 25 to 30 million a year, you might as well take a shot on a guy in the first round and get him for at least 4 years at a low price.
So you're covering the Chiefs, obviously, and we were just giving them a lot of credit for this draft. What's the vibe been around the team for this?
This played out exactly, actually, as a lot of people here were expecting. I know that there was a lot of expectation, maybe externally, that they would go wide receiver in the first round just because of the Tyreek Hill trade. But actually, talking to people here earlier in the day, cornerback and pass rusher were really 2 equally coveted positions. The expectation was that they would trade into the lower 20s, just as they did, to get a player they coveted, just as they ultimately did. And if they came out of this first round with a cornerback, a pass rusher, or a wide receiver in some combination, that was going to be a win for the Chiefs. Now we have to find out if they got the right players, but the scenario itself played out exactly as they'd want it.
Do you think they're in the wide receiver market then for tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think, was, again, some combination of those positions was going to be important. How they did it would be just a matter of how the board fell. But I think that wide receiver is absolutely a position that we should be watching here in Kansas City tomorrow.
Jeff, always appreciate your time and expertise, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, guys. Great show today. Keep it going.
Oh, thanks. Look at that. You know, it's nice of him to say. I think he was talking mostly about my work. Let's just be honest. Harry Douglas, Jason Fitzfield,
Left me hanging. Don't leave me hanging.
Right over there.
There we go.
Put you in a headlock.
The Bengals, by the way, are on the clock. And can we just take a second and say kudos? The Bengals are on the clock because they did it the way nobody's supposed to do it. Like that whole build from the inside out. And they're like, nah, we're good. We don't really care about offensive line. Our quarterback might get murdered. we're going to get ourselves to the Super Bowl anyway. Like, it worked for them last year.
Truth.
So
Truth.
whatever they do now is like icing on the cake. I don't even know what methodology I'm supposed to assign to this team now.
They're going to rock. That's it. They're just going to get in the draft room and rock. They'll be like, which guy's cool? I firmly believe that. Like that's kind of how they've been drafted, right? Like, they went and got Chase. Cool. We going to get anybody to protect Joe Burrow? No. We're just going to let him go.
But what I love about them, especially free agency, they address those needs because Joe Burrow did get hurt towards ACL rookie year. See him get hurt toward the tail end of the year. You don't want that out of your franchise quarterback because you see how dynamic he is when he is upright and he is healthy, and you see the weapons that you have surrounded him with. So they went out and got a Lyle Collins. They went out and got a Alex Kappa. Was it Ted Karras? I think it was Ted Karras.
Ted Karras, yep.
Yeah.
Kappa as well, both of them.
You got all three of those guys.
All three of them, yep. Yeah.
So it was really a point of emphasis for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now I think right now, going into the draft, I think it's freelance for them. They can actually do what they want to do.
Yeah, it's a little like I said with Buffalo earlier. Like, sometimes you look around and you're like, things are pretty good right now. And if you're the Bengals, I'm constantly yelling at the top of the mountains that when you have a young quarterback that you think can be great, you have an obligation to surround him with as many weapons as possible to figure out if he's great. The Bengals did that. They figured out quickly that they have somebody that's absolutely incredible. So then they looked at it and said, oops, we forgot this one thing, and it kind of feels like they addressed that. So they're playing with house money.
Oh yeah, totally. What a story! This is why the draft matters. And I'm not saying that the Bengals have only done things for the draft. They obviously had a big free agent haul last year, but like the draft has been the thing that has galvanized this franchise. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon and guys on the offensive line like Jonah Williams. Guys on defense that have made a decided mark like Jesse Bates and now a franchise tag player. That's why the draft matters. And I truly believe that the Bengals' success last season helped play a significant part in why the offseason was as drunk as it was this year. We're a draft away. We're a good offseason away. That stuff, I think it matters. I think people saw that, took note.
I would double down on that and say the Super Bowl entirely. Because you have two teams that did it two very different ways.
Yep.
But the Rams were like, screw it. We don't care about the future. We're going to go in and win a Super Bowl right now, which then became an approach for a lot of teams. And then for everybody else, you look at it and say, well, man, the Bengals are out there saying if we're explosive, everything else works itself out. Like, you saw these two really super aggressive approaches, and now all of a sudden, I feel like it's changed the time frame for so many NFL teams. Like, instead of saying, hey, we're building for the next 5 years, like now it's like, building for the next 3. Like, we got to be good for the next 2 or 3 years.
Phil, would you call any of those dudes reaches either? Like, it just seems to be like the Bengals at every point. They're like
at the appropriate slot, right?
Yeah, you just pick the right dude at the right time.
Yep.
Well, the pick is in for the Bengals, which, by the way, no surprise here, but that means there's only going to be one pick left after this in the first round of the draft, and there's only been one quarterback selected. So that is going to be the major story tomorrow for many people.
Oh.
It is Daxton Hill is the pick. Thoughts?
Like it.
I like it too.
Mr. Versatility out of that Michigan defense. I'm not sure if he's going to be a slot corner for them, a safety for them, a perimeter corner. He can do it all, though. Scout is fun. I know that we got lost in the Aidan Hutchinson and David Ojabo sites when we were watching Michigan defense. But you're seeing right here, blitzing off the edge, or not blitzing in this play, but he can do that too. Fun player, sort of frisky player, a little over 6 feet tall. Fills a need, too, for the Bengals, who are, as we saw in the Super Bowl, like their cornerback play was a bit of an issue. They got great production from Chidobe Awuzie last year as a free agent. They cut Trey Waynes. They have Eli Apple. I like this pick a lot for Cincinnati.
I like him as a power slot corner because you and I have been talking about the slot receiver, right? Like, we run all of our routes now, our big routes, through the slot, and we do a lot of damage out of that. A guy like this as a counter to that weapon, or somebody you can play off that, I really like it. He was so good for Michigan and so good in so many different ways that I think as a power slot corner, if he really starts to hone that as a guy that can move around and create some versatility in the middle of the field where he'll be hard to pick up, I love it.
I think the nickel position, some people call it the star position, is becoming one of the most important positions on the defense because when you have a guy that can guard a slot, play back deep, blitz off the edge, and is a sure tackler, you have a damn good football player because you can do a lot of different things with him. I love the fact that they played a lot of man coverage at Michigan. A lot more than I wanted them to play because there was times I was like, why are they playing man in this situation? But their defensive coordinator believed in those guys. So I love the fact that he has the background while at Michigan, playing a lot of man coverage.
I think you made a great point earlier, Field, that you can't always build your team based on the rivals that are in your division. But let's acknowledge, as much as I've been, saying all these great things about the AFC West, there are some quarterbacks in the AFC North that are going to be a problem for a long time. So anytime you're addressing defensively, hey, if you're telling me you're getting more corners, I'm all in. Like, you're telling me you're getting depth on the defensive line or depth in the secondary for any team in either of those divisions, it makes a lot of sense. We want to take a second and acknowledge something really cool that the Seattle Seahawks are doing in today's draft. This was tweeted out a little bit ago, and a really cool moment for somebody that means a lot to us, as we've got it up over here. The Seahawks have kept a seat reserved for the great John Clayton at this year's draft. And obviously, incredible, Field. You are wearing a Clayton shirt, and this is a special moment, I think, for a lot of people that were impacted by John.
We all know that John was so beloved at ESPN, his time before, his time after at ESPN, and John loved the NFL draft. John's passion for football was really unrivaled, and the draft was huge for him because John was an information man. He was a relentless, could not be contained seeker of information, and he loved it. He had a true passion for it, and I can imagine that he is smiling down from heaven right now, enjoying it. Probably had a couple mock drafts that he did, and I know it means a lot to his family, all the support that has been sent John's way, and we continue to think about his wife, Pat, who is a fighter in her own right. This has been an emotional few months for them, but hopefully tonight is one that brings some strength to his family during what we know has been a really difficult spring.
When I was just a little podcast trying to get discovered, the first major person I got to interview was John Clayton. It was the first, big name that I got to interview. And a buddy of mine, John McClain, had helped facilitate that. And I'll never forget, I sat in my car because I was doing a studio session in Nashville. I had to do this interview at a particular time. And I had a whole setup, sat in the car forever. And I got him on the phone, and he was so gracious. And afterwards, he called me back, and he's like, hey, this was really good. And I really like the way you did this and this and this. And, if I could be of any help. And I thought it was so crazy that somebody that didn't know me and didn't need to know me was so gracious and kind. And that speaks to everything I've ever heard about John. So really cool for the Seahawks to do that, obviously. Harry Douglas, Jason Fitzfield Yates, Spencer Hall, Dominique Foxworth, and Mina Kimes have been with us throughout the course of the day as well. We are coming into the last pick of the 2022 first-round NFL draft. Obviously, I'll tell you this now, and I'll tell you it again. You can watch us all day tomorrow. There'll also be simulcast everywhere for day 3, but we will be here for all of the action throughout the course of it. The Vikings are on the clock, and there's been more trades than ever in the first round of the NFL draft. The Vikings pick is in, and one of the prominent stories you are going to wake up tomorrow and hear covered all across ESPN and the NFL Network is that one quarterback so far has been taken. We'll see. Just one. I mean, we'll see, and that's Kenny Pickett to Pittsburgh, which is one of those great stories of a guy staying in the same building and going to work in the same place every day. A lot to root for Kenny Pickett, but for all of the pre-draft conversation about what could happen for the Malik Willises of the world and other quarterbacks, that has not happened so far today. Also, mega blockbuster trades as Hollywood Brown is now a member of the Arizona Cardinals and A.J. Brown is now a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. So there have been stunning moments throughout the course of this draft that have said a lot about the way teams develop and what teams are trying to accomplish. So it's been a very, in some ways, incredibly crazy draft, and in some ways, I don't know the last time, Spencer, I watched a draft where I thought, it's a good pick. Almost every time. Almost every time I've been like, it's a good pick.
We can lose sight of that sometimes in being very picayune and being very skeptical of players' talent. All of these dudes are amazing. They're really already really good at this sport. Wouldn't be here if they weren't. I don't think people understand the level of talent it just takes to get here. Just getting drafted, you won. Everything from here is gravy.
The last pick of the first round is somebody else I know Spencer liked a lot. You mentioned him earlier. Zine comes out of Georgia. So another Georgia defensive player for what is going to turn out historically to be one of the best college football defenses of all time. I know you love him, Spencer.
Just a violent player, an aggressive, violent player who, in addition to doing all of the things that he was supposed to do well, i.e. pattern recognition, they do so much drilling and instruction on pattern reading at Georgia. It's straight from the Nick Saban playbook. He's got all of that, and he plays it really well. But look at that. Aggressive, recognizes the play ahead of time, and then when it comes to the point of contact, it ain't fun. It ain't fun. It is a bad day for you if you are playing Lewis Cine. Lewis Cine hit Kyle Pitts as hard as I have ever seen anyone hit anyone on a football field. But here's the thing, it wasn't careless. It was a fully recognized play where he had recognition and no one expected to get him there that quickly. He's great.
Yeah, I call him a human missile.
Yeah.
That has a ton of range, but the attention to detail is very important. And I got to give a credit to the Kirby Smart because it's not easy to have a bunch of talent. You got to get those guys to buy in and be detail-oriented. And every time you see one of those guys do an interview, they talk about how Coach Smart did this or did that to make them be the best player that they can be. But not just the best player, but better men as well. So I love this pick for Minnesota. Harrison Smith, I want to see how those guys pair up together. It's a great leader, a great veteran player to learn from, actually.
He reminds me, by the way, he is as close to, I think, as a new school, old school safety. Like,
Yes.
he is a thumper. He is a guy who, in another era, would have played a very different and very aggressive breed of safety in the spread era, where we're throwing the ball a lot more and where by penalty you can't do some of those moves. Lewisine is still a powerful presence in the backfield.
Fields, you like this for Minnesota?
Well, I do like for Minnesota, they replaced Xavier Woods, who was the only defensive player in the NFL to play every single snap for his defense last year. I like the historical reference here as well. Georgia defense becomes the first ever to produce 5 defensive first-round prospects in the same year. Ever. That defense was absurd. And 6 if you include Jermaine Johnson, by the way, which is crazy.
Which they should just go ahead and do that.
Which is
Take a
very
lap, do
important
it.
because if Georgia would not have won that national championship, there would have been a lot of questions around Kirby as well.
Yeah.
If all these guys would have came and got drafted in the first round.
Yeah, the narrative changed by winning a national championship, especially when you think about what people were saying after the SEC championship. Is staggering. Now that wraps up day 1. We want to take a quick look here at some of the best available of day 2. And I'm telling you, if you are a college football fan, the number of big names that are still out there is pretty substantial. You've got Malik Willis, I should say, Ebikete, somebody that we know Mel Kiper was hot on throughout the course of this. Nakobe Dean, Ajabo, that's just some of them. We also, predictably, haven't seen any running backs go off the board. We'll see where names like Kenneth Walker III go over the course of the next day, I'm sure. And all of the quarterbacks that are still available. It is wild. Look, Macaroni.
Brees Hall. What are you doing? Someone go grab Brees Hall.
They're sitting around, and there's a lot of teams. It's going to be interesting to me. I say this every year, but I truly mean it. How much action happens tonight going into tomorrow for somebody that's just sitting there and a team's like, man, we got to have them. Got to have them. I'm a little surprised nobody moved up to get a quarterback. I'm pleased that nobody moved up to get a quarterback. It tells you a lot about this year's quarterback class, and I think, frankly, gentlemen, it tells you a lot about what is expected of next year's quarterback class. Teams are looking at it and saying, like, let's just hold it. So that's what we're going to do. We will be here for all of tomorrow. Obviously, that wraps up day 1 in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. For everybody involved in this show, for Spencer Hall, for Field Yates, for Harry Douglas, Mina Kimes, Dominique Foxworth, and everybody. It takes a huge village of people that love this draft process to make this show happen behind the scenes. Drew, Sid, Cologne, you guys, I love you all. You are fantastic. I'm Jason Fitz. Come back, hang out with us tomorrow for every single pick. Thank you for watching the NFL Draft live stream.